Chapter 818. 319 is President Huang. Qi Lu. All these are hot topics in Jiangjing. Without mentioning Azure Dragon, the Dawson family is one of the top mysterious global families. While Xueqi is regarded by ordinary people as just a recently popular traditional Chinese medicine company. However, since Xia Yun graduated from the military academy, she was well aware that behind Xueqi stood an entire legion. The prescription was under top-secret status. Upon hearing Lu Shaming's words, Xia Yun's heart suddenly sank. Xueqi? This Xueqi. Who exactly is he? Chief Qin came here because of his affair. Lu Xiaoming pulled out a cigarette and bit down on it, his expression grave. One of the initiators of Xueqi, the representative who signs contracts with the officials. Xia Yun, Xia Yun, you've stayed in Jiangjing for so long. How could you be confused about such a matter? The backer of Xueqi? I clearly checked, In this circle, which master player doesn't have a bit of insight? The Mu family has indeed also been noticeable lately. Ran Wanxian is someone who would grasp any opportunity tightly, and Xia Yun had also estimated the stakes she put forward. Ran Wangshuan's circle of friends. All the photos posted are from the socialite circles. Though she might only stand at the fringe, but who doesn't recognize that Miss Su in the center of the group photos? Everyone knows she could squeeze into this circle. Her phone contacts are all with people like Mu Yujun from elite families and certain professors. Even then, Xia Yun dared to make a move only after checking up on Xueqi. Clearly an orphan who didn't even finish middle school, Xia Yun didn't understand how come within a day, Chief Chen and his team had come to inquire about this minor traffic accident. He was momentarily breathless, and looked at Lu Xiaoming. He's an orphan, right? But think about it, why would the Mu family people come to you for an orphan? Lu Xiaoming saw what he was thinking at a glance. He took out a lighter from his pocket, cupped his hand around the lighter to light his cigarette. Hasn't Zhang Yiliang's case served as a warning to you yet? Lu Xiaoming exhaled a stream of smoke, looked at Xia Yun, and shook his head. Sun Fei's car stopped at the gate. She got out of the car. Only then did Lu Xiaoming see Sun Fei. He removed the cigarette, surprised. Weren't you in Xiangqing? She had been at Xiangqing prison waiting for someone that morning. How could she have returned by now? I came back earlier, Sun Fei holding a stack of documents. Chief Lu, I am here to hand over Ran Wangshuan's case. Lu Xiaoming looked at Sun Fei somewhat emotively and led her inside. Bai Lian turned to Sun Fei whenever there was an issue, which showed how much she valued her. Also this time Sun Fei had made an appearance at Bai Lian's and Chief Chen's. President Mu, in the office of the Mu family, Assistant Wang handed her some documents to handle. Miss Ran took her clan uncle to discuss the rare metals contract. Director Lu and the others should already have contacted the partners. Several core members of the Mu family attended the banquet, without bringing Mu Yining and Ji Xiaojun along. Their omission was rather awkward. Mu Yining didn't mind, and the ultimate result was good for the Mu family. She tossed the pen in her hand onto the desk and just sighed. But alien and her. Ran Wangshuan's ability to mix into Su Ziyu's circle within a brief year was indeed a skill. That circle was not just a mere circle of ornamental socialites. It consisted of ambitious girls. The game was about the exchange of resources, swapping connections. Let's just wait and see. Assistant Wang had a much better impression of Bai Lian. Now the conflict between Ran Wanxian and Bai Lian was quite clear, and Mu Yining chose not to speak up for Ran Wanxian, subtly siding with Bai Lian. On the contrary, Mu Zhendong won the support of the shareholders and the internal members this time. Of course, things were not going so smoothly for Mu Zhendong's side either. Ran Wanxian was taken away by the police, and if the charge of intentional homicide was confirmed, things would become problematic. Mu Zhendong immediately called Xia Yun upon his return. Why isn't old Xia answering the phone? Mu Zhendong looked at his phone, pacing back and forth in his study. He tried calling several times to no avail. Later on, the phone was just switched off. What on earth was happening? Mu Zhendong's brow furrowed. The Dong family called at that moment, inquiring about Ran Wangshuan's situation. Her phone had been confiscated by the police, and was unreachable. Ran Wanxian was Dong Chuan's girlfriend. The two families had basically set a wedding date already, and the Dong family had noticed Ran Wangshuan's recent behavior. To them, the car accident was simply not a concern. They just considered it to be a freak accident. Dong Chuan hung up the phone, his brow slightly furrowed. What's wrong? Elder Dong noticed his expression, surprised. Dong Chuan stood up to grab his coat, She's been detained again. Seems like Bai Lian is insistent on prosecuting her. Chapter 819. 319 That is Dean Huang. Qi Lu under 2. Bai Lian is suing her? Is a lawsuit really necessary for a car accident? Dong Lao Yi, the old patriarch, also found it strange. He put down his teacup, shocked. Is the Mu family fighting internally now? Don't leave just yet. Ask your uncle first. He was referring to Dong Xiaobai. With Ren Wanxian now showing her sharp edges, the Mu family would surely need to protect her. Why would Bai Lian sue her? Dong Xiaobai was also aware of this matter and recounted it from start to finish. It's a criminal case. Right now, we're waiting for the trial to start. Mu Zhendong is finding her a defense lawyer, while Yining stands by Alien's side. You all decide how to handle it. The implication was that it was time to choose sides. After thinking for a while, Dong Laoyi said, Xiao Chuan, I remember, have your mother find a lawyer. Dong Chuan's mother was an external member of the Jiang family, and it was well known that the Jiang family had a legal dream team. This meant he had definitely decided on which side to align with. Indeed, considering the leverage that Ren Wanxian was showing now, anyone's support would be valuable for the Dong family to consider. Hospital. Ran Jiawei stood under the hospital building with an address she had gotten from Ran Qian. She tilted her head slightly, looking up at the towering inpatient department. After a long while, she gathered her shawl around her and went in, joining a crowd waiting for the elevator. She didn't go to find Xueqi first but instead sought out a doctor to inquire about his condition. Not good, the attending physician, upon hearing that she was Bai Lian's aunt by marriage, told her the blunt truth. He barely survived. If it hadn't been for Director Gus' help, he wouldn't have made it through the resuscitation, and his leg will likely have serious. After the inquiry, she finally went to the ward. Xueqi was in a private room. Xiaowu had gone to take care of some troublemakers from the Luo family, and now in Xueqi's ward was Mao Kuan, leisurely peeling an apple with a knife. Upon seeing that the person knocking on the door was Ran Jiawei, he leaned against the doorframe and turned his phone in his hand. He naturally recognized her as a member of the Ren family. He didn't let her in. I'm just here to see him, Ren Jiawei said, visibly tired. Her eyes fell behind Mao Kuan, unable to clearly see who was lying on the hospital bed. Don't worry, I won't say anything else. After all, she was Bai Lian's aunt by marriage. Mao Kuan scrutinized Ran Jiawei thoroughly for a long while before stepping back to let her in. Xueqi was lying in bed. Xiaowu had set up a tablet above his head with an adjustable stand. At the moment, the tablet was playing a documentary about the animal kingdom. The episode was about wolves. He was watching the animal kingdom with great interest. As soon as Ran Jiawei walked in, she recognized that somewhat familiar face and paused for a second. She hadn't expected the person before her to be the young kid she had previously met, the one whom she had a good impression of. Kid, Ran Jiawei's voice choked up when she saw his pale face, and for a moment, she couldn't utter any of the pleas she had intended to make. I'm sorry. When Xueqi heard her voice, his hands twitched slightly. Then he calmly turned his head, meeting Ran Jiawei's gaze. Ran Jiawei's eyes fell on Xueqi's legs again, recalling what Bai Lian had said about the likelihood of serious sequelae. She also remembered what Ran Qian had said before, that the boy was an orphan and hadn't even completed his second year of junior high. If they threw money at him, he would definitely compromise. He hadn't even finished his second year of junior high. Ran Jiawei was emotionally overwhelmed. I'm sorry. She left a check for Xueqi. Consider this a little gesture from your aunt. Before Xueqi could respond, she immediately left the ward, catching her breath in heavy gasps against the wall outside the door, her mind replaying the doctor's words. Inside the ward, Mao Kuan looked at the closed ward door and approached Xueqi's bedside, eyeing the left check. 500W? They really are rich. He flicked the check, suddenly remembering, if we accept this, won't they accuse us of extortion? Mao Kuan had talked with Zhang Xiai's a few times and had been led astray. Give it to sister. Xueqi shifted his gaze back to the animal kingdom. Okay, Mao Kuan nodded, reached out, and placed the flowers brought by Ran Jiawei at Xueqi's bedside. This aunt is much better than that old man Ren, she's quite reasonable and quite nice too. Xueqi kept watching the TV, and after a long while, he let out a soft hum. In the end, Ran Wangshuan's case was classified as a criminal one. The trial would be held in Yunshao District Court. Mu Zhendong hadn't signed the metal trade contract yet due to delays caused by Ran Wanxian, these past few days, he had pulled many strings for her. Xia Yun hadn't provided any responses yet, which surprised Mu Zhendong, but he didn't have time to get to the bottom of it. The court summons had already been issued. He stood up from the chair in the rest area with Dong Chuan and raised his hand. "Lawyer Song, thank you for your trouble." "No problem," Song Shi also stood, shaking hands with Mu Zhendong. "As long as there is no motive, you shouldn't worry too much about this lawsuit. At most, it will result in humanitarian compensation." Chapter 820. 319. That is Dean Huang. Qi Lu under the three. The two of them saw Song Shi out. They both breathed a sigh of relief, especially Mu Zhendong, who had spent the last 2 days worried about the case file and Ren Wangshuan's case and hadn't slept well at all. Now, at last, they could settle down. Mu Zhendong went to find Mu Yining, Song Shi, the lawyer hired by the Dong family. "Yining, neither of them want to make things too ugly, and you know the kind of lawyers the Dong family hires. The Mu family has finally got this opportunity, and I hope she can keep the bigger picture in mind too." Mu Yining pondered for a moment, then went to Jiang University to find Bai Lian. Jiang University. When Mu Yining arrived, Bai Lian and Tang Ming were waiting for her at the intersection. She instructed Assistant Wang to park in the parking lot and got out of the car to speak with Bai Lian. Tang Ming and a few others greeted Mu Yining. "Go out for a meal?" Mu Yining, holding her phone, asked. "No thanks." Bai Lian shook her head, her left hand holding a black laptop and wearing a loose white blouse, standing straight. "I have to go to the lab later." Mu Yining wondered why Bai Lian was going to the lab later since she was just a freshman. However, she didn't think much about it and told Bai Lian about Mu Zhendong hiring Song Shi. The lawyer hired by the Dong family comes from a very capable legal group. She naturally would not offer Bai Lian a settlement as Mu Zhendong had suggested. She only relayed Mu Zhendong's message to Bai Lian. The Dong family? Bai Lian's fingertips pressed against the laptop case, her head slightly raised. She hadn't expected Bai Lian's attention to be on the Dong family rather than on Song Shi. "Yes," Mu Yining nodded. "Not far away." Dean Huang and Xia Zhuayu greeted Bai Lian from a distance. "Bai Lian, good to see you. About the submission you made last week, I just got to it." Dean Huang was referring to the topology solutions Bai Lian had left behind. Bai Lian tilted her head and told Mu Yining to wait a moment, then walked towards Dean Huang. "Which one are you referring to?" "Topology," Dean Huang said with his hands behind his back. Mu Yining watched Bai Lian's silhouette. She was standing in the shade under a tree, like a pine tree, speaking softly with a bald middle-aged man as the sun spilled onto her, revealing only her delicate profile, composed and serene. An overly striking temperament and appearance. Teacher has reached the 3rd stage of his research. After Dean Huang finished discussing the topic, he brought up something about Ma Institute. "You haven't been to the lab this week either, so he gave me some of the data. It's in my office." Bai Lian nodded, then came back and told Mu Yining and Tang Ming and the others. She was getting ready to go with Dean Huang to retrieve the data. This week she had been dealing with Xueqi's matter and had asked for time off from the institute. They hired Song Shi. Mu Yining came back to her senses. Seeing that Bai Lian wasn't interested in the lawyer business, she quickly explained, "I haven't heard much about this guy, but he's very impressive." "Song Shi?" Bai Lian paused for a moment, shifting her stance, and after some contemplation, she made a comparison. "How does he stack up against Zhao Jingzhou?" Zhao Jingzhou, a famous internet lawyer. Assistant Wang, as well as Mu Yining, recognized him. Mu Yining hesitated. Although Song Shi isn't as famous as Zhao Jingzhou, his capabilities are certainly not inferior to his. "I see." Bai Lian shifted the laptop to the other hand. "I got it, thank you. I'll treat you to fish soup next time." She politely said goodbye to Mu Yining and left with Dean Huang. After discussing official matters, Dean Huang quietly urged Bai Lian, "Junior sister, have you seen Yang Lin recently? I never catch him at the lab." Bai Lian, who had just had a meal with Yang Lin a few days before, played it cool. "I'm not sure either." Once the group had left, Mu Yining finally withdrew her gaze. She looked toward Tang Ming and the others. "Is that Alien's teacher? A professor, perhaps?" He seemed to have a good relationship with Bai Lian. "No, that's our department's Dean Huang." Tang Ming continued to attend to Mu Yining. Mu Yining was very surprised. The person who had just greeted Bai Lian was the dean? She hadn't inquired about Jiang University's affairs in a long time and didn't know Bai Lian's situation on campus. On the side, Assistant Wang had also parked and came over. Xiaotang, what department are you and Alien in? Mu Yining only knew that Bai Lian was the top scorer in the National College entrance exam, and hadn't asked about her study specifics. She had only heard from Shen Qing from time to time about what Bai Lian was up to. Tang Ming, the physics department. The physics department. At the mention, both looked at each other, surprised. They both remembered that Ran Wangshuan's status within the Mu family rose sharply after meeting with the vice dean of the physics department with the Gao family. The person who was just talking to Bai Lian was the dean of the physics department? It seemed he was quite familiar with Bai Lian. Mu Yining watched Bai Lian's retreating figure. She and the dean were almost walking shoulder to shoulder. This made it clear that the dean almost treated Bai Lian as an equal. Mu Yining withdrew her gaze in shock, a thought occurring to her. She asked Tang Ming again, did Alien hire Zhao Jingzhou? Assistant Wang's eyes also lit up, intently watching Tang Ming's response. Tang Ming shook his head. Mu Yining fell silent for a moment. If it's not Zhao Jingzhou, then who is it? If it wasn't Zhao Jingzhou, she would advise Bai Lian not to sue this time. Qi Lu actually, Tang Ming said in a relaxed tone. He also came for fish soup this week. Chapter 821. 320 Identity Exposed. Here you go. On this side, Dean Huang handed the sealed document to Bai Lian. The document was from Academician Ma to Bai Lian. Dean Huang hadn't looked at it. The office door was ajar, with the teaching assistant standing by the door. Bai Lian bent down and inquired about Academician Ma's health. It's the same, Dean Huang raised his hand, gesturing for Bai Lian to sit. Everyone tells him to rest, but so many people at the research institute are waiting for him, you should find some time to visit him there. Academician Ma's field of research was quantum mechanics, and there were only a few people in the country who studied it. Although Academician Ma had taught countless students, few had the capacity to understand, and there was virtually no one to take over his work. Too many people with questionable intentions were eyeing the projects he was working on. He had advised Zhang Fulai more than once, but Zhang Fulai still plunged headfirst into the pitfall of dark matter. After so many years of overexertion, even though a specialized medical team monitored Academician Ma's health, his body was still rapidly weakening. Academician Ma's specific involvement in which projects Dean Huang was unclear about. After all, he himself was appointed by Academician Ma to take charge of the physics department at Jiang University. Bai Lian followed the couch and sat down, her posture upright, and she looked at the sealed document in her hand. Okay. Oh, by the way, Dean Huang remembered another matter. The re-examination is coming up soon. Tell Xiao Su to step it up. End of March. The weather in Jiangjing was gradually warming up, and the re-examinations for Su Wanyao and Jian Zhe were about to start. Bai Lian returned to her dormitory and opened the sealed document bag. Inside was a new flash drive and a red-topped confidentiality agreement. QE 925 project. It was the quantum mechanics direction Academician Ma was currently researching. After reading it, she did not sign immediately, but instead placed the confidentiality agreement face down on the sky-blue table, leaned back in her chair, and thought quietly. Kong Wei and Yu Si-min entered after finishing class and saw Bai Lian sitting at her desk. My sister. You're finally back. Kong Wei threw her books onto the table, walked over to Bai Lian's desk to talk to her. The senior asked me to find out if you want to team up for the Campus Science and Technology Innovation Contest. It's a prestigious award and would be beneficial for you when applying for the special scholarship. It was a significant award among college students. Bai Lian came back to her senses, her hand resting on the agreement, and shook her head. I can't, I have other matters. Academician Ma had given her a flash drive last year, and she still hadn't fully grasped everything on it. This new flash drive was likely the QE project. She needed more time to delve into it. Ah, okay then. Kong Wei looked at Bai Lian with a touch of disappointment and went back to her own seat. Since the start of the semester, Bai Lian, Ning Xiao, and Tang Ming had been abroad for a month and had been elusive since their return to school. In contrast to Bai Lian, Song Min and Bai Xueqi from the finance department had started the semester by winning the entrepreneurship first prize and were later taken by the department to Jiangjing Commerce Bank to participate in Top 10 Singers, Technological Innovation. They had made many connections with upperclassmen and were quite influential on campus. Both new students, Bai Lian was prominent with Ning Xiao and others in the Tongfeng class last semester. But this term there was hardly any news about her, and the occasional news was academic in nature, incomprehensible to most in their fields. Oh, by the way, my myopia has really improved. I'll treat you all to dinner tonight. Kong Wei announced this delightful news to the roommates. Bai Lian took a fountain pen out of the bamboo pen holder and uncapped it with one hand. She flipped the document over again and signed her name on the last page, no longer in neat block letters, but with a sharp, swift flourish. After signing, she tilted her head slightly and smiled at Kong Wei, her gentle and reserved voice slowly becoming apparent. Then congratulations to you. You're better. Xueqi stepped up on the chair to join Kong Wei, observing her eyes. Don't tell me, since the start of term, you really haven't been wearing glasses much. How's the queue at Xiankong these days? Acupuncture is hard to schedule, Kong Wei shook her head. They limit the numbers daily. This new year, the results of the first batch of bloggers and short video bloggers who were tested came out. Because they recorded and posted their daily activities, most became internet celebrities. It flared up again during the New Year period. According to incomplete statistics, out of the several billion people nationwide, about 30% are nearsighted. Now that the effects of acupuncture are known to be so beneficial, far more people are lining up at Xiankong than last year. Even though Xiankong is already teaching this acupuncture technique to Chinese medicine students, there are still too few trained in acupuncture, rendering their efforts only a drop in the bucket. The two of them discussed the matter. Bai Lian carefully dried the ink of her fountain pen and put away the confidentiality agreement, then turned her attention to Xueqi, contemplating thoughtfully, unsure if Xueqi would believe her. Chapter 822. Identity Exposed. _2 Forget it. Bai Lian opened her phone and found Dr. He's WeChat. Add a session this month. To avoid wearing out his own arm and ensure sustainable development, Dr. He limits the number of acupuncture patients to 10 per day. He spends the rest of the time sitting in the clinic consulting on difficult and complicated cases. Dr. He. Okay, shall Xiaowu bring the card to you on Friday? Bai Jian. 1. After sending the message, Wang Yufeng sent an address. It was about the iridium transaction. Bai Lian glanced at it. Saturday. She had to attend Xueqi's trial on Friday. Friday. It was the day Xueqi and Ren Wanxian went to court. Before the trial began, Ji Xiaorong hadn't made it back, but Ren Qian got through to his phone. This is your own daughter. Are you just going to watch Bai Lian sue her? On the other end of the phone, Ji Xiaorong remained silent for a moment. If she really did hit someone on purpose. Ren Qian coughed in anger and hung up the phone furiously. When Dong Chuan and Mu Zhendong arrived, Ren Zhouwei's fatigue was obvious, as she gently patted Ren Qian's back, comforting him. Auntie Ren, Dong Chuan greeted Ren Zhouwei politely, then shifted aside to introduce the man in a lawyer's robe behind them to Ren Qian. This is Lawyer Song. Ren Qian had already heard from Ren Zhouwei about Lawyer Song's formidable abilities. He looked at Song Shi with respectful manners, asking the lawyer about the expected outcome of this court session. Don't worry, Mu Zhendong, hands clasped behind his back dismissively, answered on behalf of Song Shi. Lawyer Song is part of the legal team. With him here, there won't be any surprises. Lawyer Song, if you please. They all went in. Bai Lian and Xueqi had already arrived at the plaintiff's seat. Xueqi came in a wheelchair due to his injury, while Bai Lian stood behind him, slowly pushing the wheelchair. His complexion was still pale, and he looked thin and frail. Seeing Xueqi from a distance, Ren Qian opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Xueqi just bowed his head and looked at his lapel, ignoring everyone. Bai Lian pushed the wheelchair to the front row and sat next to Xueqi, her posture erect, dressed simply yet composedly, and gave Ren Qian a faint glimpse with her deep and piercing eyes. Ren Qian, who wanted to plead with Xueqi, felt his heart clench at the sight of her eyes, abruptly withdrew his gaze, and didn't dare get any closer to Xueqi. Having lost weight in just a week, Ren Wangshuan's condition was evident, and both Ren Qian and Ren Zhouwei's eyes betrayed their heartache upon seeing her. Especially Ren Qian, he couldn't help but stand up, tears welling in his eyes as he looked towards Ren Wanxian. The court banged the gavel. Silence! Ren Qian sat down. Beside him, Mu Zhendong and Dong Chuan also looked in Bai Lian's direction. Mu Zhendong's gaze settled on Bai Lian. She just sat there, hands resting beside her, eyes lowered, casually tapping on the armrest beside her, looking utterly composed and at ease. This made Mu Zhendong furrow his brows. Mu Yining should have relayed the message to Bai Lian by now. Thinking this, his eyes found the opposition's lawyer. A middle-aged man who wasn't wearing a lawyer's suit but just a suit with a lawyer's badge on his chest, arms folded, eyes slightly closed, not interacting with anyone. He had quite the presence. "Do you know him?" Mu Zhendong inquired of Dong Chuan. Dong Chuan shook his head. "I don't." 9 o'clock. The judge hammered down his gavel. He glanced at Song Shi, wanted to look at Qi Yundai, but didn't dare, focusing straight ahead instead. Sitting on Xueqi's side, Qi Yundai opened his eyes. He glanced at Song Shi, casually adjusted his own badge, and uttered indifferently, "My client accuses the defendant of attempted murder. Here are my client's medical records and the surveillance video." He handed Xueqi's medical records and the surveillance video to the jury. After deliberation, the jury played it in court. It was raining slightly on the day, making the surveillance footage blurry. Xueqi stood with his back to the car on the right, about 100 meters away. After stopping, the car suddenly accelerated away. But there was a main road to the right that Ran Wanxian didn't take. Instead, she clearly drove towards Xueqi. Judging solely by the video, the intent to kill was obvious. As the surveillance video was played, Mao Kuan and the others on Xueqi's side looked at Ran Wanxian with terrifying eyes. "Right here," Qi Yundai still casually directed the last segment, looking at Ran Wanxian. "In this part, Miss Ren, you were clearly driving towards that big tree, but why did you turn the wheel to the right? And in this part, when you hit Mao Xueqi, the car had clearly stopped, with the wheel already on his leg, yet you still increased the accelerator at that moment?" Ran Wanxian looked helplessly toward her lawyer. But Song Shi sat in his seat, motionless for a moment. Chapter 823. Identity Exposed. _3 Ren Qian also stood up nervously. "Mr. Mu, what is Lawyer Song doing? Why isn't he speaking?" Actually, Mu Zhendong and Dong Chuan also found it strange. Song Shi, personally hired by Dong Chuan's mother at a great cost, was known for his capability. Why hasn't he said a word till now? The judge glanced in Song Zai's direction and then knocked the gavel to remind him. "My client only learned to drive a few months ago." Song Shi regained his composure as he submitted his side's evidence. "It's very normal for new drivers to confuse the gas pedal with the brake. According to the information, my client and Mao Xueqi have no underlying conflicts." He listed evidence one by one, including Ran Wangshuan's performance at school, enough to prove she is a good youth of the new era. All this was just because she was too nervous and mishandled the situation. Ran Wanxian had no reason to target Xueqi after Song Shi finished. Ran Wanxian finally breathed a sigh of relief, slumping back into her chair, regaining her composure. "I was just too nervous at that time." Ran Qian and Ran Zhouwei and others calmed down as well. "Nervous? Let's just say you were nervous." Qi Yundai pulled out another report, speaking calmly. "I investigated Miss Ren's academic performance and health report. Miss Ren, you typically study well and practice calligraphy, which as everyone knows, requires calm to learn well. Miss Ren, your health report from last month also shows you are very healthy, with no mental disorders such as anxiety. May I ask why were you nervous when there were no cars or animals nearby to frighten you?" The jurors continued to take out Qi Yundai's materials. "Why were you nervous?" The court did not expect Qi Yundai to pose this question. Ran Wanxian, when asked this question, froze entirely and did not immediately respond to Qi Yundai's question. Song Shi had prepared many professional replies, but he had nothing concerning emotional aspects, as Qi Yundai's perspective was too tricky, and coupled with his expression, Song Shi looked towards Ran Wangshuan's demeanor and understood there must be insider details. He began to regret it. He had taken this case only after hearing about the Dong family. A minor traffic accident case, and the opponent was Qi Yundai. Thinking this, his gaze fell on Xueqi sitting at the defendant's seat. How did this orphan manage to hire the big demon Qi? "Miss Ran Wanxian, please answer my question." Qi Yundai's piercing gaze fixed on Ran Wanxian. Qi Yundai, as the lead lawyer of the Zhang family, his nickname as the Great Devil was well earned in the circle. His gaze was so imposing that most lawyers would become disoriented under it. Not to mention the inexperienced Ran Wanxian. Ran Wanxian could not answer and looked desperately towards Song Shi. On her side, Ran Qian clenched his fists tightly, watching Ran Wanxian being pressured like this in the courtroom. He looked angrily and resentfully at Xueqi and Bai Lian. Xueqi felt that resentful glare. He finally lifted his head, looking back emotionlessly. Ahead, Qi Yundai, leaning on the table, casually picked up another file. "Can't answer? Then let me help you." It's because you already knew you were Zhou Jian's daughter, and after coming to Zhongjing, you discovered that Xueqi was the true son of Ren Zhouwei and Ji Xiaorong. You wanted to use this opportunity to kill him completely. That's your motive. No, I didn't want to kill him. Ran Wanxian hadn't expected Qi Yundai to know this. She blurted out instinctively. So you knew about Xueqi being the biological son of Ren Zhouwei and Ji Xiaorong? Qi Yundai continued calmly. After this sentence, Ran Wanxian suddenly realized what she had just revealed, effectively admitting she knew Xueqi's true identity. She couldn't help but step back, falling into her chair. Qi Yundai took out the last 2 documents. These are 2 paternity tests. Please have the jury review them. All of a sudden, the courtroom fell completely silent. Even Mao Kuan gaped. He looked alternately at Xueqi and Bai Lian, finally resting his eyes on Ren Zhouwei opposite him. Opposite him, Ran Qian, who was resenting Bai Lian and Xueqi, had a moment of shock go through his mind. He stared blankly at Qi Yundai, utterly lost, no longer reacting. And the courtroom, after a moment of silence, erupted into uproar. Ren Zhouwei's heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed by an invisible hand. She looked somewhat frightened and helpless towards Xueqi, weakened, unable to utter a word. Then she stumbled towards the jury, grabbing the paternity tests from the jury foreman's hands. This was unreasonable, but the jurors, having never seen such a scene, did not stop her. One was between her and Xueqi, the other was between her and Ran Wanxian. Chapter 824. Penalized for 3 years, do not agree to enter the family tree. Ran Zhouwei clenched her fists around the paternity test results until her knuckles turned white and with grief, turned to look at Xueqi sitting behind her. She was terrified and afraid. Xueqi still looked calmly in the direction of Qi Yundai, as serene as always. In the defendant seats, Mu Zhendong and Dong Chuan also didn't expect things to develop in this way, and they exchanged uncertain looks. It wasn't just the 2 from the Ren family who were shaken by the paternity test. That is the end of my statement. Qi Yundai maintained his previous demeanor, his folded hands tapping lightly, as he glanced slightly at the judge and jury. The jurors, dressed in their judge and lawyer robes, also reacted. What was originally an ordinary traffic accident had unleashed such a huge ethical drama. Ran Wangshuan's reaction just now had indirectly acknowledged that she had been aware of Xueqi's identity. Attempted murder was confirmed. A crime was committed. Attempted crimes can be mitigated, but Qi Yundai's subsequent statement that Ren Wanxian had long known about Xueqi's identity aggravated the situation, resulting in a sentence of 4 years imprisonment. From the second time Ren Wanxian was arrested, she might have considered the possibility of being sentenced, but she never anticipated being sentenced to 4 years. In an instant, her heart turned cold, and she raised her eyes, instinctively looking toward Ren Qian. Grandpa, Grandpa! Ran Qian sat stupefied in his seat, completely limp. The Ran Wanxian the Ren family, had put so much effort into raising, turned out not to be one of their own. Ren Qian's vision began to blur. Hearing the call, he instinctively lifted his head and looked towards Ran Wanxian. Grandpa, save me. Family members could appeal a second time, and Ren Wanxian had never thought she would be convicted, let alone for 4 years. She thought she saw hope. I don't want to go to jail, she pleaded with Ren Qian. Ren Qian rose from his seat, leaning on the railing in front of him like a withered tree, suddenly looking 10 years older. Wanxian, when did you find out? Ran Wanxian was frozen in place, her mouth open, wanting to speak, but the words didn't come out. She stepped back 2 paces. When she was handcuffed this time and led away stumbling, she remembered Mu Zhendong and Dong Chuan, her face filled with terror. Dong Chuan, uncle! Mu Zhendong came back to his senses. Whether or not Ran Wanxian was part of the Ji family didn't matter to him. He had no emotional ties to them. What mattered was who could bring benefits to the Mu family. She came down from the stand and was stopped by Mu Zhendong, who inquired about the possibility of winning an appeal. Sorry, She shook his head. I can't take this case anymore. Why? Mu Zhendong asked anxiously. Not far away, Qi Yundai removed his badge and walked down the steps at an unhurried pace, surrounded by Xiaowu, Mao Kuan, and a crowd around Bai Lian and Xueqi. He didn't join the clamor of the children. Seeing him descend, She quickly straightened up. Mr. Qi, as there were only so many in the circle of lawyers, Qi Yundai naturally remembered him as a member, giving a nod of acknowledgement. I taught you all before. I know, She said with a bitter smile. Qi Yundai had said before, when facing a seasoned lawyer with a strong presence, to not try to dismantle their arguments, but rather to use a more tactful approach to sway the judge and jury. This would achieve the same effect as the opposing lawyer. But Chi Yundai had completely cut off this opportunity for Song Shi, leaving him in disarray. Chi Yundai had to go back and prepare for a lecture. He said a word to Song Shi, bid farewell to Bai Lian, and left the courthouse. While the two talked, neither Dong Chuan nor Mu Zhendong said a word. It was only after Chi Yundai left that Song Shi turned slightly to Mu Zhendong. With Mr. Chi there, I could appeal 100 times, and he would be able to dismantle my arguments one by one. After saying this, Song Shi also left, following the footsteps of Chi Yundai. After the two had gone, Mu Zhendong finally turned to Dong Chuan. Who is this lawyer Chi? Dong Chuan's expression was solemn as he watched Song Shi walk away, contemplating Chi Yundai's identity, yet he remained silent, his gaze falling back on Bai Lian and the group around her. Anxiety lingered in his heart, not only about Ran Wangshuan's identity but also about the lawyer brought in by Bai Lian's group. He took out his phone to call grandfather Dong. Dong Chuan now didn't know whether the choices he had made this time were right or wrong. Xueqi was pushed out of the courthouse door by Xiaowu. Ran Zhouwei also left the building. It was nearly noon, and the sunlight outside was dazzling. Ran Zhouwei looked at the figures ahead, opened her mouth with a dry voice. Alien! Her gaze was on Xueqi. But she was calling for Bai Lian. Chapter 825. Punished for 3 years, does not agree to be included in the family genealogy. _2 Bai Lian was the first to stop. She stood there, turning slightly to look at Ran Zhouwei. Mao Kuan had seen Ran Zhouwei in the hospital before. His impression of her was much better than that of Ran Qian. With his blonde hair, his hands in his pockets, he watched quietly. Ran Zhouwei stepped forward cautiously, and she finally saw Xueqi's face clearly. Your leg. But Xueqi was very calm. He had already spent a long time coming to terms with his identity and remained as placid as ever, much better. Ran Zhouwei appeared cautious, her face filled with guilt and a deep sense of helplessness, and he felt somewhat unable to respond. This blood tie was too unfamiliar to him. Good, Ran Zhouwei seemed to murmur. She looked closely at Xueqi's face, reminded of the first time they met at the airport, when she had been shocked by Xueqi. Some of his expressions and temperament resembled Ji Xiaorong. Your name is Mao Xueqi, right? The businesswoman who dominated the corporate world had red eyes at this moment. Mao Xueqi. Xueqi. She tried to think who might have given him such a simple name. Was it someone from the orphanage who named him? She remembered what Ran Qian told her that day, how he hadn't finished junior high, and they had used the lofty hope of studying abroad to persuade him to privately settle with Ran Wanxian. The him who hadn't completed junior high was in pain, yet they maliciously used him as a bargaining chip, tearing open wound after wound atop his injuries. She thought of the question Bai Lian threw back at her that night. The more she thought, the more Ran Zhouwei found it hard to breathe. Outside the courthouse, Bai Lian's car pulled up. It was a business van. The rear door opened and Shen Qing revealed her face from inside, skillfully calling several kids. Come on in, your Uncle Chen made soy sauce duck today, you'll love it. She also inquired about Xueqi's leg. A gentle smile appeared on Xueqi's face. Thank you, Aunt Shen. These people, all following Bai Lian, called Shen Qing Aunt Shen. Nearly all of them were practically without parents, Bai Lian included, and Shen Qing and Ji Xiaojun had played significant roles in their lives. Ran Zhouwei watched Shen Qing in a daze. This woman she once thought was vulgar. Now she was extremely grateful for her existence. She tried to imagine, if not for Bai Lian and Shen Qing, where her child might be now. Would he have already been forced by her and Ran Qian into signing a settlement? The black business van drove away. Beneath the cool sunlight, Ran Zhouwei's spirit was in a daze. She reached out, unlocked her phone, and re-established contact with Ji Xiaojun. The matter of Xueqi. It wasn't until the evening that Bai Lian told Ji Heng. Ji Heng sat alone in the yard of number 103, holding a smoking pipe, his head down, slowly drawing in, his fingertips trembling slightly. The glass roof wasn't yet dismantled, and it was full of smoke inside. Zhang Fulai walked in from outside, stretching out his hand to press the switch above his head, the glass panes on top sliding apart to reveal a patch of sky. The smoke in the courtyard gradually dispersed. Zhang Fulai maintained his usual cold demeanor, his expression quite impassive, as he extended his hand, presenting a file to Ji Heng. This is some information about Xueqi. Ji Heng's hand, which was holding the smoking pipe, paused instantly as he took the file bag Zhang Fulai passed to him. Xueqi had been in Xiang Cheng's orphanage, so close to them. He had no surname of his own and took the name Mao, adopting Mao Kun's surname because he was the seventh in line, thus the name Mao Xueqi. Ji Heng looked further. He saw that Xueqi had always been an outstanding student, even having his teachers come to his home to persuade him not to drop out. There were a few papers brought over from the orphanage. All were simple drawings by Xueqi as a child, preserved by the director because they were nicely done. With no guidance and no tutoring, he could still produce really beautiful drawings. He too should have had a splendid path laid out by a family, not left on his own, forced to drop out in junior high because he couldn't scrape together living expenses. Ji Heng read the files again and again before finally putting the file bag away and murmured deeply, "Thank you." Now he finally understood why Zhang Fulai had suddenly said those words to him that morning. Zhang Fulai tapped his fingers and pushed up his glasses on the bridge of his nose, remarking with nonchalance, "You're welcome. Try to take it easy." Having delivered the items, he didn't linger to comfort Ji Heng any further. To number 303. Today, the hall of number 303 was very quiet, despite being a Friday evening. Even Zhang Xiai's, who had the day off, wasn't coming down. Instead, he was at Ning Xiao's place doing homework. Only Zhang he sat alone, dressed in a white knitted sweater, sitting on the floor and assembling a building block set. Chapter 826. Punished for 3 years, does not agree to be included in the family genealogy. _3 Seeing Zhang Fulai enter, he stared dumbfounded for a moment before continuing to play with his building blocks like a little gentleman. Zhang Fulai naturally couldn't care less about him. He knew Bai Lian was in the study and went straight in. Bai Lian stood before the half-open window, her cold white fingers resting on the window-sill, in her usual languid pose, watching the street lamps outside and the nearly invisible stars above. She seemed somewhat entranced. Zhang Fulai walked over slowly without asking about Xueqi, and just stood beside her. "Did you visit Academician Ma yesterday?" Bai Lian came back to reality, tilting her head slightly. She was undisturbed today in room 303 and was dressed more casually, in a black silk satin loungewear with a subtle pattern embroidered on it. The topmost button was unfastened, revealing a glimpse of her slender collarbone. Academician Ma called this morning. Zhang Fulai looked at her and spoke slowly. His Xiao was missing 2 screws this morning. Xiao was a robot that Academician Ma had created a long time ago. Zhang Fulai had previously updated Xiao's functions. Miss Bai let out an ah before continuing to gaze outside nonchalantly. Her eyes and brows lit beautifully by the light. He must have remembered incorrectly. Zhang Fulai observed her lethargic gaze, his hand resting behind her, as a cool, gentle kiss landed on her. "You were just opening the window to let the smoke out," he said. Bai Lian paused for a moment. Nonsense. The next day, Bai Lian was going to meet Wang Yufeng. They had arranged to meet at 8:30 in the morning. At 8 o'clock, Bai Lian went to room 302 and placed the 2 unscrewed screws on his desk. When she left, she ran into Ming Dongheng and a woman. The woman was dressed in a close-fitted outfit, with a gun holster strapped to her left knee, her hair all pulled back neatly and efficiently. Chen Beixian also noticed the girl coming out of room 302. In Jiangjing's current temperature around 10 degrees, the girl wore a Xueqi blue mandarin collar top embroidered with 2 circles of white and pink complex patterns on the collar and cuffs, with beige frog buttons neatly fastened to the top. Her hair was long and half-tied, with a green jade hairpin slantingly inserted. Her sparse brows and eyes, her casual glance, exuded a very gentle temperament. Chen Beixian, having seen Bai Lian's photo on Jiang University's forum before, felt all the more dazed when she saw her in person, as if facing a destiny carved into her genes. It reminded her of the portrait of the lady in white, hanging in the Chen family's ancestral hall. Ming Dongheng raised his hand to ring the bell at room 302, but he lowered it immediately upon seeing Bai Lian. "Miss Bai." "Good morning." Bai Lian glanced over Chen Beixian and nodded at Ming Dongheng. Ming Dongheng noted her attire. "Are you heading out?" "Yes, Xiao is coming to pick me up," Bai Lian replied and then went downstairs. Once she was gone, Chen Beixian snapped back to reality. So that was the legendary Miss Bai, Mu family. Mu Zhendong hadn't slept all night and went straight to the study to find Mu Yining. Ji Xiaojun was also in Mu Yining's study, discussing Ran Wanxian. She had previously been included in the Mu family's genealogy, but now that she was not Ji Shaorong's biological daughter, he naturally had to inform the Mu family. Mu Yining was aware of the verdict, but after hearing Tang Ming's words that day, she could guess that Ran Wangshuan's side might lose the case. Yet, it hadn't occurred to her that Ran Wanxian wasn't the biological daughter of the Ran family. No wonder Bai Lian was so angry at the time. Mu Yining also knew the reason Ran Wanxian chose to crash into Xueqi and was quite surprised by it. After some reflection, she concluded that Ran Wangshuan's name definitely needed to be removed from the family tree. It was clear to see the relationship between Bai Lian and Mao Xueqi, and now that their identities had been revealed, keeping Ran Wangshuan's name there would be inappropriate, causing Bai Lian and the others discomfort. As soon as Mu Zhendong entered, he heard Mu Yining's words. "We haven't received this batch of goods yet, and revealing her to not be a Mu at this time, what good does that do us?" He had previously disagreed with Bai Lian suing Ran Wanxian, and now he disagreed even more with them revealing Ran Wangshuan's identity. "You know how important Ran Wanxian is to our research, it's such a good opportunity, and we can't just watch as the last 3 research facilities are taken back?" Mu Zhendong had heard about Xueqi's identity from Xia Yun before. An orphan who dropped out of school in the 8th grade. Looking at the entire Mu family, excluding Mu Qiong, there really hadn't been anyone like Xueqi. Compared to him, Ran Wanxian, with her excellent grades and mastery of various talents, was more fit to be put in the spotlight. They were accustomed to weighing pros and cons, excessively rational in every aspect. Mu Yining didn't speak up right away. Seeing she seemed to be considering something, Mu Zhendong fixed his gaze on her and made the final decision. "Ran Wanxian is still in the Mu family genealogy now and won't be removed, at least until our current partnership is secured. As for that Mao Xueqi, I disagree with including him in the genealogy." Choosing between Ran Wanxian and that Xueqi was very easy for him. Chapter 827. After 3, 2, 1, it's too late for regrets. Miss Bai has arrived. Since Ji Xiaojun returned, the Mu family had been doing better and better. Seeing hope, Mu Zhendong became even more eager to restore the Mu family to its former glory. When the Mu family was in decline, there was no infighting, but now in its period of ascent, Mu Zhendong's confidence had soared, making him the second in command of the Mu family. The younger members of the Mu family all saw hope, and Mu Zhendong was not content with the present benefits. His ambition beginning to swell. He wanted to use Xueqi to exchange for the greatest benefits. "Uncle, watch your words." Mu Yining stood up, her expression cold and stern. At her side, Ji Xian's face showed no change. Not until after Mu Zhendong left did Mu Yining apologetically look towards Ji Xiaojun. "Xiaojun, I will handle Ran Wangshuan's matter well. As for Xueqi." "Xueqi listens to alien." Ji Xiaojun narrowed his eyes, his gaze falling on the light and shadows outside, his voice also weakened. "He won't return to the Mu family." Mu Yining didn't speak again. She just felt worried inside. In the past, Ran Wanxian was willing to return to the Mu family, but now neither Bai Lian nor Xueqi would come back. Bai Lian could slowly be persuaded, but Mu Yining had to deal with the Mu family's side of things as soon as possible. She sent Ji Xiaojun out the door. 20 years ago, the Mu family was also a family with large assets. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. It was beyond his expectations that Bai Lian wouldn't return, but now Ji Xiaojun was saying Xueqi wouldn't return either. "The uncle has gone to meet with the Gao family." Assistant Wang looked at Mu Yining and expressed his concern. "I don't know if this time will be successful." This year, the Mu family had only one major project, targeting this heavy industry. The Gao family. Mu Yining's gaze grew deeper. Cooperating with them is like making a deal with a tiger for its skin. When the Zhang family ran into trouble, the Gao family was the first one who wanted to take over parts of the Zhang family's enterprises. Assistant Wang nodded, then seemed to recall something. "Will that Xueqi really not return to the Mu family?" "They think differently from you," Mu Yining said softly. Ji Xiaojun had stayed in the Mu family for a time when he was very young, and had been taught by Mu Xiongguang. He came back because he still felt a sense of responsibility for the Mu family. But Bai Lian and Xueqi truly had none. Mu Yining was by now quite familiar with Bai Lian, and to her, the Mu family might not be as important as a classmate from Shangqing. "Find the butler. Organize a meeting with the uncle tonight." She stood at the door for a while before speaking up. "And also, prepare for me to go to the hospital." Xueqi hadn't been discharged from the hospital yet. He had just come out for a bit of indulgence during the court appearance the day before, and after the nurse in the ward had been anxious all day, he finally returned. He needed half a month more of convalescence. When Mu Yining arrived, Ren Zhou was standing in the hospital corridor. She didn't know how long she had been there, not entering the ward, and Mu Yining greeted Ren Zhou before going in. Upon entering, she leisurely peeled an apple for Xueqi and talked about the recent developments with Sun Chun. Sun Chun had joined a program at the Chinese Medicine University, which would add more traditional Chinese medicine expertise to Sun Chun in the future. Professor Wen wants either Dr. He or Dr. Lu to give a lecture this month, Sun Chun reported on Sun Chun's recent status. The university will arrange for journalists to follow up. In a year's time, Sun Chun had been recognized by the broad masses of people, with very strong public credibility. Xueqi's bed head was raised, and his head was wrapped in gauze, his right hand hanging by his side with an 4-drip. Let Dr. Lu go. I was thinking the same, Sun Chun said as she slowly cut the apple into pieces and handed them to Xueqi. Dr. Lu is a bit more handsome. Mu Yining had just entered and heard them talking about some professor and doctor. She looked at Xueqi with surprise. Did she hear professor? Mu Yining was a bit puzzled and even doubted if she had heard wrong. She did not mention the matter of Xueqi returning to the Mu family, and only stayed in the ward for a while to chat with Xueqi. Before leaving, she said to him, I just saw Xueqi standing all by herself in the corridor. After Mu Yining left, Xueqi took a piece of apple, remained silent for a long while, then finally said, Sister Sun Chun, let her come in. Sunday. Bai Lian got up early for a morning run. When she returned in her sportswear, Ji Hang had already gotten up, and there was soup stewing in the kitchen pot. He and Shen Qing took turns visiting Xueqi these past 2 days. Ran Wanxian and Xueqi were the least familiar with each other, but Ji Hang and Shen Qing obviously got along very well with Xueqi. The readily uttered aunt and grandpa from Xueqi's mouth weren't fake. Bai Lian opened the door to room 103, dressed in sportswear, black sneakers, with her hair tied back in a ponytail that fell over her chest from the left, casually leaning against the doorframe. She watched as Ji Hang served up a bowl of soup and then went to water the flowers in the yard. Chapter 828. After 321 regret, Miss Bai came under to, Grandpa, do you like Xueqi more? She suddenly asked. Ji Hang, holding the watering can, lifted his head and an expression resembling speechlessness appeared on his aged face for the first time. Isn't that so? Bai Lian crossed her arms over her chest, her tone unhurried. Then why did you get up so early to stew soup? Ji Hang glanced at her and, after watering the flowers, returned to the kitchen to pour the soup on the chopping board down the drain. Hey, wait, Grandpa. Bai Lian quickly grabbed the soup bowl, took a couple of sips, and then told him about the situation in Xueqi. Sun Fei has already investigated it clearly. It was Zhou Jian who switched them. If you have any questions, ask Officer Sunday. Zhou Jian, Ran Qian's secretary. After Bai Lian went upstairs, Ji Hing stood in the kitchen for quite a while. He somewhat dreaded to imagine that it had taken him this long to find out that Ji Shairong's child had been switched, and if it weren't for the presence of Bai Lian, they might have been kept in the dark all their lives. Ji Shairong has not returned to this day. After pouring the soup into a thermos, Ji Hung returned to his own room. He opened an old wooden box, where that stack of black and white photos still lay. The woman in the cheongsam was tenderly smiling at the camera. He slowly ran his hand over these photos before taking out an old mobile phone from the bottom of the box. He searched the room for a long time for a charger and finally found one to charge the phone. The phone hadn't been used in a long time. He didn't wait for it to start up, but took the thermos with him to the hospital first. Upstairs, Bai Lian took a shower before heading to the study. There were 2 documents on the desk in the study. One was the confidentiality agreement given to her by Dean Huang, which she had signed but had not yet returned to him, and the other was the rare metal trade deal she had signed with Wang Yufeng yesterday. The phone rang. It was a call from Dean Huang, inquiring about this matter. Knowing that Dean Huang was at school, Bai Lian picked up both agreements and first went to Jiang University. Dean Huang was in his office. As Bai Lian arrived, the teaching assistant was reporting the content of the emails to Dean Huang. So far, we have already received 10 emails. As soon as the news broke this year that Dean Huang was taking on graduate students, it was still that same group of people who were the first to know. Their recommendation letters had already been sent to Dean Huang's email box. Except for Su Wenyo's, reject all the others. Dean Huang stood up to greet Bai Lian. The teaching assistant had already guessed. This year, Su Wenyao had the highest scores in both the written exam and the interview, so it was not surprising at all that Dean Huang chose him. What was most important was, The teaching assistant's gaze shifted to Bai Lian. That was Bai Lian's brother. Bai Lian didn't speak. She came to Dean Huang's office today, partly to inquire about Su Wenyo's whereabouts. The physics building. The graduate student re-examinations at Jiang University had already been over for 2 days. During the written exam, Su Wenyao from the Department of Literature and Science in Zhenzhou, who seemed to appear out of nowhere, scored frighteningly high. Su Wenyao had a certain small fame in the physics department at Jiang University. People knew him and, although they knew he scored very high, they were somewhat fine with it. The key was this Zhenzhou, who literally appeared as if he had jumped out of a crack in a rock. This year, the physics department had a large number of graduate student applicants. Qi Jun, Yu Shang, and their group went to the physics building to gather the books they had left behind. During their own postgraduate entrance exams, most of them were in the same fixed classrooms of the physics building, and their books were inside. Now that the exams were over, the instructor asked them to come together mainly to clear the books for the next batch of students. Qi Ge, which professor are you planning to choose? Yu Shang didn't pass the entrance exam and was preparing to leave the school to submit internship applications. He asked Qi Jun. Qi Jun breezed through the re-examination, but because he was psychologically affected, he barely made it, still looking. He had approached 2 professors, but both said they had already chosen someone. He didn't achieve a good ranking in last summer's mathematical modeling competition, so Qi Jun's resume wasn't impressive and finding a decent supervisor proved challenging. What about Dr. Zhua? Yu Shang remembered the instructor from last summer, the professor with the highest position that he knew. Doesn't Miss Qi know Dr. Zhua? Speaking of Qi Shuyun, Qi Jun grew even silent. Qi Shuyun didn't pass the re-examination, which was even harder for her than for him. Last summer, Qi Jun was surrounded by a bunch of people. This year after the exams, there were only a few left around him, as most had gone to look for jobs. Seeing Qi Jun's expression, Yu Xing knew the situation was not optimistic. The group headed downstairs. On Sunday morning, there weren't many people coming in and out of the building. Suddenly, they heard an excited voice not far away. Someone was softly calling, Dean Huang. This voice, Qi Jun and Yu Shang both heard it. They stood at the doorway, shocked, and looked up toward the staircase. Chapter 829. After 321, Miss Bai arrives under 3. Dean Huang was indeed a big shot in the physics department. His mentor was an academician of the Ma Institute, and a bunch of professors in the department were his loyal fans. Qi Jun and Yu Shang couldn't help but turn their heads. Dean Huang, with his hands clasped behind his back, was slowly walking downstairs. Next to him was a girl walking side by side with him. The girl was dressed in a plain white blouse with a mandarin collar and a long white skirt, without any other decorations on her, extremely simple. Her dark hair was half-tied behind her head, and she slightly tilted her head while speaking with Dean Huang. Qi Jun and Yu Sheng recognized her. It was Bai Lian. A teaching assistant followed behind the two. Ning Xiao's paper review should be over by now. Dean Huang's hand behind his back carried a sealed envelope, revealing his good mood. Their project is also about to officially kick off. The two were discussing matters. It was evident that Dean Huang was in a good mood. Qi Jun and Yu Shang kept silent, watching as they left. Not until Dean Huang and Bai Lian had left did Yu Shang snap back to reality. That was Bai Lian, right? Last summer, Yu Shang had seen Bai Lian, but at the time, she was just a randomly chosen team member by Su Wenyao, so he didn't pay much attention. It was not until Su Wenyao's team won the first prize and Bai Lian frequently appeared on the school's forum that he took a solid interest in her. Su Wenyao's sister, someone nearby, also recognized Bai Lian. She actually knows Dean Huang? A once-in-century genius from the Tongfeng class, someone shrugged. It's quite normal for Dean Huang to know her. I seem to recall Dean Huang intends to take on a student this year. At this statement, everyone fell silent. They didn't have Dean Huang's personal email, only the teaching assistant's phone number. Su Wenyao had been first in both written and interview rounds, and his sister was Bai Lian. The likelihood seemed pretty high. Qi Jun pursed his lips without uttering a word and headed for the lecture theater, followed by Yu Shang. They sat towards the back, and shortly after, Su Wenyao and Chen Hong arrived. Wenyao, congratulations. The class monitor stood up upon seeing Su Wenyao, congratulating him, and patted Chen Hong on the shoulder. And you sneaky guy, weren't you the one who said you weren't going to pursue postgraduate studies? Now you've passed both the written and interview rounds. Have you found an advisor? I have, it's Professor Lin, Chen Hong replied with a grin. Professor Lin? Most of the class exclaimed in surprise. Even Qi Jun's heart skipped a beat, and he looked up in disbelief. This year, aside from Dean Huang, the most popular mentor was Professor Lin, a direct-line professor at Jiang University who had participated in several key projects and published numerous papers. Almost everyone had sent emails to Professor Lin, Qi Jun included. All thanks to old Su, who made me get up and read every day. Chen Hong was thrilled, as if walking on a cloud, feeling light as air. And Senior Hewen helped me with the questions I couldn't figure out. Oh yeah, Professor Lin said he really liked my mathematical modeling project, that's why he chose me. As Chen Hong spoke, he couldn't help but feel amazed. The previous year, he had been one of those who slacked off, never considering postgraduate studies. Let alone imagining he'd be part of Professor Lin's team. He would have never expected such a big change in less than a year. Old Su, is your sister free yet? Chen Hong put his arm around Su Wenyo's shoulder. I must treat you to a meal. They were talking. Qi Jun and Yu Sheng found it hard to keep listening. The two of them packed up their books and listlessly left through the lecture hall's doors. Without needing Chen Hong's explanation, they both knew the reason why Chen Hong had been chosen by Professor Lin all traced back to that math model. Who would have thought Chen Hong would successfully make it? Yu Sheng said bitterly. Initially, Su Wenyao had invited him too, but he had declined. A year had passed, and Chen Hong, who was far beneath him in grades, had made it through, transforming into one of Professor Lin's team members. When last year's math modeling scores were released, Qi Jun had felt uncomfortable, but it was nothing compared to the rawness of his feelings now. He was originally part of Su Wenyo's team. If he hadn't suddenly left the team back then, she had met with Dean Huang. Bai Lian waited on the side of the road for a while until Su Wenyao came out and exchanged a few words with the two of them. Only then did she take a cab to the Mu family. The Mu family had already had a meeting the previous night. Early this morning, Mu Yining and Mu Zhendong had both not gone to work, opting for another meeting instead. Each stuck to their own views. Ran Wanxian must be removed from her position. Mu Yining had already inquired from Ji Xiaojun and found out that Ran Wanxian was deliberately swapped by her biological father, and she herself had known since last year. Xueqi is the true Mu family descendant. Mu Zhendong stood up, looking indifferently at Mu Yining. Impossible, I do not agree. Mu Yining, I think you're taking this too personally. Let's not worry about the Mu family affairs for now. I have other matters to attend to at the company. Once again, the meeting ended on a discordant note. After Mu Zhendong left, an elder of the clan spoke to Mu Yining in a low voice worriedly. Yining, let this matter be for now, he's currently in possession of a potentially rare metal. Mu Yining had a headache. She shook her head and was about to speak. Outside, Manager Wang stepped in. Miss Bai is here. Chapter 830. 323 Signature Wang Yufeng Bai Lian? Mu Yining stood up, very surprised. Normally, without Ji Heng say so, Bai Lian would not come to the Mu family. Have the butler take her to the tea room, it'll be right there, Mu Yining said as she went to get her coat. By her side, the elder also stood up upon hearing Bai Lian's name. I'll come with you. Yining, I think what Zhendong thinks is not wrong. We should prioritize the overall situation. Dong Xiaobai had been silent the whole time until Mu Yining was about to leave. Then he followed her. Have you thought this through clearly? It's not a bad thing for the Mu family. You all have been waiting for this opportunity for too long. Now that Mu Zhendong has secured the cooperation rights with the Gao family, he has already set off for their place. He can totally sideline you. In fact, Mu Zhendong had already started making moves. This was the key project of the country this year, but now Mu Zhendong was managing most of it, and all the documents went through him. Mu Zhendong never brought Mu Yining along for several dinners with those leaders and people Ran Wanxian had. Not to mention Mu Yining, even a person with little business acumen like Dong Xiaobai understood once he found out. If Mu Yining did not assert her stance now, with such a crucial heavy industry project for the Mu family, should Mu Zhendong really take control, Mu Yining would indeed be marginalized. What do you want me to do? Go tell Alien and Xueqi to let Ran Wanxian off? Mu Yining stood still, looking at Dong Xiaobai with an indifferent expression. Dong Xiaobai fell silent. He was familiar with Ran Wanxian, and he felt that she might not be that kind of person, yet considering the family interests, he truly found it unnecessary to create such an ugly scene. For the family's sake, the Mu family is not so small as to not accommodate a second person. By his side, The elder did not object upon hearing this. Indeed, this was the prevailing thought among most members of the Mu family. Sacrificing one person for a greater benefit seemed extremely profitable to them. Have you visited that child in the hospital? He really was hanging by a thread. If you really let Ran Wanxian go, knowing of her complicity, do you think Xiao Jun and the others would continue to stay with the Mu family? Mu Yining asked with a sneer, turning to the elder. Every one of you thinks the Mu family is on the rise now, isn't that right? Great uncle, turn around and look at how the Mu family has fared this year. What had the Mu family relied on to get to where they are today? By her side, Assistant Wang also glanced at Dong Xiaobai and the great uncle. Dong Xiaobai, indifferent to business matters, wouldn't know. As for the great uncle, he was old and did not deal with business affairs, just some clan meetings. Assistant Wang couldn't help but shake his head. If they had really risen, they'd have forgotten how they had begged Ji Xiaojun to come back and take part. If not for Ji Xiaojun collaborating with Xuan to reconnect with the Chen family, the Mu family wouldn't even be able to contribute the capital for heavy industry participation this year. They asked Bai Lian and Xueqi to be magnanimous and to think of the big picture. But, Dong Xiaobai looked at Mu Yining, his lips quivering slightly. You will be marginalized by Mu Zhendong and the others. Then let it be marginalization. Mu Yining withdrew her gaze and walked towards her own courtyard. She wasn't afraid at all. The Mu family had originally been a burden thrust upon her by a bunch of people. In the past, with the younger generation of the Mu family wiped out, the family was like walking on thin ice. Several projects were paralyzed. Some couldn't even pay the researchers' salaries, leaving a huge burden for 26-year-old Mu Yining. She alone calmly bore it until now, managing to preserve the homestead left by their ancestors for the Mu family. The Mu family had finally stabilized. Now that the Mu family was thriving, people's hearts had changed, and Mu Yining felt tired. She didn't want to argue with Dong Xiaobai and the great uncle anymore. She directly left the attic to find Bai Lian. On this side, Mu Zhendong's car was parked outside the courtyard. As he got into the car to meet with the Gao family, he politely made a phone call to Mu Yujun. Mu Yujun asked about Ran Wangshuan's situation. Ran Wanxian had been to the Chen family's place, and now she had her own connections in Jiangjing, adept at flattering and schmoozing. She was clever, and Mu Yujun rather liked interacting with her. He inquired about Ran Wangshuan's current situation. Mu Zhendong did not dare tell Mu Yujun about Ran Wanxian being sentenced to 4 years, hastily made an excuse, and then hung up the phone. After hanging up, Mu Zhendong shook his head. What on earth are these two women thinking? Mu Zhendong couldn't understand why Bai Lian and Mu Yining insisted on being so serious about the matter. There could have been a better outcome. The person hadn't died, after all. Ran Wanxian was still useful to him, and he truly didn't want to give up this pawn. In the passenger seat, the secretary glanced at the rearview mirror and offered an idea to the boss. I remember, doesn't Miss Bai have a mother? Chapter 831. 323 Signature Wang Yufeng _2 Mu Zhendong was startled. After Ran Wangshuan's incident, he tried to contact Ji Xiaojun and Ji Hang, but neither of them paid any attention to him. Then it suddenly occurred to him that there was such a person. Ji Mulan. Bai Lian's biological mother. Unlike Ran Wanxian, Ji Mulan would come back for holidays, but not often. Mu Zhendong had greeted her mainly to get in touch with Su En. Ji Mulan was easy to read, liked to be in control, and was proud and competitive. With that in mind, he took out his cell phone and found a number. He dialed it. On the other end of the phone, Ji Mulan handed the rattle to Xueqi and listened to him slur the word, sister, taught by the old Madame Su and Su En. Sister was Xueqi's first word. During the New Year's, Bai Lian even held him for a while. Mr. Mu. She walked outside to answer the phone. Mrs. Su. Mu Zhendong's voice was smiling as he greeted Ji Mulan, then quickly shifted the topic. It's a common misunderstanding. You are her mother, you've raised her so well, your role is indispensable, she will certainly listen to your advice. Ji Mulan was startled. She wondered if Suan could have foreseen this. Holding the phone, she walked downstairs. I'm sorry, Mr. Mu, but I can't help you with this. After saying that, she hung up the phone. Sitting on the sofa, she picked up the glass of water that the auntie had poured for her. Suan had already instructed her last week not to get involved. Even if Su En hadn't reminded her, she wouldn't have been able to get involved anyway. Bai Lian had long ago blocked her out. Without Su En and Ji Hang, Bai Lian probably wouldn't even spare her a glance. Ji Mulan sat on the sofa in a daze. On this end of the phone, Mu Zhendong hadn't expected Ji Mulan to refuse as well. Well, Mu Zhendong put his cell phone back in his pocket, looked up at his secretary, and said indifferently, "This time, don't leak any information to the Su family or Mu Yining. Having the Gao family and the Feng family involved is enough." He was ready to go it alone. Mu Yining arrived at the tea room for guests where Bai Lian was lazily leaning against the window frame, with her back to the door, looking at the peony plants outside. In this season, the flowers had not bloomed yet, but the leaves had turned green. She was dressed lightly, her eyebrows and eyes serene and composed, without a hint of youthful impetuousness. Outside the tea room, the second granduncle peered at Bai Lian through the window frame. He and Dong Xiaobai had a disagreement with Mu Yining on the way here, so naturally, he didn't have any reason to enter right now. The second granduncle's turbid gaze fell upon Bai Lian with slight surprise. Last time he hadn't managed to see Bai Lian before she left. Now that he saw her, he finally understood why Mu Xiongguang, who had been reclusive for many years, made an exception to meet Bai Lian that day. This girl had the presence of a great leader. With Mu Yining standing by Bai Lian, it seemed Mu Zhendong's wariness of Bai Lian was not so hard to understand after all. "Xiaobai." The second granduncle looked at Dong Xiaobai. This time Dong Xiaobai just gave a wry smile. "Forget it, don't ask me to be the mediator anymore. The Mu family needs peace, and someone has to give in, but that person can't be Yining every time, right?" The second granduncle didn't say anything more this time, his hands behind his back. Inside the tea room, seeing Bai Lian, Mu Yining's previously irritable mood finally calmed down. "Alien, why are you here today?" Mu Yining sat down in a chair and gestured for Wang assistant to brew the tea again. Wang assistant brought over the tea set and started heating the water anew. He wasn't too familiar with these elegant customs and just haphazardly poured the water. But he was somewhat distracted, affected by Dong Xiaobai and the second granduncle's conversation. He almost scalded his hand with the boiling water. Bai Lian's peripheral vision caught sight of her casually lifting her cup lid while speaking with Mu Yining. With a slight raise of her hand, she gently propped up the Zisha teapot. "Be careful." Her long lashes lifted slightly. "Sorry." Assistant Wang quickly retracted his hand and put the teapot away. "Thank you, Miss Bai." He then refilled Bai Lian's tea. After thanking Assistant Wang, Bai Lian's slender fingers lowered the cup lid and picked up the teacup. Her other hand rested on an overturned A4 paper beside her, and she casually asked, "What do you need iridium for?" Mu Yining didn't expect Bai Lian to bring this up. It was somewhat unexpected. Having limited insider knowledge, she roughly outlined the plan for the seaside. There's a research institute being built by the sea which won't be open to the public for now. The Mu family wants to take on this project. The equipment requires a large amount of iridium. Originally, Ran Wanxian and the others were discussing an iridium partnership, but it's currently on hold. Mu Zhendong is now seeking help from the Gao family. Fearing Bai Lian might not know about iridium, she explained further, many instruments require iridium. The project is massive, so the Mu family needs to secure iridium first to have the capital to negotiate with them. Mu Yining didn't want to mention Mu Zhendong, but she was worried that keeping Bai Lian in the dark might cause her apprehension. So she mentioned only what she could. "Can you talk with them if you have it?" "But currently, Mu Zhendong is the one handling this matter," Mu Yining said with a smile. Bai Lian sipped her tea, her gaze lowered, and spoke unhurriedly with Mu Yining. "How much iridium do you roughly need?" "How much?" Mu Yining didn't know either. She had never dealt with core data, so she gave an approximate figure, about 500 kilograms. That was an enormous number. Even using a purity of 99.9%, it amounted to a sum over 1 billion yuan. Just yesterday, Bai Lian had discussed the iridium issue with Wang Yufeng. For such a large quantity of rare metal, even if Wang Yufeng wanted domestic trade, he had to go through the approval of the Dawson family. Detailed attention was required for foreign demand for domestic metals. But with Xian Kong present, the Dawson side hasn't been too stringent. Bai Lian didn't offer much raw liquid, and the amount of iridium that Wang Yufeng provided was also not much, not reaching 500 kilograms. After Bai Lian finished asking, Mu Yining remained silent. "Alien, why do you ask?" "It's nothing," Bai Lian came back to her senses, her fingertips intermittently tapping on the overturned A4 paper. "I'm calculating data." Calculating data? Mu Yining did not understand, and did not overthink it. She assumed Bai Lian was calculating data for the school. Currently, she was more concerned about Xueqi and Mu Zhendong's situation. Less than a minute later, Bai Lian's tapping ceased. She looked up and pushed the A4 paper underneath her fingertips towards Mu Yining. Take a look at this, see if you can accept it. Is this for me? Mu Yining was surprised to see Bai Lian pushing the A4 paper towards her. She didn't know what it was. She flipped it over with some surprise and saw a document in 2 languages at the top, with only 4 characters. Dawson Group. Even Mu Yining, usually unconcerned with such matters, knew about the globally influential Dawson family. Not to mention, Mu Zhendong had discussed more than once with Ran Wanxian before, and they had been in contact with members of the Dawson family's management through Miss Yu. Dawson Group. This is... Mu Yining's heart suddenly started pounding rapidly. She quickly flipped to the back, and sure enough, the next second, she saw iridium. Her hand holding the document started to feel unsteady, fingertips turning white. Tremblingly, she turned to the last page. On the last page on the side of Party A, there were 3 bold and vigorous characters signed in black ink. Wang Yufeng. Behind it was a red seal of the Dawson family. Chapter 832, 324 Their era. The iridium they provided wasn't enough. Bai Lian picked up her teacup again, her gaze lowered as she sipped thoughtfully. But there's someone else who still has some. The original liquid that Xian Kong could supply to foreign countries was limited, and Wang Yufeng could not bring out much either. However, the mine Wang Yufeng transferred to Mao Kuan was an iridium mine. This was also why Mao Kuan could provide an unlimited amount of iridium. Mu Yining finally snapped back to reality, realizing what she held in her hands. When she looked up, her face could hardly hide her shock, and she was speechless for a long time. Rare metals and rare earths are scarce both domestically and internationally, held by just a few people, while many others have money but don't know how to find channels, making it difficult to find a trusted middleman. Therefore, knowing that Ran Wanxian and the Gao family were connected to middlemen in this sector, the Mu family held Ran Wanxian in such high regard, and Mu Zhendong dared to have thoughts of competing with Mu Yining. Bai Lian recited a number. This is Mao Kun's mobile number. Wang's assistant failed to remember this number because he hesitated for a moment. Miss Bai, he gently set down the teapot, admitting he didn't have the sharp memory of Ning Xiao and others, and took out his phone. Could you repeat that? I failed to remember. How many of Mu family's research institutes are now disabled? Bai Lian waited until Mao Kuan had taken note, then looked at Mu Yining. 3 plus 2. 2 can still operate minimally. The other 3 are in paralysis, Mu Yining answered subconsciously, as this was their key focus for the year. Bai Lian nodded. He can supply small quantities of other rare metals, but it will take some time. Speaking this, she paused briefly, then looked at Mu Yining. How long will it take for you to take control of the Mu family? Less than 2 years. Her heart was pounding fast. After saying these things, Bai Lian took her phone and got up, heading back to Shanghai apartment. Mu Yining and Wang's assistants saw her out. Before getting into the car, Bai Lian stopped and turned, looking at Mu Yining with a sudden smile. If you cannot decide on matters about the Mu family or have any doubts, ask Xueqi. I await your good news. She got into the car. Sitting in the back seat, she sent a WeChat message to Xueqi. She wasn't truly Bai Lian, indifferent toward everything about the Mu family. None of it belonged to her. But Xueqi was real. Why shouldn't he want something from the Mu family? Xueqi would probably appreciate this gift. It wasn't until Bai Lian's car drove away that Mu Yining and the assistant exchanged glances. Bathed in dizzying sunlight, Mu Yining clutched the document in her hand and decided on the spot. One more trip to the hospital. Bai Lian was not one to speak idly, and this time, Mu Yining went to find Xueqi with an answer. In the hospital, Ji Heng went to get water, leaving Xueqi alone in the room. Having developed Xian Kong to its present state, Xueqi had a strong talent of his own. He grasped the situation of the Mu family and Mu Yining in just a few words. He raised his bed, elegantly skewering a slice of apple with a toothpick. Mu Yining sat in front of the hospital bed, silently watching him eat the apple. Wang's assistant stood behind her, looking at Xueqi, not daring to breathe loudly. 2 minutes later, Xueqi raised his hand. President Mu, if you have any questions in the future, feel free to discuss them with me. I will help as much as I can. At night, Bai Lian was dining at 103. It was Sunday today, And Yang Lin had also returned. She brought a report for Bai Lian. His neurotransmitters are damaged. After several months, Yang Lin finally provided Bai Lian with a document. It's a biological treatment that incorporates some chemical elements based on a predecessor's technology. The teacher said there's a great possibility. She had a strong background in biology. She had set aside the tasks given by Xueqi these past months to prepare this report. It just hadn't been used in clinical research yet. Bai Lian took it, flipping through the document. Damn! Tang Ming looked at the report in Bai Lian's hands, branded with Zhang University's emblem, and was dazed. Yang Lin, you must be about to publish a paper, right? Yang Lin wasn't much for talking to others. She merely glanced at Tang Ming and nodded. Continued eating. In fact, her paper had already been submitted by Xueqi, and like Ning Xiao, she was just waiting for it to be published. Tang Ming was somewhat reluctant to meet Zhang Fulai's eyes across the table. Bai Lian was already the second author in He Wen's paper last year, while Ning Xiao and Yang Lin both had their own research, leaving him feeling unsuccessful. He lowered his head and ate quietly. Zhang Fulai gave Tang Ming a faint glance but said nothing. Next to them, Director Chen, drinking with Ji Hang, unconsciously twitched his lips at the conversation among the youngsters. After dinner, Bai Lian returned to the study. Zhang Fulai was discussing recent experiment schedules with her. As Bai Lian listened, she pulled open a drawer and took out the meeting gift that Mu Xiangguang had given her. Chapter 833. 324 Their Era _2 Black Square Seal. Even if Ji Hang and the others didn't mention it, Bai Lian knew the meaning of this square seal. Bai Lian took out her phone and first called Su En. Su En hadn't come to Shanghai apartment today. He was scared off after hearing the old lady say that someone could call Ji Mulan and rushed home. Alien you speak. Knowing that Ji Mulan hadn't messed things up this time, Su En finally breathed a sigh of relief. From Xueqi, Bai Lian knew about the Mu family's previous business model. The only problem was that it required a large amount of funding up front. There's a business opportunity, do you want in? Others didn't know, but he was well aware of who the Xueqi Martial Arts School and Xiankong had connections with. He returned to the study and said solemnly, "You speak." She knew that Ji Heng couldn't let go of the Mu family. 103. In Ji Heng's room, his old cell phone had been fully charged. Turning it on, the phone screen displayed only a contacts list with a C and a message inbox. Then there were no other applications. It was all blank. Only the breathing light on the top right corner was lit. Ji Heng reached out to open the contacts list. There weren't many contacts, just a dozen or so, and he saw the one marked with an A at the top and clicked to call. The call connected. On the other end, Ji Shaorong's voice rang out. "Dad? Why are you contacting me with this phone? Did something happen to Wan Xian?" "No, nothing." Ji Heng's voice was calm. "What are you doing now?" "Wrapping things up," Ji Shaorong reported. Ji Heng understood. That meant there was nothing dangerous near Ji Shaorong. Make a report and come back as soon as possible. Your child with Joey is not Wan Xian, it's Xueqi. Upstairs. Zhang Xi's, with his head held high, came out of the hall of room 303 and took the elevator back to his own home. Zhang's father was in the kitchen helping Zhang's mother wash dishes, with the door open. Seeing Zhang Xi's come down from the elevator, he said, "You see, Xiaotang and the others always climb the stairs. How come it's always the elevator with you?" "I can't climb anymore," Zhang Xi's replied, holding his book and heading back to his room, waving his hand at Zhang's father. "I'm going back to study, Dad." Zhang Shi's efforts over the past 6 months were visible to everyone. He had stopped playing his favorite video games, and when home on weekends, he would study until 1 or 2 in the morning. Zhang's mother brought a bowl of fruit and milk to his room and patted his head. "Try your best, don't be too hard on yourself." "It's not enough," Zhang Shi said, flipping through a black workbook of wrong answers, shaking his head. He was working hard to catch up to Bai Lian and Yen Lu. After Zhang's mother left, Zhang Shi picked up his pen, just about to write, when he received a call. "Hey boss, when can you come out?" Zhang Shi, with his leg propped up, did his homework while saying, "Go see Brother Mao tomorrow, or go to the Xueqi Martial Arts School, let them teach you. My college entrance exam is coming, and I don't have time." This was his good brother in prison, Li Shang. Outside. Zhang's mother returned to the room, helping Zhang's father tidy up the clothes while chatting about Zhang Shi's. "If it weren't for Miss Bai, you might not have been able to see that boy when you came back. let alone see him change like this. Zhang's father was smoking on one side. Zhang Xiai's was about to take his college entrance exam, and he had come back to cheer him on but would be off on a business trip soon. Zhang's father pulled out his black cell phone from his pocket and checked the messages inside. Just as he opened it, he saw a signal from the same channel light up on the phone, clearly nearby, no more than 100 meters away. Zhang's father paused for a moment, then immediately walked outside. As he walked out the door, the signal disappeared in an instant. What's wrong? Zhang's mother stood up with the clothes, asking with confusion. Zhang's father shook his head, and with a thoughtful look he exhaled a puff of smoke. Nothing, just poor cell reception. He looked again for a while, but the signal indeed had vanished, as if that glimpse earlier was an illusion. But Zhang's father always trusted his senses, and he put the phone back in his pocket. He knew this was no illusion. At the end of April, at Jiang University, the physics and finance departments were having a joint social event, and most of the funding came from the finance department, where its students were mostly second-generation rich. This year, there were even 2 successful star siblings. With money to spend, they chose the newly opened Azure Dragon Bar in Chang'an District. Both Kong Wei and Yu Si-min were there, but the ones who attracted the most attention at the social were by Xueqi and Song Min, Song Jr. by Jr. I heard that Little Elephant Cosmetics has partnered with you? The student council president of the finance college asked, raising his glass to Song Min. Ba Shiming smiled. Song Jr. is ready to take your place. Chapter 834. 324 Their Era Underscore 3 Xiaoxiang Enterprise is an e-commerce company that has emerged in the past 2 years. While most students were still purchasing Xiaoxiang beauty products, Song Min had already managed to secure a slice of the pie. Song Min returned the toast modestly. With the recent market trends, we just happened to get in early. The folks from the physics department didn't understand these things, but listening to the members of the student union of the School of Finance referring to each other as director this and director that, they also felt it was quite prestigious. So this is your Jiang University social gathering. The class president of Beijing International Class, Kong Yifan, and his peer from Class 2, Sun Yi, had come to Jiangjing during the May Day holiday ahead of time to hang out with Song Min. They whispered, the bars here are really different from Beijing. With a wine glass in hand, Kong Yifan looked at Bai Shaoqi and Song Min with a touch of envy. Indeed, outstanding people were the center of attention everywhere. Kong Yifan and Sun Yi had already visited Jiang University during the day, checked in at famous spots, and at the gathering, they had added quite a few outstanding students from the finance and physics departments on WeChat. For those 2 students who had made it to Jiang University, Kong Yifan and Sun Yi felt genuine envy. After all, this is the Qinglong Bar. Many of the people here are not ordinary folks, almost on the same level as Xijing, Song Min spoke up. While they were talking, outside the bar, 2 figures walked in. Kong Yifan recognized the 2, pausing with his glass in hand. Bai Lian, Wen Jixia? Most people in the international class had nearly forgotten Wen Zixia's name, but the mention of Bai Lian seemed to flick a switch, even making Sun Yi instinctively look up towards the entrance. Ever since learning that Bai Lian topped the national college entrance examinations, the international class and the humanities class 2 chat groups had been silent for a week. Later, after Bai Lian arrived at Jiang University and with her feats in archery and calligraphy, she had explosive popularity. Even during that time, Kong Yifan and Sun Yi had come across many videos of Bai Lian. Song Min and Bai Shaoqi couldn't help but turn their heads to look at the entrance, their attention not on Wen Jixia, but focusing on Bai Lian. Was she here for the social gathering too? Not just Song Min and Bai Shaoqi noticed Bai Lian, but so did the students from the physics department. Junior sister, from a nearby booth, Yi Jingxian and Yu Si-min spotted Bai Lian and were quite surprised. You're here too. Ba Shiming and a group from the physics department stood up all at once, causing quite a stir. This commotion startled Kong Yifan and the others at the table. Seniors, President, I'm here with a friend. Bai Lian greeted Ba Shiming and the others one by one. It was Wen Jixia who had asked to meet here. Knowing that these were elite students from Jiang University, Wen Jixia also greeted them amicably. Song Min and Bai Shaoqi and the others regained their composure, with Bai Shaoqi responding quickly. Let's join forces. Today, young Master Song is picking up the tab. When she mentioned young Master Song, she spoke with a teasing note. Unwittingly, she showcased her cordial relationship with Song Min and their current power. Wen Jixia didn't know what the current situation between Bai Lian and Song Min was like, considering that Bai Lian used to be excessively tolerant of Song Min. She turned slightly, looking at Bai Lian. The noise here naturally attracted the attention of the manager. The manager, transferred from Qinglong Bar in Yunshao district, recognized Bai Lian. Managers of Qinglong Bar often had tough experiences. With a strong presence, many dispersed as he passed through the bar that was filled with students. A group of students from Jiang University had never seen such a display. Even Ba Shiming and Yi Jingxian involuntarily took a couple of steps aside, making way. Who's that? Kong Yifan and Sun Yi also stepped aside, not daring to look at the manager, and asked Song Min in a low voice. Song Min explained softly, "He's the manager from Azure Dragon Bar in Chang'an District, the boss of this area. I've only heard of him." The last time he saw this manager was when he threw a troublemaking rich second generation out of the bar during the grand opening. The next day, the rich kid was sent abroad by his family, who apologized to Qinglong Bar overnight. Song Min was well aware that Qinglong Bar was no simple establishment. Seeing Bai Lian still standing in the middle of the way, Yi Jingxian, a regular visitor to the bar, led her aside. "Junior sister, let's make way first." Bai Lian glanced at Yi Jingxian and then stepped aside with her. The manager walked straight up, stopped in front of Bai Lian, and greeted her, "Miss Bai." "Manager Mi," Bai Lian replied. "Are these your classmates?" Manager Mi looked towards the people beside Bai Lian, including Yu Si-min and Ba Shiming. Bai Lian patted Yu Si-min on the shoulder. "Yu Si-min is my roommate, and these two are my senior sister and brother." After exchanging a few words, Bai Lian led Wen Jixia upstairs. They had a private room on the upper floor. Manager Mi watched the two go upstairs, then gave Yu Si-min a VIP card with a smile. "Miss Yu, use this card when you come here in the future. We'll prepare a private room on the 3rd floor just for you." Yu Si-min took the VIP card trembling. "Thank you." After Manager Mi left, both schools groups from Jiang University still stood in place, not daring to speak. Upstairs, in the private room, Wen Jixia was talking to Bai Lian about the hairdryer. The new product's official launch is tomorrow, with Ms. Liu as the spokesperson. This was an endeavor Bai Lian had initiated, so she naturally gave Bai Lian a heads up. "Pretty good," Bai Lian nodded. "This hairdryer," Wen Jixia let out a deep breath, "ruptures the existing market for hairdryers, and it's in collaboration with the space agency. We can't take it for granted." Even when Jixia could see the potential and knew the significance of this collaboration with the space agency and the blueprint of the hairdryer. This was Wen family's opportunity to disrupt the market and step onto the global stage. Bai Lian poured a glass of wine for both herself and Wen Jixia. "Let's not talk about that for now. I have a proposal, do you want to hear it?" Wen Jixia sat up straight, surprised. "Tell me." Half an hour later, Wen Jixia, sitting across from her, fell silent. While waiting for her reaction, Bai Lian took out her phone and stepped outside to call Mu Yining. Mu Yining, who was busy preparing for the 3 research institutes, was surprised to receive Bai Lian's call. "Alien." "Director Mu." Bai Lian was somewhat formal this time, leaning against the wall, her eyes steady. "Do you want to see the Mu family return to its pinnacle?" Their era was dawning. Chapter 835. 325 Bai Lian never plays in low-end games. On the other end of the phone, Mu Yining's spirits lifted, and in silence, she waited for Bai Lian's next sentence. A second later, Bai Lian spoke. "Su family and private equity will both cooperate with all your actions. In the past year, Su En's net worth had skyrocketed, and a few months ago during the New Year celebrations, the Su family clan had even invited him to return for the ancestral rites." Mu Yining was obviously aware of Su En's current influence. He was now a dominant force in the Yunshao business circle. As for private equity, thanks to Zongxing's successive investments, those who had joined were all big names from the industry, forming a network so strong it was terrifying. The 50 million Mu Yining had previously invested had already returned multiple times over in profit. She was well aware that she couldn't even guess who managed it, given the fund's impressive fundraising and investing capabilities. The implication of Bai Lian's words was simple. This private fund would support all her actions with authority. Mu Yining hung up the phone. She sat in her office, lost in thought, until Assistant Wang called out to her, snapping her back to reality. She reached out to take the document handed to her by the assistant. 3 research institutes haven't renewed their leases since the beginning of the year, Assistant Wang spoke up, briefing Mu Yining. Beyond funding, there are also honorary professors involved, for which you'll need to talk to Old Master Mu. Mu Yining flipped through the document and stood up. All right, let's go see Mr. Mao first. Most companies outside had honorary professors hanging around, let alone their research institutes. Even Suen's private equity firm hired quants and fund managers from prestigious universities and colleges. But of course, they weren't the ones who actually ran the operations. Their names were just there for show, making the team appear high-end to outsiders. Some of the real operators were merely graduates from technical schools. In the past, the Mu family's research institutes were involved in the research of detectors and drones. When Mu Qiong was around, the Mu family was extremely glorious. After their death, those research institutes involved in heavy industry were dealt a huge blow. All projects came to a complete halt, and now only the medical research institutes were struggling to survive and function. At the bar, when Jixia finally sorted out the details of the cooperation Bai Lian had discussed with her. After downing a cocktail with a gradient blue hue and ice, she calmed down. I'll go back and talk to my second uncle. The last time, she had brought out a mechanical diagram in collaboration with the Space Bureau. This time it was a direct partnership with an undisclosed heavy industry endeavor. When Jixia had already experienced Bai Lian's outrageousness during this period, but she hadn't expected it to be to this extent. Compared to these, helping her secure Yen Lu's endorsement seemed trivial. Bai Lian left the bar with Wen Jixia. The Wen family butler and Xiao Hen were waiting for her downstairs. Miss Bai, should I take you home? The butler asked, noticing Ming Dongheng's car wasn't outside. No need, Bai Lian glanced in the direction of the student union's dinner. You can go ahead. Once the Wen family had left, Ba Shiming's entourage went to ask Yi Jingxian and Yu Simin to invite Bai Lian over. Due to the school's restrictions, the online discussions about Bai Lian had lessened, but in the physics department, Bai Lian and Ning Xiao's group of freshmen were widely known, with Bai Lian's reputation in physics nearly matching that of He Wen. When Ba Shiming, Yi Jingxian, and Yu Simin approached, they asked Bai Lian if she wanted to join them. Bai Lian shook her head. Dressed in a simple and neat outfit, she looked immaculately clean. The bar's dim lighting and the colorful lights fitted in the curved lamp above her shone down, casting an especially cold and remote aura around her. She exuded an air of solitary beauty. Several people who wanted to approach her were deterred by her demeanor and didn't dare to come close. I need to get back early, an uncle is coming home tonight, Bai Lian said as she was about to leave. Then, as if she remembered something, she took out a card from her pocket and handed it to Yu Simin. Take good care of this. What's this? Yu Simin took a perforated gold card. In the dim light, she couldn't see it clearly. Seeing Bai Lian heading out the main door, the three escorted her out. They watched as Bai Lian went to the bus station on the next street. It was close to University Town, an area with many students and convenient transportation. The three returned to their seating area. Now with alcohol fueling their conversations, it was the prime time for boasting and chatter. Yi Jingxian suddenly remembered something and asked Yu Simin, Simin, is that another VIP card the junior gave you? Just now, the bar manager had given Yu Simin a VIP card. Hearing this, Ba Shiming also looked over. I don't know. Yu Simin turned on her phone's flashlight and shone it on the gold perforated card to read the words. It was a business card. He Ji Wei. Shenkong Pharmacy. Below was He Ji Wei's contact information. Yu Simin and Kong Wei had recently been competing for appointments released by Shenkong Pharmacy, and she recognized immediately that this was the VIP card of the head doctor. Chapter 836. 325 Bai Lian never plays in low-end games. _2 Yu Simin suddenly became alert, and she sobered up from the alcohol. She remembered that she had mentioned this matter to Kong Wei in the dorm. Yi Jingxian also recognized the item. Damn, junior sister, she even gave you this? Quick, let me see. I can see their documentaries online every day, but I've never seen the legendary gold card. Members of the Physics Institute Student Council scrambled to have a look. On the other side, a few people from Beijing sat together. Kong Yifan tilted his head towards where Yi Jingxian was and faintly heard something about Sun Kong. That's Sun Kang's internal gold card? It allows you to see Hen Ji Wei for checkups at any time? She gave it to someone else too? Bai Xueqi and Song Min exchanged glances without saying a word. At the beginning of the semester, junior sister Bai casually gave out 2 signed photos of Yen Lu. A staff member from the Physics Institute Student Council answered them. Junior sister Bai knows a lot of people. No answer was needed for Song Min to guess. It was only too clear from the manager me they met that evening. He looked down at his phone and felt puzzled in his moment of distraction. In just 1 year, how could Bai Lian, who was once so unnoticeable in Beijing, have changed so much? On his phone, a banner notification popped up. It was a notification from the Reserve Camp app. This year, both Song Min and Bai Xueqi had reached their limits. The app was crowded with geniuses, and most of the question bank was beyond their skills. A place where one was stuck at over 10,000, while the other had just barely made it into the top 10,000. As soon as Song Min saw the message, he hurriedly opened it to take a look. Next to him, Kong Yifan glimpsed at his screen and was startled. Damn, he has over 27 million points? The appearance of such a powerful player on the app had caught everyone's attention, and some had even opened betting pools on whether this person could surpass Jiang Shijue. Within less than half a year, not only had this individual surpassed Jiang Shijue, but he had also achieved such a high score. Kong Yifan stared at the displayed figures. NO2. By Gen 270458899 Shanghai apartment. Ji Xiaorong had already returned and went to 103 with Ran Zhouwei. When Bai Lian came back, there were only Ji Hang and the other two in 103. The others had gone upstairs. Ji Xiaorong sat on the sofa, elbows on his knees, head buried, while Ran Zhouwei also sat beside him, not uttering a word, her eyes very red. Ji Heng sat at the dining table, silently smoking. Bai Lian entered the room. Both of them couldn't help but look up and stand to face Bai Lian. Did you go to the hospital? Bai Lian calmly took a seat and crouched by the coffee table, setting up Jiang He's small chessboard. She was asking Ji Xiaorong. I had a look from outside, Ji Xiaorong recalled the scene, his face full of bitterness. I think he recognized me too. Because he had been away from home for a long time, his relationship with Ran Wanxian wasn't good. Ran Wanxian never thought highly of the Ji family, was not close to them, and despite Ji Heng replacing a lot of furniture to accommodate her, he still couldn't win her favor. Ji Xiaorong had always thought it was because Ran Qian had spoiled Ran Wanxian too much. But now he knew. Turns out, even with a change of identity, his child would still be this close to the Ji family. Alien, Ji Xiaorong stood up and along with Ran Zhouwei, gave a deep bow to Bai Lian. Thank you, thank you. Without Bai Lian, Ji Xiaorong probably would have never found out that Xueqi was his child. Bai Lian accepted their gratitude. She casually separated the white and black chess pieces. Xueqi is tender-hearted, and it's not like you purposefully abandoned him. Spend more time with him, everything will get better. Hearing this, Ran Zhouwei's eyes widened, her trembling fingers hanging at her sides. Thank you. Ran Zhouwei couldn't utter another word. There's another thing. Bai Lian had returned mainly to discuss Ji Xiaorong's nerve damage issue with him. Tomorrow, find some time to visit Jiang University's Biological Research Center and look for Yang Lin. I'll give you her phone number. Upstairs. 303. Yen Lu had also returned today and was playing chess with Pu Xiaohan. Having been on the set, Yen Lu improved in chess and could now hold her own against Pu Xiaohan. Su Nanjing was leaning against the table, arms crossed, watching Jiang He emotionlessly solve middle school math Olympiad problems. The study room's door was ajar, faintly carrying the sounds of Jiang Fulai and Ning Xiao discussing the massive project of seawater desalination. Seeing Bai Lian, Su Nanjing stood up, his spirit lifted. Alien, what have you been busy with lately? The Little Grape Private Fund. Outsiders thought it was a fund established by Su En. But no one knew the inside story better than Su Nanjing. The Jiang family had invested. Jiang Shijue personally set the big directions, and Su Nanjing himself had also invested in a few small targets. Chapter 837. 325 Bai Lian never plays in low-end games. _3 Recently, I've heard some investors mention the Mu family. It's about the Mu family, Bai Lian said as she walked over to Yen Lu and watched her play chess. Although Yen Lu spent her spare time studying Connect 5, becoming an undefeated champion in the entertainment industry, the moniker, Connect 5 Assassin, had become synonymous with her within the circle. But there's still a difference between people. Yen Lu was invincible in the entertainment industry. But in room 303, she couldn't even defeat a grade schooler. She looked up, seeking help from Bai Lian. The Mu family? Su Nanjing naturally knew about the Mu family. While watching the two girls play chess, he continued to ask, what are you planning to do? After the incident with that generation, they'd been in decline for 20 years. Bai Lian bent down, reached out to pick up a white piece from beside Yen Lu, and made her move without any intention of hiding her plans from Su Nanjing. She said in a calm and unhurried tone, "They're reopening the research institute." That statement was like an earth-shaking tidal wave in Su Nanjing's heart. Bai Lian moved 3 steps with the white pieces, and the black pieces were defeated. Finding victory in a game at last, Yen Lu put down the chessboard and discussed her recent schedule with Bai Lian and Pu Xiaohan. "The endorsement will be released tomorrow morning at 8, Yen Lu said. Her finalized photos had already been taken, and Sister Xian was contacting the PR department. "Oh right, Sister Xian asked you guys, did you get the patent?" "Jixia just got it last night." As the two chatted, only Pu Xiaohan felt puzzled. What kind of endorsement was this? And there was a patent involved. The next day, at 8 in the morning, Yen Lu's official Weibo account posted a message. "VN Lu at Space Agency at One Family First Project Team. Image." Yen Lu wasn't very active on social media usually, so early in the morning, when fans saw that Yen Lu had made a post, they flocked to be the first to comment. After securing their spot, they went on to look at the content of Yen Lu's post. After reading it, the fans fell silent. "Hold on, I must have seen it wrong. Let me refresh Weibo. Wasn't my sister Lu endorsing just a regular hairdryer? What's going on?" "That seems to be correct," the Space Agency official account responded. "It's indeed their work, everyone go check the official Weibo, there's even a patent diagram." Following the mention, they saw the post from the Space Agency's official Weibo account. Yen Lu's fans. Yen Lu's fans were shocked early in the morning. As soon as the post was up, it quickly soared to the top of the Weibo hot search list. Yen Lu's influence was, of course, immeasurable, but this time it wasn't just about her popularity, it was even more significant that she also represented the endorsement of the Space Agency. In the entertainment circle, fashion resources also represent one's status. Yen Lu was popular, but she didn't have many endorsements, only the health brand and One Family, plus the Xueqi culture and tourism endorsement. Some mocked Yen Lu for not having any high-end luxury endorsements. But now, Yen Lu's side could finally breathe a sigh of relief. A luxury endorsement with an official seal of approval? To secure these endorsements, one had to have a clean background. If someone had any hint of scandal, issues with character, or unclear origins, officials would not approve. Now that Yen Lu had received the endorsement, it was evident that her background check presented no problems. The moment Yen Lu secured her endorsements, all the previously speculative negative stories about her on the internet were deleted by the paparazzi, as clean as wiped. Yen Lu at this point was more than just popular. Her standing in the circle was starting to show. While she was on the rise, Lu Su, on the other hand, was losing several endorsements. His soy milk maker got overshadowed by the hairdryer, leading to the One Family focusing most of their energy on the new product, and the soy milk maker got discontinued. Lu Su. Didn't you say you had inside information? Lu Su's agent looked at him with trembling fingers. Then how did you not know about Wenxixia's collaboration with the Space Agency? Initially, when Wenxixia's collaboration with Yen Lu was revealed, Lu Su's side was taken aback. They hadn't expected Wenxixia to know Yen Lu. Fortunately, at that time, Wenxixia didn't make an issue out of it, but they did regret not building a good relationship with Wenxixia. The moment this endorsement was announced, Lu Su and his agent were completely on edge. This endorsement was originally Wenxixia's approach to him first. Such a good opportunity for collaboration. As soon as the One Family hairdryer hit the market, its stock price rose 12% that day and was still climbing steadily. Anyone with a bit of foresight could see that the One Family was destined to become a domestic electronics giant. Even Su Jueling had heard about it. "Zhongjing has been really lively these days," he remarked in the study while chatting with grandfather Su. "Jixia really played her cards well on this one." Su Nanking was sitting below the two men, pondering the issue Bai Lian had mentioned the night before. He listened absently. Only when the old man asked, did he look up. "Grandfather, sorry, I was thinking about the Mu family matter." "The Mu family?" Grandfather Su was surprised. Su Nanjing set down his teacup. "Grandfather, I want to collaborate with Mu Yining." Beside him, Su Jueming naturally knew about Su Jueling's acquaintance with Wen Jixia. He also learned today that the kid who came to the Su family the other day had quietly released big news. Upon hearing Su Nanjing's words, he looked up as if he had caught a handle. "The Mu family?" Su Nanjing glanced at Su Jueming and smiled. Bai Lian, from the very beginning, never played at the low end of the game. Chapter 838. 226. Bai Lian's eldest senior brother Mr. Su and Su Jueming didn't pay much attention. The brief chat ended. Su Jueling and Su Nanjing came out, and he understood Su Nanjing. Su Sanshao being able to become young Master Zhang's brother and make a name for himself in Jiangjing wasn't just because he was the third young master of the Su family. What about the Mu family? Su Jueling, with his hands clasped behind his back, asked as he turned his head. Re-establishing the institute required investment, manpower, and resources, all indispensable. The Mu family. Su Nanjing walked across the gallery bridge, looking down at the stream below. Dad, I plan to have Xiao Bingguan cooperate with them. The Xiao family? Su Jueling was surprised. The Xiao family was the best weapon managed by Su Nanjing. They didn't even listen to the elder's words and were directly under Su Nanjing's management. You think so highly of the Mu family. It's not just about thinking highly, Su Nanjing shook his head. The situation in Jiangjing is about to change. A hand was raised, and someone handed him a box of fish food. Su Nanjing slowly sprinkled a handful of fish food. The arowana came over leisurely, paying little heed to his offering. Bai Lian. Oh, that's a person taken under the wing of Academician Ma. Look at Academician Ma's students. The first one reached a level of honor in his 40s that Academician Ma felt proud of, now leading the team in national project research and serving as the vice director of the General Institute. The second one, Huang Yushua, although he is just the dean of the physics college at Zhang University, that's only because of his young age. Those who know a bit understand that once Shan Yu retires, he will be the president of Zhang University. As the last student of Academician Ma and also being groomed as a successor, Bai Lian was protected by these two. She wants to revitalize the research institute of the Mu family. Need the result be stated? The Mu family's moves, except for a few people in Jiangjing, went unnoticed. Most were overshadowed by the attention drawn to the one family. In recent years, talking about the most successful enterprise, undoubtedly, it was Xiankong, which broke through from a third-tier city to Jiangjing. From healing plasters for bruises to today's widely promoted acupuncture, every item was a masterpiece. Now, the one family was also taking a similar path to that of Xiankong. By a strange coincidence, both were endorsed by Yan Lu. The one family. Uncle One of the one family sat at the front, organizing documents. The R&D department continues to seek the most suitable materials for the current trends. All departments and the warehouse should note that this traffic explosion is only short-term. We must take advantage of this traffic to expand influence and achieve long-term goals. Okay. Meeting adjourned. In the office, department managers put away their laptops and left in an orderly fashion. Before leaving, they all greeted Wen Jixia one by one. Miss Wen Jixia, the youngest in the conference room today, had been taught about internal family affairs by the butler of the one family since her time in Beijing. When she felt too oppressed, she would go racing. Now, she could also carry the banner. Uncle Wen stood behind, watching Wen Jixia chat effortlessly with various shareholders and managers, his eyes filled with relief. Such Wen Jixia, even compared to Lu Yuzhang, didn't fall short at all. Wen Jixia and Uncle Wen exited the conference room, and not far away was Wen Jiwei, whose project had been halted and was now assigned to a group department. She did not have the credentials to enter the conference room. Her gaze followed Wen Jixia until her phone in her pocket rang, and then she reached out to answer it. It was her cousin Lai Chen. Today is young Master Ming's birthday, and they asked me if your cousin could come? In the past, Lai Chen would call Wen Jixia by her name. In these social gatherings, no one used to call Wen Jixia. After all, Wen Jixia had been away from Jiangjing for many years and had no social friends, unable to blend in. Wen Jiwei never thought of bringing Wen Jixia into such social circles. But neither she nor Lai Chen could have expected that in just half a year, so much would change. If the engagement last time changed people's views on Wen Jixia, now this move by Wen Jixia directly earned her recognition in the circle. Now, it wasn't about Wen Jixia fitting into the circle, but rather the circle needing Wen Jixia. I'll try to ask. Wen Jiwei watched as Wen Jixia entered the elevator, then finally let out a long sigh of relief. The one family never believed in prioritizing males over females. The capable one should take precedence. She knew that from now on, the one family would focus all their efforts on Wen Jixia. Ji Xiaorong this time came back and wasn't planning another business trip soon. He and Ran Zhouwei together went to the hospital every day. Ji Xiaorong was quiet, whereas Ran Zhouwei could exchange a few words with Xueqi. Xueqi still needed a few days to recover. Mu Yining came to visit Xueqi, planning to discuss some internal matters of the Mu family with her. Chapter 839. 226 By Lian's eldest senior brother Undersir Tu Ji Xiaorong and Ran Zhouwei both left the sickroom, giving them space. Even after they left, Assistant Wang's gaze lingered on Ji Xiaorong, so this is the second young master of the Ji family. This Lord Ji Xiaorong is the most mysterious person in the Ji family, while Bai Lian could still be traced. But Ji Xiaorong was completely out of sight. Upon seeing him today, Assistant Wang felt unexpectedly that there was nothing remarkable about Xiaorong, especially his demeanor. Just another face in the crowd. If you weren't looking confidently, you could hardly notice him passing by your side. Mu Yining also found Ji Xiaorong's peculiar demeanor surprising. It was hard to believe that Bai Lian and Ji Xiaorong were from the same family. He was the complete opposite. With that thought, Mu Yining entered the sickroom. Previously, Xueqi had told Mu Yining she could come to him if she had any issues, but she hadn't taken it seriously at first. Until last night, Xueqi's proposal had startled her, and today she came directly. Downstairs, Ji Xiaorong and Ran Zhouwei sat on the edge of the hospital's flower bed. Ran Zhouwei was answering Ran Qian's call. On the phone, Ran Qian's voice sounded aged. He asked about Xueqi's condition before he began to worry about Ran Wangshuan's situation. Is there really no possibility of them dropping the charges? Ran Zhouwei pulled out a cigarette from her pocket. Dad, Wan Qian really did do wrong. She was calmer than Ran Qian, reflecting on her separation from Xueqi for so many years, bearing grudges against Zhou Jian and Ran Wanxian. Especially after Ran Wanxian knew about it, instead of coming clean, she even attempted to create an accident to make Xueqi disappear. Ran Qian did not respond over the phone, only saying, I will come back to Xiangqing tomorrow. Dad, he never came to see Xueqi, Ran Zhouwei said with a sarcastic laugh after hanging up the phone. He's been too proud all his life, unable to accept that his grandson didn't even graduate from middle school. Thus knowing there was no turning point with Ran Wangshuan's situation, he was heading straight back to Xiangqing. Even when returning to Xiangqing, he wouldn't mention his grandson to the relatives. Ran Wanxian is Ran Qian's finest creation. He probably wished Ran Wanxian were his biological granddaughter. If he wishes to change his surname in the future, let him take the Ji surname, Ran Zhouwei quietly said to Ji Xiaorong. Her resentment towards Zhou Jian was severe. I always thought of him as our family's lifesaver, but it turns out he was the cruelest one. Ji Xiaorong hugged Ran Zhouwei, patting her back, comforting silently. Fortunately, it was not too late. The situation had not reached the point of no return. Su Nanjing called Bai Lian, who was at the experiment center of the physics building at Zhang University. It was somewhat unexpected, but he drove there nonetheless. In May, the weather was not too cold. He drove his favorite red convertible. Zhang had no shortage of luxury cars, but his license plate was too conspicuous. All along the way, he turned many heads. He touched his nose, parked his car at a designated spot, and walked to the laboratory based on the address given by Bai Lian. Inside the laboratory, Ning Xiao was having a mini-meeting with Hu Yu, Brother Liu, and a few others, discussing issues with the alloy. Having a proficient mentor differs completely from fumbling around by oneself. Ning Xiao, under the guidance of Zhou Wenqing, Dean Huang, and even academician Ma, had already published a paper and had established his research direction. In just a few short months, he had caught up with Hu Yu's progress. Bai Lian sat at her place, analyzing a piece of data. Nanjing had been away from science for too long and initially didn't recognize what it was, merely resting his hand on the nearby table, distributing the afternoon tea he had brought to everyone in the lab. Then he picked up a cup of milk tea, prepared it, and handed it to Bai Lian. Lao Shao, you remember, right? His company consistently lacks renowned professors, but the overall strength is quite impressive. Bai Lian's fingertips tapped on the keyboard, slightly lifting her head, her dark eyes lingering on his face for a moment. Afterward, she leaned back slightly in her chair, picked up the milk tea, took a sip, and smiled with raised eyebrows. Let him seek Xueqi. No need to mention more. Bai Lian understood what Nanjing meant. Okay. Nanjing thought to himself, why would the Mu family go to Xueqi? But Bai Lian didn't have time to explain to him. The phone set aside rang, and Nanjing saw the caller ID on the display. It was 3 characters. Ma Institute. He was surprised, not expecting Ma Institute to actively call someone, but then he thought this was Bai Lian and he felt it was quite normal. He turned to look at Ning Xiao and the others. Liang student. Ning student, what are you up to? Nanjing asked Liang Wuyu. Liang Wuyu pushed his glasses up and looked up. We're researching new materials, and by the way, he just passed the preliminary review for SCI, sister who is asking him about the details. Initially, Nanjing was casually listening, but he was startled by Liang Wu's words. Him? Ning Xiao? Isn't it just his freshman year? He thought Bai Lian was the only odd one out. What's up with this Ning Xiao? Meanwhile, Bai Lian walked to the corridor to answer the call. On the other end of the phone, Ma Institute coughed softly, then spoke slowly. When you have a moment, come to see me, someone has returned, and I'd like you to meet him. Sunday. Xueqi was discharged from the hospital. Many people came to pick him up, so Bai Lian did not go specially. Instead, she went to the research institute. She had already signed a confidentiality agreement. She could review 80% of the documents here, but she didn't. She just sat in Ma Institute's office waiting for him to come out. When Ma Institute returned, there was a man around 50 years old following him. He wore black-rimmed glasses, a black long-sleeved shirt, and loose jeans. His hair was unkempt, giving off a disheveled appearance. This is Bai Lian. Ma Institute put his notebook on the table, opened the computer, and introduced her to the man. You must guide her well from now on. Then he spoke to Bai Lian, his voice much gentler. Yu Xinjing, Yashuo's older academic brother, also my first student, just finished a mission and returned a few days ago. I'll be entering a project soon, and I'll be busy for a while. If you have any problems, ask Xinjing. Bai Lian was always very polite. Professor Yu, hello. Not knowing what to call him, one couldn't go wrong with Professor. Yu Xinjing had been involved in confidential research and hadn't contacted people much for 2 years. But he had heard from President Huang. The teacher had selected a successor. This made Yu Xinjing genuinely happy for Ma Institute. He looked softly at the gentle girl in front of him, silently nodding to himself. You can call me senior? Never mind, he caught himself, remembering she hadn't finished her freshman year and the teacher hadn't officially taken her as a student yet. You change how you address me whenever you want to. He and Bai Lian sat in Ma Institute's office chatting, and the more they talked, the more they hit it off. The girl in front of him, although only a freshman, already surpassed her peers in knowledge. Chapter 840, 327, Go Big or Go Home, Join Shen Kong. Ma Jiren slowly removed his reading glasses, pulled out a tissue, cast his eyes downward, and carefully wiped the lenses as he replied in a deep voice. Wait until I return this time. Bai Lian had not yet pursued her graduate studies, but she hadn't taken any detours. Her comprehension abilities were far superior to others, and she had already learned everything that was expected in her undergraduate studies. Yu Xinjing stood aside and responded. He didn't know where Ma Jiren's project was located, but he vaguely sensed that this one was extraordinary. Ma Jiren was focused on his research. His intelligence far exceeded that of ordinary people, and he found half a sentence in casual conversation excessive, which is why he had formally accepted only a few students. Previously, he had engaged in ballistics research and had established his own empire in quantum mechanics halfway through, as it was not yet developed in China. In the past, he had failed to persuade someone he desired, but now he had finally succeeded in persuading someone to his liking. The austere school was about to welcome a new junior sister, and it was finally going to be lively. Yu Xinjing smiled. Then I'll get ready to welcome our new junior sister. Ma Jiren put his glasses back on, smiled, and gave no definite response. He had already taught Bai Lian everything she needed to learn. Now, all that was left was for her to gradually absorb it. I just heard on my return that there's a traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture clinic that's very good for the eyes, Yu Xinjing said, staring at his glasses as he remembered. Shall I arrange it for you? A waste of time. Ma Jiren never liked to waste a second. The two of them talked. Outside, someone respectfully knocked on the door. Professor Ma has arrived. They were referring to Ma Jiren. Yu Xinjing didn't feel it was his place to comment on Ma Jiren's son, but he was surprised. Is Professor Ma going with you this time? Ma Jiren gestured for him to come in, then pressed his brow and sighed silently. Waiting outside for Bai Lian was Zhang Fulai. He drove his usual black car, parked right across from the research institute. The area prohibited general traffic, not to mention parking. But his license plate was registered in most places, so no security dared even glance over. Zhang Fulai stood by the passenger side, dressed in a sleek black coat, his bangs casually falling forward, responding to messages nonchalantly as the intense sunlight above him didn't manage to mask the chill emanating from him, as if frost gleamed in the sunlight. His slender fingers toyed with a bright red rose, round droplets of water rolling on its petals, reflecting a cold light. As Bai Lian approached, he opened the door and placed the rose in her palm. "Aren't you going in?" Bai Lian reached out to take it. The translucent tips of her fingers nudged a fresh droplet of water off the edge of a petal. Zhang Fulai was calm. No need. There were generally only two reasons Ma Jiren wanted to see him: to coax him into a project or to ask for a newly developed machine. Now, it seemed he made an extra effort for the sake of Bai Lian. At other times, Ma Jiren didn't care who he was. The black car drove onto Zier Avenue. Bai Lian sat in the passenger seat, the car window down, her right elbow casually resting on the windowsill, her left hand holding the flower against her cheek, a new friend request appearing on her phone from Unshaken. After she accepted the request, she turned her head and mentioned it to Zhang Fulai. Zhang Fulai rounded a corner, slightly surprised. "You met him today?" "Yes, I heard he just returned to Beijing after being away for several years." Both Ma Jiren and Zhang Fulai spoke very formally whenever they mentioned Yu Xinjing, sparking Bai Lian's curiosity about what exactly this professor Yu specialized in. He was the original first student before Ma Jiren began his quantum mechanics research. Zhang Fulai continued driving slowly, his tone relaxed. "When I'm away with Ma Jiren and you encounter any issues, you should go to him." Since last summer vacation, Zhang Fulai hadn't traveled far. This time he would be accompanying Ma Jiren, and it would take longer than before. Just the mention of these matters made his voice much heavier. His mood hadn't been very high these last few days. Ming Dongheng and Jiang He didn't dare to provoke him, and even Jiang Shijue and a few others felt it. Unless it was something important, they would not dare disturb the young master Zhang Fulai in his low spirits. Because Xueqi returned today, Shanghai apartment was quite lively. Ning Xiao and Tang Ming hadn't come back. They were with Su Jiyue and Liang Wuyu participating in a competition, still at Jiang University. Ji Xiaorong was discussing a recipe with Ji Xiaojun. Ji Heng sat with Dean Jian in the courtyard, the weather having warmed up, and the glass doors opened, shading only with an umbrella. Dean Jian, holding a lit cigarette, watched as Ji Heng did embroidery. The embroidery frame held a light-colored fabric, clearly showing a peony pattern. He had come to understand the Ji family quite well, recognizing the embroidery was for Bai Lian. "Old Ji, you've embroidered 2 pieces for Lance already. When will you embroider something for me?" Chapter 841, 327, Go Big or Go Home. Join Xian Kong. _2 Ji Heng steadily inserted a needle without looking up. "What pattern?" "Mr. Qin Jiu, I have a royal music concert next month." Director Jian puffed out his chest. "I want to wear Mr. Qin Jiu's clothes to it." Ji Heng incredulously lifted his head. Thinking that Ji Heng didn't know who Qin Jiu was, Director Jian hurriedly took out his cell phone to show him an image of Qin Jiu from the history books. "It's teacher Qin Jiu, just like this, by Xiangjin's Guzheng teacher. Do you know him?" As a native of Shangqing and well-versed in Daong's history, how could Ji Heng not know Qin Jiu? He thought Jiang He and Lance were already abnormal enough, but it turned out the seemingly most normal Director Jian was even more outrageous than those two. Of course, Ji Heng didn't know that Director Jian had dared to learn the Guzheng in the Jian family, where everyone was practicing calligraphy. What was this in comparison? "I can't embroider that," Ji Heng said expressionlessly. "Ah," Director Jian glanced at Ji Heng, thinking, "With your impressive drawing skills, you can't embroider? Who would believe that?" He compromised in his tone. "Then just the Guzheng." Ji Heng's mouth twitched. Was embroidering a Guzheng supposed to be normal? What kind of friends did Bai Lian have anyway? Jiang He with his big white cabbage was already quite a challenge for him. He was grateful countless times that Bai Lian and Zhang Fulai were very normal people. After all, Zhang Fulai hadn't asked him to embroider something like a Bai Lian. Jiang He was dressed in a white mandarin jacket, holding a small stool and sitting on the side, his head tilted as he watched Director Jian. Beside him, the flower pot housed green peonies. The peonies sent by the Ren family had bloomed into a shiny green. They swayed in the wind, graceful and elegant. Even though he didn't realize how unusual his request for the design was, Director Jen still felt somewhat guilty and looked down. That cigarette is rolled very well. Where did you buy it? He wasn't lying after all. Ji-hung rolled his own cigarettes, which indeed tasted better than any others he had smoked. He was a seasoned smoker and knew his stuff. Zhang Xiai's brought it over. Ji-hung resumed his embroidery, head down. Since Zhang Xiai's came to Zhongjing, most of Ji-hung's tobacco was brought back by him. Zhang Xiai's. Director Jen remembered there was such a person, surprised. Where did he buy it? Ji-hung wasn't very sure either. Just heard that Zhang Xiai said his friend's family wholesaled tobacco. But tobacco wasn't a private enterprise. Inside the house. In the living room, most chairs and tables had been moved to one side to facilitate Xueqi's wheelchair movement. He was sitting there, talking with Director Chen. Ren Zhou felt quite cramped in this space. Shen Qing handed her some sliced cantaloupe, whispering, Xueqi also really likes melon and grapes, you should take some over for them to eat. Having spent a lot of time with Xueqi, she always remembered what the kids liked. Ren Zhou was still quite formal with Xueqi, having cut fruits for him at the hospital where he would eat whatever was given, and this was the first time she learned about Xueqi's preferences. Thank you, Ren Zhou took the plate with a complex expression. This time, her apology was sincere. Shen Qing returned to the kitchen, pinching Ji Xian's arm. Thank you, she actually said thank you to me, Ji Xiaojun. It was Ren Zhou who said thanks, but he was the one getting pinched. Ren Zhou placed the fruits beside Xueqi, able to overhear his conversation with Director Chen. They discussed the situation in Chongqing and Zhongjing, the latest policies, and sometimes even the Mu family. Sometimes Ren Zhou couldn't quite understand, but Xueqi always responded with ease. After listening for a while, Ren Zhou was amazed at how knowledgeable the junior high school dropout Xueqi was. But every time she thought about how Xueqi hadn't even finished junior high school, Ren Zhou felt a sourness in her heart. Evening. Mu Yining had finished her work, and she remembered that today was the day Xueqi was discharged from the hospital. She had someone prepare a gift and went to Shanghai apartment to visit Xueqi. As she was leaving, Mu Zhendong and Mu Yujun had just gotten out of the car. Mu Yujun greeted Mu Yining with a serene expression. Her status in the Mu family had always been high, and she hadn't been involved in the affairs of the Ren family. Yining, I've come back to see Dad. Sister. Mu Yining knew Mu Yujun had probably heard that she had asked the old Master Mu for the contact information of those old men, and she must have been feeling unsettled about it. Mu Zhendong didn't speak. His discord with Mu Yining was now out in the open. The topic for the heavy industry purification project was to be chosen tomorrow, and for the past half-month, Mu Zhendong had been ceaselessly attending banquets, personally visiting every major and minor leader responsible for the project. After Mu Yining got into the car, Mu Yujun headed to the old master's shrine. Where is she going? Mu Zhendong wasn't sure either. His associate spoke up. She should be going to Jiang University to see Mao Xiaoqi. Mao Xiaoqi. Mu Yujun didn't know who this was. It's Ji Xiaorong's biological son, Mu Zhendong said. Upon hearing Mu Zhendong say this, Mu Yujun lost interest and began to speak about serious matters. Tomorrow is the formal documentation meeting, and leaders from several major engineering institutes will be there. Take Yining with you. Mu Zhendong appeared to be listening to Mu Yujun's words, but his downcast eyes revealed his indifference. Shanghai apartment. The number of people was actually less in the evening than during the day. Ji Xiaojun had gone back to deal with official matters, and Dean Jian had classes early the next morning as well. However, Suen had also just finished work and arrived on time. Only a few, including Zhang Fulai and Suen, were eating. Because Zhang Fulai was at the dining table, Mu Yining ate her meal with trepidation. It was Mu Yining's first time eating a home-cooked meal with Zhang Fulai at the same table, and hearing Shen Qing calling him Xiaojiang, she couldn't even hold her chopsticks steady and lost her composure. On the other hand, Suen was now much calmer, speaking in a low voice with Zhang Fulai at the dinner table, mostly about the foundation and matters concerning Su Wenyao. Bai Lian sat beside Xueqi, quietly asking about his leg. After dinner, Bai Lian, knowing that Mu Yining was quite afraid of Zhang Fulai, had him go upstairs to fetch her golden needles. After Zhang Fulai went upstairs, Ji Hung went outside to embroider. Suen and a few others also went upstairs. There weren't many people in the lobby. While Bai Lian was inquiring about Xueqi's injury, she spoke to Mu Yining, go to the meeting tomorrow. Yes, Mu Yining sat up straight, not curious about how Bai Lian knew so much. After tomorrow, the 3 research institutes will officially start work. Bai Lian listened quietly to her words. Only after Mu Yining finished talking did Bai Lian leisurely retract her leg that was pressing on Xueqi's acupoint and encouraged him to stand up and try, adding, "It's not just 3. Xueqi attempted to stand up. Mu Yining was surprised. What? Xueqi, supporting himself with one hand on the wheelchair and raising the other, looked at her and said unhurriedly, "President Mu, Xian Kong will cooperate with all your work. If you're going to play big. How can Xian Kong not join in the fun?" Chapter 842. 328 Force-style Xian Kong had its own R&D department, and behind it was the entire Xiangqing. Later, under the coordination of Dr. He and a few others, they succeeded in collaborating with Chinese Medicine University, and now many professors from the university have signed contracts with Xian Kong. Even if they didn't know which clients Xian Kong was supplying medication to, the potential behind it was obvious. From the beginning of the private investment, Suen had poured a large sum into it, and now the returns had more than doubled. Mu Yining naturally knew about Xian Kong, and during the new year, she had wanted to find a resident doctor from Xian Kong to visit her grandfather. But the butler had not been able to invite one, as resident doctors usually did not make house calls. She had more than once expressed her admiration for Xian Kang's success but had never linked Xian Kong with Bai Lian and his group. It wasn't until now, with Xueqi standing in front of her, telling her that Xian Kong would cooperate with her work. "You, Xueqi," Mu Yining had not quite come to her senses, and just instinctively reached out her hand. You. The two of them shook hands briefly before letting go. When Jiang Fulai came downstairs with Bai Lian's golden needle, Mu Yining was still holding the back of a chair with steamy tea on it, sitting on the sofa, and it took her a long time to snap back to reality. Xueqi resettled into the wheelchair. Bai Lian folded his hands in front of his chest and quietly observed his legs, thinking. Jiang Fulai handed the golden needle to Bai Lian. Pale fingertips drew out a golden needle and compared it with Xueqi's leg. The arrival of Jiang Fulai snapped Mu Yining back to attention, as she watched Bai Lian holding a golden needle, his expression serious. Was Bai Lian about to perform acupuncture on Xueqi? Mu Yining sat quietly on the sofa, feeling today that she truly did not understand Bai Lian and his group of people at all. Until Assistant Wang came to pick her up. In the car, Assistant Wang passed a document from the driver's seat. "President Mu, here is the meeting schedule for tomorrow." It was the meeting for the key seawater purification project. After obtaining a significant amount of rare resources, Mu Yining had submitted documentation to the government and was naturally included on the invitation list. She took the document but did not immediately look through it, instead lowering the car window. Assistant Wang knew there was something unusual about her attitude but dared not ask too much about his superior's business. "Report to me immediately on the recent situation of Research Institute 4, Mu Yining looked up. "And by the way, have the management personnel in charge of Research Institute 4 prepare for a meeting in 3 days. The Mu family's Research Institute 4 was a research facility involved in biomedical research and was also on the verge of closure. Assistant Wang was surprised. Research Institute 4? There were hardly any management staff left now. "Yes," Mu Yining said as she felt the cold wind, and continued, "How's the situation with Xueqi being handled?" Assistant Wang drove. "The clan uncle and the others still do not agree, but most people in the clan have already consented. Regarding the old master, you'll need to see him yourself." "No rush with my dad's side." Mu Yining leaned back. She knew that the old master Mu valued Bai Lian highly. So how could the old master possibly stop Bai Lian if he wanted Xueqi to return to the Mu family? Shanghai apartment. Once Bai Lian had inserted the last golden needle, he looked up calmly at Xueqi. "How does it feel?" Xueqi's fingers hung on either side. His entire figure was very slender. A bit numb. There was no other sensation. Bai Lian meticulously put away the remaining golden needles and sent a message to Dr. He. She still had classes to attend and couldn't perform acupuncture on Xueqi punctually every day. Dr. He was very convenient, and this time the treatment method he provided for Xueqi had similarities to the one used previously for Xueqi. Jiang Fulai watched Ji Heng embroider outside. The pattern and colors. He recognized at a glance whom they were for, and he observed very attentively. Ji Heng narrowed his eyes slightly. The embroidery needle was fine, and the thread within it was split by him into over a dozen strands. "Want to try?" Seeing Jiang Fulai looking on intently, Ji Heng lifted his hand, offering the needle and thread to Jiang Fulai. Zhang Fulai paused for a moment. He was keenly aware of his own skill in painting. Bai Lian's phone still had images of the sketches he had drawn in his notebook. They weren't bad, just rather mechanical and lacking vitality. Standing up, Ji Heng offered the embroidery needle in his hand to him. Add a few stitches to try. This pink poppy, he had outlined its form, and even if Zhang Fulai didn't embroider it well, he could undo it. With Ji Heng's encouragement, Zhang Fulai sat on the embroidery stool. The stool was used by Ji Heng for decades and suited his height, but for Zhang Fulai, the stool was too high. Leaning over, he started to stitch under Ji Heng's guidance without hurry. Bai Lian glanced to the side and saw the scene in the yard. Because Ji Heng was embroidering, the yard was equipped with lamps as bright as day. Zhang Fulai sat facing her side under a bamboo and cloth parasol, his slender fingertips holding an extremely fine embroidery needle. His cold and noble countenance remained as aloof and elegant as ever under the lights, almost devoid of emotion. Chapter 843. 328 Forced grid under 2. But as the needle dropped, a hint of hesitation flickered in his eyes. Xueqi's golden needle would not come off for another hour, and Bai Lian got up and walked outside. To see Zhang Fulai and Ji Heng. Ji Heng pointed at a spot with his hand, signaling Zhang Fulai to insert the needle. A flat needle would do. It was a pink poppy, with incredibly fine stitches. One could see the dewdrops on the petals, clear and about to fall. Ji Heng had already finished embroidering the dewdrops. Only the colors on the petal remained incomplete. Zhang Fulai followed Ji Heng's directions and stitched several times. Lifting his head, his light-colored eyes looked at Ji Heng, an aura of solitary indifference around him, inquiring how his own stitching was. Ji Heng observed the color Zhang Fulai had filled in. The pink was filled in, but, just like the rigidly accurate diagram he drew. The embroidery needle in Ji Heng's hand was like a magic wand. In Zhang Fulai's hand, it was more like a golden cudgel. For a moment, Ji Heng wasn't sure how to evaluate it. Zhang He, lifting his head from the small stool, glanced over but said nothing. Bai Lian, with her hands behind her back, an air of nonchalance about her, said, "The embroidery is very good." She arched her brows. Her large eyes filled with encouragement. Ji Heng's mouth twitched slightly, and Yu Guang stealthily glanced at Bai Lian without making a sound. It wasn't until Zhang Fulai finished the remaining color on that petal that one could spot the immature stitches among the large cluster of flowers, though they were not very noticeable at a glance. Ji Heng saw Zhang Fulai seemed confident to continue. He couldn't help but glance at Bai Lian. Bai Lian also coughed lightly. "Teacher Zhang, Uncle Su is still upstairs, isn't he?" Suan had to report on the private fund matters every so often. In a few days, Zhang Fulai would leave Jiangjing, and before departing, he also needed to arrange everything in Jiangjing. Zhang Fulai had no choice but to put down his needle and go upstairs with Bai Lian. Upstairs. Room 303. Zhang Xiais was discussing a math problem with Su Wenyao. Today Ning Xiao is not here, but thankfully Su Wenyao isn't too busy and has been tutoring Zhang Xiais the whole time. "Next month is the college entrance exam. Keep it up," Su Wenyao said as he watched Zhang Xiais finish the problem, his gaze drifting to a book on legal codes nearby. Zhang Xiais scratched his head. "No problem, hee. The teacher said my scores are stable enough for the University of Political Science and Law." "You're applying to the University of Political Science and Law?" Su Wenyao was taken aback by Zhang Shi's reply. "Yeah." Zhang Xiais pulled out a physics test paper. "What's wrong?" Su Wenyao looked at the extended physics test, which involved content for the competition class, and Zhang Xiais only got one question wrong. He fell silent for a moment, then shook his head. "Nothing. Just that Principal sure might cry." Bai Lian watched them for a while, then returned to the study. In the study, the vase had accumulated a bunch of roses at different stages of blooming. She opened the computer and saw that Yu Xinjing had sent her several messages. And also 2 documents. She replied to Yu Xinjing, then accepted the documents. Continuing to check other messages, the next was from He Wan, who was also going to leave with Zhang Fulai soon. He was very busy and asked Bai Lian to help organize a paper for him. She casually replied with a number. She opened the chat window with Su He and sent a message. Su He, now a minister in the general headquarters, had great actual power, and naturally he was also top-notch. Next door. Room 302. Zhang Fulai was in the study with Su En. Suan was talking about the private equity. Zhang Fulai was looking at the documents on the computer, listening quietly. Only after Suen finished did he raise his head with a rather cold tone and a casual demeanor. You know why I invested in this private fund. Everything is based on her as the premise. I understand, Suen said cautiously. No matter in terms of seniority or age, Zhang Fulai was his junior. But facing Zhang Fulai and Bai Lian, Suen had never put on the air of an elder, nor could he afford to. Despite Bai Lian's usually obedient and carefree demeanor, once she got serious, not even Suen dared to look her in the eye. As for Zhang Fulai, that went without saying. Of course, Suen was well aware his current position was entirely thanks to Bai Lian. From the beginning with the development zone in Xueqi, to setting up the private fund, collaborating with the Qin family, and up to the present moment. However, when Suen left the study, he glanced at Zhang Fulai, unsure why he had brought up the matter at that time. He left. Ming Dongheng came in. Zhang Fulai took glasses from the drawer, flipped open the case, and began to slowly wipe the lenses with a cloth. Young master, Ming Dongheng stood at the door of the study, his tone respectful. Miss Bai asked me to go with you. Chapter 844, 328 Forced Grid Under 3. Hearing this, Zhang Fulai lifted his head slightly, his light-colored pupils reflecting the study's light. When did it happen? Just now, Ming Dongheng said. Zhang Fulai had personal protection by his side. Something Ming Dongheng was aware of. Ming Dongheng was the bodyguard on record, primarily responsible for protecting Zhang He. When Zhang Fulai traveled on business, he seldom brought the Zhang family's bodyguards, without making any special arrangements. Another 2 minutes passed. Zhang Fulai methodically put on his glasses. Go report to them. Ming Dongheng left to find someone to report to. The next day, the Seawater Purification Project Report Conference was held in Xinjiang District Hall. The meeting started at 9 o'clock. Mu Zhendong set off at 7. Before leaving, the secretary asked, Should I inform the young miss? The reference was naturally to Mu Yining. Yesterday, Mu Yujun had specifically instructed Mu Zhendong to bring Mu Yining along. No need. Mu Zhendong waved his hand. At the entrance, he encountered Mu Yining from afar. Mu Zhendong feared that Yining would ask too many questions. Turning back, he took a different route to the venue. He arrived at 8, and the venue was vast. In the front, there was a long rosewood table with nameplates for the leaders and key personnel of the project, while 5 rows of chairs were set behind for reporters, meeting recorders, and other participants. When Mu Zhendong arrived, nobody was seated at the rosewood table yet. However, the 5 rows of chairs were almost full. Mu Zhendong managed to find a seat and shook hands with a familiar leader next to him. Minister Su, you've arrived early. Are there so many people today? Of course, Minister Su pointed toward the middle nameplate on the rosewood table. He is the one presiding over the meeting this time. They were directly facing the rosewood table, only able to see the nameplates on their side. This side had 9 people. The nameplates on the other 3 sides were out of view. Mu Zhendong squinted to see. The middle nameplate bore 3 words. Yu Xinjing. The Mu family had been in science and research before, so Mu Zhendong naturally recognized Yu Xinjing, who was almost of the same era as Mu Qiong. Of course, Yu Xinjing was much more outstanding than Mu Qiong, and even back then, Mu Qiong couldn't quite compare to him. After Mu Qiong's incident, Yu Xinjing rarely appeared in public. It wasn't until 10 years ago that he returned with the results of his ballistic research, and secured his reputation as the leading disciple of the Ma Institute. Mu Zhendong expressed his shock. This key project, it was initiated by him? No wonder there were so many people arriving so early today. There was this kind of insider story. No, said Minister Su, who was also unclear about the internals. Most researchers were kept protected. He is acting chairman. Mu Zhendong took out his phone to send messages to Mu Yujun and others. At 8:50, the door to the rest area behind the rosewood table conference opened. Those seated in the 5 rows of seats behind grew animated. The murmurs of conversation faded. All stood up and looked toward the front. Mu Zhendong, holding his notebook and pen, stood up straight, watching the group of people intently. Everyone knew that each person involved in the launch ceremony was no ordinary individual, as could be judged from Yu Xinjing. 24 individuals, one after another, came out from the room, all dressed in formal suits, and found their seats. Mu Zhendong didn't recognize most of them, with only a few who were connections made over meals through Mu Yujun and the Gao family. He looked around while asking Minister Su beside him for the names. Until the next second, two women walked out from the rest area. Women weren't uncommon at such events, but Mu Zhendong's gaze settled on the woman to the left. She was wearing a professional suit, her hair pinned at the back of her head, holding a folder in her left hand, speaking to a person beside her. A picture of elite professionalism. As Mu Yining approached the conference table, someone who saw her at a side position raised a hand, inviting Mu Yining to sit with a polite and smiling gesture. "President Mu, your seat is here." Mu Yining, holding the folder, took her seat. Almost dropping his notebook to the floor, Mu Zhendong watched disbelievingly as Mu Yining took her seat. He instantly recognized her. Wasn't that Mu Yining? How could she be seated at the Rosewood conference table? At the conference table, Mu Yining certainly noticed Mu Zhendong, but she didn't mind. It would be abnormal if the officials didn't invite her with such a high-value rare metal. It wasn't a big deal now. What would truly be surprising was if Mu Zhendong discovered that Xueqi. After all, she could uphold the entire prestige of Xian Kong by herself. Chapter 845. 330 Regrets not having made the right move earlier. One wrong move in chess. Everyone seated at the red conference table had taken their seats. The people behind also sat down one by one. Only Mu Zhendong remained standing where he was, quite conspicuously. Next to him, Minister Su glanced at Mu Zhendong. "President Mu?" He lowered his voice. Mu Zhendong snapped back to reality and took his seat, but his gaze remained fixed on Mu Yining. Purifying uranium from seawater was a huge project, and even the Gao family wanted a piece of the action. They sought out Mu Zhendong specifically to insert someone through him into the project. Mu Zhendong had been busy with this project since the new year, for 3 to 4 months. Today, he was finally able to sit here and attend the meeting. Who would have thought that Mu Yining would be sitting directly at the negotiation table made of mahogany? How did she get in? The person in charge of the project in the middle began speaking, introducing the guests present one by one. Permanent Delegate Yu Xinjing, Academy of Sciences Vice President Su Lisin, Mu Corporation Executive CEO, Miss Mu Yining. Among the distinguished titles announced, that of the Executive CEO of the Mu Corporation, Mu Yining, appeared quite modest. The people behind were inquiring why Mu Yining was there. The shocked Minister Su beside Mu Zhendong also looked to him, seeking to find out something. But Mu Zhendong was already unable to calm himself to listen to what they were saying. 2 hours later, the meeting concluded. The project lead approached Mu Yining for a chat. "President Mu, I have reserved a lunch nearby, let's talk there." Afterward, a crowd sought out Yu Xinjing. Mu Zhendong was still sitting in the same spot, observing the project leaders around Mu Yining. It was evident that these people treated Mu Yining with great courtesy. After Mu Yining left, quite a few people came to greet Mu Zhendong, most of whom he knew. The familiar Minister Su also came over with 2 people. "Zhendong, this here is Vice President Su." The Mu family hadn't seen such high-caliber researchers in a long time. Mu Zhendong, after a moment of shock, quickly reached out to shake hands with Su Lisin. "President Su, hello, I am Mu Zhendong." "Mr. Mu." The two shook hands briefly, and Su Lisin proactively exchanged contact information with Mu Zhendong. Mu Zhendong walked out in a daze, following the crowd. His secretary, who had been waiting outside, spotted him from afar. After the crowd dispersed, he approached. The secretary hesitantly said, I thought I saw the young miss." Mu Zhendong's secretary naturally knew who was inside today. That is why, upon seeing Mu Yining, they were surprised yet thought they might have been mistaken. Mu Zhendong heard this, but said nothing. He just walked toward his car dazed. Even though he had arrived spirited now, he lacked any vigor. Seeing this, the secretary immediately realized they hadn't been mistaken, that it truly was Mu Yining. This visit had exceeded his expectations. Mu Zhendong restlessly got into the car. At noon, he had arranged to meet with the Gao family. Mu Zhendong arrived at the private room. He had thought that just like before, only Mu Yujun would come over for lunch. Unexpectedly, not only did Mu Yujun arrive, but Gao Yi was there as well. In all the years with the Mu family, Mu Zhendong had seen Gao Yi only a few times. That was 20 years ago, during the glory days of the Mu family. After the decline of the Mu family, Gao Yi never visited again, not to mention him. Even Mu Yujun's annual visits were few. "Mr. Gao." Mu Zhendong came back to his senses and hurriedly greeted Gao Yi respectfully. He was surprised inside, wondering why Gao Yi would come. No need for formalities with me. Gao Yi, dressed in casual attire, had a gentle smile, gesturing for Mu Zhendong to sit, displaying quite a cordial demeanor. Given the current status of the Gao family in Jiangjing, it had become comparable to the Su family. When had they ever treated the Mu family so courteously? Mu Zhendong felt flattered and temporarily set aside the matters concerning Mu Yining, taking a seat and engaging in a lively conversation with Gao Yi. After they had finished their meal and Gao Yi had to leave due to other matters, Mu Yujun stayed behind to speak privately with Mu Zhendong. She was wearing a proper black long dress accompanied by a pure white shawl, watching Gao Yi's car drive away. As Gao Yi got into the car, he looked at Mu Zhendong and smiled. Iridium grade 500 and other rare metals, we're all family. In the future with such large quantities, we should discuss together. After speaking, he got in his car and left. Mu Yujun slowly turned her body, adjusting her shawl, and frowned as she observed him. Where is Yining? Why didn't she come with you? Mu Yujun had specifically asked Mu Zhendong to bring her along yesterday, but Mu Zhendong, preoccupied with his own concerns, hadn't called her. Chapter 846. 330 Regrets not having made the right move earlier. One wrong move in chess underscore 2. Mu Zhendong's heart was in turmoil. He wasn't foolish. He had sensed something off the moment he saw Mu Yining at the meeting, but he couldn't figure out why Mu Yining was able to sit there. The only explanation he could think of was that Mu Xiongguang had made a move. It still seemed far-fetched, considering Mu Xiongguang hadn't left the Buddhist hall. How could he have met the newer generation? It wasn't until Gao Yi's comment that he fully understood. Mu Yining possessed a large quantity of rare metals, so significant that the seawater uranium extraction project considered her a key individual, large enough that even the Gao family couldn't help but be moved. That's why Mu Yining could sit at the Red Table meeting. That's why Minister Su brought Su Lisan to meet him. Even Gao Yi had personally stepped in. Despite the warm spring weather, and the people of Jiangjing shedding their heavy down jackets, Mu Zhendong felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. All this time, he had only managed to negotiate a small quantity of rare metals, and the contract with the supplier hadn't even been signed. Mu Yining. Where did hers come from? The recent storms in Jiangjing had been relentless, and news within the circles spread quickly. When the Mu family's economy had started to rise, most people merely smiled and moved on. But now that the Mu family had revealed assets enough to partner with the heavy industry, this implicated several research institutions behind them. Those with foresight could see that the Mu family this time had a powerful backing. The Su family naturally received the news as well. During the evening meeting, Old Master Su looked at Su Nanjing. Nanjing, have you been discussing cooperation with the Mu family recently? Even this elder was surprised by Su Nanjing's sharpness. Yes, Su Nanjing lifted his eyes, his tone calm. The Second Research Institute is in further detailed discussions with them. Su Nanjing was designated as the next heir last year during the elder's birthday celebration, bypassing Su Juling and Su Jueming amongst the grandchildren. Su Nanjing's status in the Su family had always been on a rapid rise. No one could have predicted the situation with the Mu family. Su Jueming had not received any news at all. The Su family had a new appreciation for Su Nanjing's capabilities. Listening to Su Nanjing, Su Jueming couldn't help but look up, giving him an extra glance, trying to perceive something more. He wanted to know how the Mu family could turn the tables, and even more, how Su Nanjing could do it. Third young Master Su, used to mingling with a crowd like Jiang Fulai's, appeared indifferent, not betraying a hint of disturbance. After the family banquet, Su Nanjing took his keys and left. Su Jini caught up with Gao Yan. Friday evening. It rained in Jiangjing. The Cultural Bureau. At closing time, Director Jian was in the whole day, and Deputy Director Liang waited to leave work with him specifically. They didn't even glance sideways as they passed Dong's father. Last year, because of Dong Chuan's issues with the Mu family, Deputy Director Liang had taken special care of Dong's father, and colleagues believed his promotion was imminent. Did you offend Deputy Director Liang? Someone asked in a low voice. Recently, not many had been close to Dong's father. Dong's father had no idea what had happened, but the most likely reason he could think of was Ran Wangshuan's issue. After leaving, he called Dong Xiaobai. Ran Wangshuan's case was too old to be hidden from the Calligraphy Association, and being convicted for any reason would have a significant impact on her, especially with the recent rumor circulating. The Dong family valued their family reputation. They thought the Mu family was making a mountain out of a molehill, that such matters could be settled behind closed doors. Making it public was like making a spectacle for others to see. I really can't handle this, Dong Xiaobai refused outright this time. When you and Dad chose to protect Ren Wanxian, you should have foreseen this outcome. Dong Xiaobai hung up the phone. Turning to Mu Yining beside him, he quickly said, I really didn't mean to speak up for him. Mu Yining pressed her brow, reaching for the car keys. Let's buy some things and go to Shanghai apartment. This time, Dong Xiaobai didn't dare say no. Jiang University. Jiang Fulai and Ma Tongfeng set off early in the morning, a fact not many knew about. Bai Lian had already learned of it through He Wan. The school was crowded. The rain that started suddenly in the afternoon caught most without umbrellas, and the students crowded at the entrance. Only one person stood to the side, holding a long-handled umbrella from the car, standing in the twilight rain, shrouded in mist, with a calm and elegant demeanor. The bustling entrance seemed to slow down in his presence. Seeing Jiang Fulai, Bai Lian moved forward a few steps, and Jiang Fulai tilted the umbrella her way. They descended the stairs together. The rainy day was always quiet. Bai Lian looked at his clean fingers holding the umbrella handle, reminded of last year when she had first arrived at Shengqing No. 1 Middle School. It had been a similar rainy night. Chapter 847. 330 Regrets not having made the right move earlier. One wrong move in chess. Look at this. Jiang Fulai glanced at the jade thumb ring that he wore. The ring had an antiquated appearance, fashioned from vibrantly colored jade featuring a dragon pattern at the top. It seemed gaudy, yet it looked unusually elegant in his hands. Bai Lian snapped out of her reverie and noticed for the first time today that he was unexpectedly wearing a thumb ring. No! Jiang Fulai, as if he hadn't heard her, took off the thumb ring from his other hand and placed it into Bai Lian's palm. Take a closer look. The ring, a blend of green and purple, felt slightly cool. Bai Lian played with it in her hand for a while. Standing by the car, opening doors for the two of them, Ming Dongheng watched as Bai Lian fiddled with the ring in her hands. Several times he thought it would fall to the ground. His temples visibly twitched. 103. Ji Heng's embroidery stand was set up in the yard, the depiction of a beautiful woman completely stitched. The few strokes Jiang Fulai had left previously also remained on it, not looking out of place. The dean went straight to Shanghai apartment after work. At this moment, with his hands clasped behind his back, he bent over to examine the design Ji Heng drew for him. A mandarin-collared long robe with a 21-string zither subtly incorporated into the design. The mere sight of this design exuded an ancient majesty. Ji Heng set down his drawing pencil and looked up at the rain outside. The rain slanted down, hitting the glass in the courtyard of number 103, leaving streaks of mottled water stains. This rain seems to be getting heavier. Ji Heng narrowed his eyes, picked up the tobacco pipe beside him, and methodically stuffed it with tobacco. Next to him, Jiang He sat on the steps, hugging his white school bag, tilting his little head to read a comic book. Old Who placed a stack of nuts next to him, having peeled a small pile of walnuts and almonds for him to nibble on slowly. The entrance of Shanghai apartment. Mu Yining drove down the road. At the entrance, she saw a boy in the Jiangjing High School uniform, with a black school bag slung over one shoulder, his tall figure, black hair streaked with silver, handsome features that made passers-by turn heads, including university girls sneakily taking photos with their phones. Across from him stood a bald man in his 30s. In the chilly weather, the man wore only a black short-sleeved shirt revealing tattooed arms, holding a lit cigarette, hardly looking like a decent person. He was handing over two exquisitely crafted square iron boxes to Zhang Xiai's. Bai Lian and her group, all exceptional students, Zhang Xiai's Mu Yining had also heard Ji Heng mention a few times, was doing well and planning to apply to the University of Political Science and Law. Mu Yining quickly stopped the car at the entrance. She honked the horn, signaling Zhang Xiai's to get in. Zhang Xiai's, who always respected Bai Lian's relatives, scratched his head and got into the car despite not knowing them well. Mu Yining waited for Zhang Xiai's to get in before accelerating into the residential complex. As they were leaving, she and Dong Xiaobai warily glanced at Li Shang. Finally understanding the expression on Mu Yining's face, Li Shang. Sometimes he really felt like calling the police. You can just call him Uncle Dong. Outside the door of number 103, Mu Yining, holding a gift bag, introduced Dong Xiaobai to Zhang Xiai's. And she pressed the doorbell. Zhang Xi's grinned and called out, "Uncle Dong." It was still quite early, and the hall was mostly empty. Old Hu answered the door. Mu Yining had never met Old Hu and paused in surprise. But Zhang Xi's greeted him familiarly, "Uncle Hu." Old Hu smiled and nodded at Zhang Xi's. "Are you about to take your college entrance exams?" "Next month it will be over," Zhang Xi said as he walked into the yard, looking at Ji Hang and the dean there. As he passed Jiang He, he bent down and scooped all the peeled nuts from his plate into his hand and gobbled them up in one go. Jiang He's little hand came back empty. "Grandpa Dean," Zhang Xi's greeted the two elderly men while chewing on the walnuts. "This is the new tobacco of this year. Grandpa told me you like it too, Dean, so I had someone bring an extra box." As he spoke, Zhang Xi's displayed the two 3-foot-tall square iron boxes for them to see. Ji Hang and the dean momentarily set aside their embroidery. The two opened the tobacco boxes to examine the contents. The dean, no longer pestering Ji Hang to draw another zither for him, got the urge to roll one and try it. In the hall, Mu Yining and Dong Xiaobai set down their things. As Shen Qing brewed tea for the two, Dong Xiaobai stood up to thank Shen Qing. In the courtyard, as the dean turned to the side, Dong Xiaobai just caught sight of his face, paused for a moment, then showed recognition. "Is this Dean Jian?" He was from the Dong family. His brother worked at the Cultural Bureau, naturally recognizing Jian Zhongyou. Famously difficult to approach. Perhaps only the president of the Calligraphy Association knew him well. The Dong family would rather establish connections with the Liang family than think of courting Dean Jian. Dean Jian, Alien's old friend, Shen Qing put the teapot back, recently asked Alien's grandfather to make him a performance costume. Double votes, dear readers. If you don't vote, it's a waste. Vote once and you'll want to vote again. Chapter 848. The incident happened at 330, Qinglong Bar. President Jian always mingled with Bai Lian and the others without putting on any airs as an artist. He would roll up his sleeves and take off his shoes to fish with Ji Hang and Director Chen. He had done all sorts of down-to-earth things. Shen Qing felt uncomfortable around Ran Zhouwei and Mu Yining, but she was always at ease around President Jian, Su En, and Chen Yongquan. Her casual demeanor made Dong Xiaobai somewhat uneasy. He was in the same industry after all. Although President Jian specialized in music, he was also quite famous in calligraphy. In Dong Xiaobai's circle, he was a top-tier figure. Once Dong stood up, he never dared to sit down again but stood by the sofa instead. Ji Hung came in with President Jian, carrying things to roll tobacco. Dong Xiaobai politely greeted Ji Hung and then immediately said to President Jian, "President Jian, hello, I am Dong Xiaobai from the Calligraphy Association." President Jian stood by the coffee table, watching Ji Hung roll the tobacco. Hearing the greeting, he looked up leisurely and replied to Dong Xiaobai. In the evening, Xueqi arrived. He still sat in a wheelchair and was pushed over by Ran Zhouwei. Ran Zhouwei had cancelled all her meetings for Xueqi's sake and had specially rented an apartment next to Xueqi's place. She used to get along poorly with Ji Hung. Both were fashion designers, but now for Xueqi's sake, Ran Zhouwei had tempered her sharpness and managed to converse with Ji Hung. Mu Yining chatted quietly with Xueqi about a collaboration. They also talked about Xueqi joining the Mu family. Mu Yining knew very well that Bai Lian was giving the Mu family a chance for Xueqi's sake. "When can you and your grandfather get registered?" Mu Yining said to Xueqi. "To enter you into the family records of the Mu family." After Ji Xiaojun and the others returned the last time, the Mu family held a grand banquet. This time for Xueqi. Mu Yining pondered that they couldn't be simplistic about it. Dong Xiaobai wasn't familiar with the Ji family people. He only knew of Ran Wanxian before. This was his first time seeing Xueqi and his first time gathering with the Ren family like this. Only now did he realize the kind of polished demeanor that Xueqi possessed, definitely not that of an ordinary person, especially since he could converse with Mu Yining. Dong Xiaobai was inwardly astonished. He remembered Mu Yining saying that Xueqi was an orphan who hadn't even finished junior high, which was one of the reasons why Mu Zhendong and the Dong family chose to protect Ran Wanxian. After everyone finished dinner and it was past 9 o'clock, Bai Lian and a few others had not yet returned. Mu Yining was not easy to come by, and she wanted to wait for Bai Lian. She knew all too well that whether it was Xueqi or Bai Lian's other friends, everything was centered around Bai Lian. "Alien is out having dinner tonight," Shen Qing said, having heard from Jiang Fulai a few days ago that he would be on a long business trip. "She'll probably come back very late." Hearing Shen Qing say this, Mu Yining decided not to continue disturbing Ji Hang's rest. She left with Dong Xiaobai. Once in the car, Mu Yining started the engine. Dong Xiaobai came back to his senses. Xueqi doesn't look like what I imagined. Mu Yining drove onto the main road. He's very smart. If it weren't for Bai Lian and Xueqi mentioning it themselves, she might not have been able to imagine that the person truly managing the nationwide sensation of Xian Kong was a young man not even 20 years old. If he had grown up in the Mu family or the Ren family, Mu Yining pressed the brakes slightly, murmuring, he would surely be much smarter than Mu Zhao now. He should have had a path leading straight to the heavens. Dong Xiaobai remained silent, aware of the weight of her words. Mu Yining didn't bring up Xueqi again, but asked about President Jian instead. She wasn't familiar with President Jian, but given Dong Xiaobai's attitude, she knew there must be a reason. This President Jian is a master in the world of classical music, the sect leader of the Guzheng faction. Dong Xiaobai looked at the streetlights ahead, speaking gravely. You know my brother works for the Cultural Bureau, he's also the bureau head. For the Dong family, striking up even a single conversation with President Jian was not easy. Guzheng. Mu Yining realized something and responded, no wonder, I heard the butler mention that Alien can play the Guzheng. However, none of them had ever heard her play. Could Bai Lian play the Guzheng well? This time, Dong Xiaobai did not say anything more. Who could have thought that President Jian was friends with Bai Lian? At this moment, he already realized that the Dong family had bet on the wrong side. 2 o'clock in the morning. The streets were mostly empty of cars, except for those places immersed in luxury and debauchery. Most residential areas of Jiangjing were tranquil. In front of the gates of the Research Institute, 5 black modified cars were parked in a row, with a human wall on both sides ensuring no passage. Bai Lian and President Huang were seeing Jiang Fulai and Academician Ma off. Chapter 849. 330 Incident occurred. Qinglong Bar. Understood 2. Study the materials I've given you carefully, said Academician Ma, who was always sparing with words. He looked at Bai Lian, the color of gratification clear at the bottom of his deep brown eyes. Project 925 is now depending on you guys. Bai Lian looked at Academician Ma's facial expression but ultimately did not ask him to stay. Academician Ma had said that his last heartbeat would be dedicated to science. President Huang waited beside them for a long time. After Academician Ma had finished speaking with Bai Lian and gone to look for Yu Xinjing, not once had he spoken to him. Teacher, don't you have anything to instruct me? He couldn't help but ask. Academician Ma glanced at President Huang. Recruit more talented students to the Physics Institute. President Huang. Oh. Jiang Fulai just stood beside Bai Lian with his eyes cast downward. The street lamp in front of the Research Institute stretched their shadows very long. It was late at night, and he stood relaxed in a dark sweater, yet his back was very straight. Not until Academician Ma had finished speaking did he turn his head to look at Bai Lian and slowly said, if you need anything, reach out to Su Nanjing or the Chen family. He lifted his chin, gesturing to the Chen family people opposite them. Across the way, Chen Beixian, dressed in a black combat outfit, blew on the dagger in his hand and gave Bai Lian a polite smile. Bai Lian returned the nod politely, her demeanor always mild and gracious. Beneath the street lamp, her radiant face always carried a carefree and lazy charm. Time was pressing. Academician Ma had already gotten into the car. The others also took their places one by one. These two were still beside each other, though no one dared to hurry them or even dared to look their way. Jiang Fulai's palm rested on her back, drawing her into his embrace under the cold street lamp. After a while he let go. I'm leaving. He lowered his eyes, his shallow gaze settling on Bai Lian's face, and he stared at her intently for a while before striding towards the nearby car. The motorcade was ready to depart. Chen Beixian did not dare to look their way, only clutching the dagger, and patted Ming Dongheng's shoulder. Xianming, don't worry about your trip. I'll make sure everything with Miss Bai is transparently safe. She won't lose even a single hair. Ming Dongheng was specially trained for this. Anyone who could follow by Jiang Fulai's side was no mediocre person, with annual salaries in the tens of millions. Previously, most of this was spent by Jiang Fulai on arranging the protection for Jiang He, but this was the first time he was traveling with Jiang Fulai. With his departure, Jiang He and Bai Lian were exposed in Jiangjing. This time taking Ming Dongheng along surprised most people. The motorcade left. Chen Beixian, holding the car keys, approached, assuming Ming Dongheng's usual role. Miss Bai, I am Chen Beixian. Before Ming returns, you may contact me directly for anything. Shall I take you back to the Shanghai apartment now? Bai Lian withdrew her gaze and after hearing Chen Baixuan's voice, paused briefly before slightly turning her body. Her eyes settled on Chen Beixian. Chen Beixian was a direct descendant of the Chen family, her eyebrows somewhat thick, her features prominent, her bearing uniquely wild, characteristic of the Chen family members. Like a wild horse that could not be tamed on the battlefield. Bai Lian nodded her head and thanked Chen Beixian. Thank you. At 3 a.m, they arrived downstairs at the Shanghai apartment. Chen Beixian got out of the car and watched Bai Lian go upstairs. She returned to the Chen family. Early in the morning, she went to scrounge a meal at the home of Old Master Chen. The person in charge of the Old Master's daily routine added chopsticks and a bowl for her. From a distance, a gramophone slowly played Yen Lu's Gambling on Liquor. A melodious guzheng piece. This piece of music was loved by everyone in the Chen family. The character by Xiangjuan portrayed by Yen Lu, exceptionally good with the long spear, and this song was the highlight. Naturally, the Chen family liked it. With such good resources and high status in the industry, Yen Lu had these reasons too. After all, a word from Old Master Chen was very important. Old Master, I saw Miss Bai up close last night, Chen Beixian, holding a pair of silver chopsticks, mentioned. It's really such a coincidence, she also bears the surname Bai, just happens to be called Bai Lian. Old Master Chen ate quietly, just listening as Chen Beixian talked about Bai Lian. The first time he heard about Bai Lian was at Director Jian's. Later he found out that the girl always mentioned by Director Jian and the one by Zhang Fulai's side were the same person. After breakfast, Old Master Chen freshened up, changed into formal clothing, and took Chen Beixian to the clan shrine. The Chen family clan shrine was solemn and dignified. The courtyard was filled with plaques bearing titles like Scholar, Runner-Up, Top Scorer, General. All these represented the glory of the Chen family clan. Passing these plaques, Old Master Chen then entered the room where the ancestral spirit tablets were displayed, which held the ranks of past Chen family clan chiefs. Chen Beixian didn't have many chances to come here, only having been inside twice. Once was when she ranked first entering the military academy and once during the clan shrine's open ritual for ancestor worship. She respectfully worshipped the ancestors with Old Master Chen, and only then did her gaze fall on the uppermost row. Chapter 850. 330 Incident occurred. Qinglong Bar. _3 The very top only held a single ancestral tablet, from their Chen family's forebear, Chen Yi. To the right above Chen Yi was a faded portrait, a woman in white holding a long spear, her clothing billowing, emanating a sense of free-spirited elegance. If there were any students from Zhang University here, they would surely recognize that the pose of the woman in white with the spear was almost identical to the statue of a famous figure at their university. Chen Baixuan's mind gradually overlapped Bai Lian with the portrait. I think it's her, the elder Chen said reverently as he paid his respects to these ancestors. Chen Beixian understood what the elder meant. On June 7th, Zhang Xiai's had his college entrance exam. The hairdryer that the one family collaborated on with the Aerospace Bureau went on sale network-wide. The stock prices grew exponentially, and the seawater purification project that the Mu family was involved in was put on the daily agenda. This month, 3 of the Mu family's abandoned research institutes had applied for research funding, and recruitment for construction was underway. Many professors and researchers participated in the uranium extraction from seawater, including Ning Xiao. Mu Zhendong never brought up Ran Wanxian to Mu Yining and Ji Hang again after reconnecting with the Dong family. Meanwhile, Ran Qian had called Ran Zhouwei midway through, only to be outright rejected by her. After completing the exams, Zhang Xiai's followed Qi Yundai to various lectures and entered several courthouses. On June 24th, the exam results were announced. Zhang Xiai scored 10th nationally, not as sensational as Ning Xiao, but still enough to make the students from the affiliated high school of Zhang University question their lives. Especially since this kid was the last in his class when he joined the school the previous year. As soon as the results were out, Zhang's mother's phone was bombarded with calls from various admissions offices. This wasn't just the top 10 in the school, but the top 10 in the nation, and even Zhang University was calling non-stop. Zhang's father wasn't at home either. In early July, Zhang Shi's grandparents arrived in Jiangjing, and the Zhang family joyfully prepared a celebration banquet for him at a hotel. Bai Lian, Ning Xiao, Tang Ming, and Qi Yundai all sat at the main table. The Zhang family was well aware that without these few people, Zhang Xiais might still be working on a sewing machine or could have already been sentenced to death, let alone achieve a national 10th place in the exams. The group feasted merrily. Zhang's mother sat with Xin Qing, looking at the group of young people, and whispered to Xin Qing, "It's just a shame, his father and Mr. Jiang are missing." The Zhang family wouldn't dare to call Jiang Fulai Xiaojiang as boldly as the Ji family did. Yes, Xin Qing felt uneasy not having seen Jiang Fulai for so long. She glanced toward Bai Lian, who was pulling the tab off a beer can with one hand, and sighed, "I wonder how much longer Xiaojiang will be gone." Most wanted to know the answer to this question, but no one dared to ask Bai Lian. Ji Heng sat opposite Bai Lian with Director Chen, holding a small glass and drinking baijiu with a few others, idle, leaning back in his chair with a beer, not talking much. Amidst his thoughts, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Bai Lian lowered his lashes. It was a call from Academician Ma. In the private room, Tang Ming and others were playing drinking games with Zhang Xiais, making a lot of noise. Bai Lian stepped outside to take the call. "Academician Ma." On the other end of the call, Academician Ma didn't speak right away. Through the electric current, there was only his heavy breathing to be heard. Bai Lian listened quietly, and after a moment, her expression changed. "Academician Ma, where are you?" Ma's side continued with difficult breaths. The signal was poor, intermittent. "EVB." Academician Ma uttered a string of numbers and then said, "And that problem I left with you last time." He didn't say where he was. Before he left, he had given Bai Lian a probability combination problem. She had a good memory, so even if Academician Ma only mentioned it once, she would remember the numbers he said to her. After he finished, Bai Lian wanted to ask more, but the line went dead. She looked down, her fingers pressing the numbers on the screen, tried calling Academician Ma back, but couldn't get through. Her fingers, slightly unsteady, went back to her contacts, pressing the number to dial out again. This time it was Jiang Fulai, and it didn't go through either. Bai Lian held her phone, standing in the hallway for quite some time, not returning to the private room. Instead, she sent a message to Zhang Xiais and went straight downstairs. She also couldn't reach Ming Dongheng on his phone. The hotel elevator was busy. Bai Lian didn't take it, she went straight down the stairs. Downstairs, Chen Beixian had just arrived. After Ming left, she essentially took over Xiaoming's role, protecting Bai Lian and Jiang He on a daily basis. But Bai Lian rarely called her, mostly sending her to pick up Jiang He, and now with the summer vacation, Chen Beixian had some free time. Today, she even brought a gift for Zhang Shi's promotion. "Miss Bai." Chen Beixian got out of the car, noting Bai Lian's complexion. "Where are you going?" Clearly, she hadn't received the news yet. Bai Lian opened the back door of the car, her face growing cold. Qinglong Bar. Chapter 851. 331 Arrested. Grandpa is about to make a move. Chen Beixian didn't think Bai Lian was the type to go to bars. Hearing Qinglong Bar from Bai Lian's mouth surprised Chen Beixian, though she was never one to talk much. She drove straight to Qinglong Bar in Yunshao district. At 12 o'clock, the bar wasn't yet open. The entire street was quiet. Chen Beixian parked the car by the roadside, turning her head to look at Bai Lian. "The bar isn't open yet." Qinglong Bar, with its back against a large tree, enforced its rules on everyone here, Chen Beixian included. Her intention was to remind Bai Lian that the bar was not open and they couldn't enter yet. But to her surprise, after Bai Lian exchanged a glance with her, she got out of the car and walked directly towards the bar's entrance. Chen Beixian watched Bai Lian enter Qinglong Bar, and the next second, the manager opened the door of the bar. The bar. The manager handed a list to Bai Lian. "Miss Bai, this is the list Master Mao asked me to give to you." Bai Lian walked upstairs, her eyes scanning the list. "Where is he?" The list consisted of people trained by Mao Kuan and Hall Master Jean over the past year, some of whom worked in the bar, while others taught at the martial arts gym. Most of the people remained at Xiangqing Martial Arts Gym. "Master Mao just left for the gym," said the manager, following behind Bai Lian. All of Qinglong Bar in Jiangjing was managed by Xueqi and Mao Kuan. Top to bottom, it was their people. Wang Yufeng didn't interfere with Mao Kun's affairs, and the manager was one of Mao Kun's confidants as well. He knew that in Xueqi and Mao Kun's area, Bai Lian's status was on par with Wang Yufeng. Bai Lian skimmed through the document swiftly, her fair fingers closed the list and handed it back. Notify them, have the people from Xueqi come over. The manager nodded and immediately gave the order. Upon reaching the top floor, they entered the innermost private room, which housed a bunch of instruments emitting a green glow. This was the core area of Qinglong Bar. Bai Lian approached the satellite communication machine, dialed out a communication link, and this time too, there was no response. She wasn't surprised. Ming Dongheng had made significant progress this year. Although not as strong as Mao Kuan, in Bai Lian's view, he was good enough. The people Jiang Fulai sent with him would naturally not be weak. Bai Lian was not worried about Ming Dongheng making a mistake, and as for Jiang Fulai, he must have taken Ming Dongheng with him for a reason. What worried her now was whether Ma Institute scholar and Jiang Fulai could survive this ordeal. The phone rang. It was Chen Baixuan's call. Chen Baixian was outside, her voice urgent, the sound of an engine starting could already be heard through the phone. Miss Bai, the Chen family has a 990 emergency. CLA 990 emergency code. It seemed she had received the message. You go back first, Bai Lian instructed the manager to continue collecting information. I have someone to pick me up. Chen Baixian pressed the accelerator, returning to the Chen family. Bai Lian stood in the communication room for a while, then raised her hand. Take me to the research institute. The scholar from Ma Institute had left her a string of keys regarding Project 925. The message from the scholar at Ma Institute hadn't yet reached the research institute. When Bai Lian arrived, everything seemed normal. The gatekeeper recognized Bai Lian and let her pass directly. There were many people in the research institute. Some of them had seen Bai Lian and faintly guessed that she was a student favored by the scholar of Ma Institute and were always friendly toward her. She went through unobstructed into the scholar's office. Tapping into the scholar's computer, it was password-free, and Bai Lian immediately accessed a hidden folder on the scholar's desktop that required a long string of keys. She recalled several things the scholar told her before and the lengthy answers from their last engagement. She entered them one by one. It wasn't right. She hadn't misremembered, nor were the answers wrong. It meant the keys weren't meant for this. Bai Lian shut down the computer. Stood up. The phone rang again. This time it was Pu Xiaohan. Lian Jie, we finished eating. Are you done with your tasks? We are preparing to play werewolf again and waiting for you. Werewolf. Bai Lian pushed open the window in the scholar's office. A chill wind blew in, and she spoke calmly. You guys play first, I don't have time to come back for now. Pu Xiaohan was surprised but did not press further. Sure. This group had blind trust in Bai Lian. Once the 990 code was issued, 2 hours later, the relevant departments immediately sealed the entire project, initiating a strict defensive stance. Ever since the incident that occurred more than a decade ago, domestic safety of researchers had been prioritized. The Jiang family. Jiang Shijue also received the news immediately. His face serious as he called to inquire with the general rear echelon. Just getting started, their communications devices were already destroyed. People at the general rear were unable to find out anything. Facing the ire of the Jiang family, they all felt cold sweat on their foreheads and were lost for words. Chapter 852. 331 arrested. Grandfather is about to make a move. _2, we've just dispatched fighters to investigate, they said. Not to mention the Jiang family, they are anxious too. Currently, the research concerns a cornerstone of modern quantum mechanics and the future of dark matter in relation to the space agency. If these two have issues, domestic physics will be set back by more than a decade. Jiang Shijue hung up the phone, changed clothes, grabbed his phone, got in the car, and went directly to headquarters to keep watch. As soon as the car arrived, he saw that the Gao family people had already reached there. Perhaps right after the incident, the location was in full armor. The convoy at the entrance was fully equipped and ready to depart. Gao Yi, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, had just got out of the car when he saw Jiang Shijue and asked without betraying any emotion. Director Jiang, what has brought you here? Mr. Gao, Jiang Shijue felt a heaviness in his heart, but his face remained as gentle as jade, and he was polite in his behavior. I am here to see Sister Baixian. Excuse me. Chen Baixian worked right here. Jiang Shijue politely bowed and entered the airtight building. As soon as he turned around, the smile on his face disappeared. Chen Baixian was collecting information. When she saw Jiang Shijue, she tilted her head and took a deep breath. There is some bad news. Jiang Ziju's mind was shaken. Go ahead. I've just intercepted a message. Chen Beixian grabbed her phone. Academician Ma can't hold on anymore. His last call was to Miss Bai. Throughout the project, he only contacted Miss Bai. The only call before leaving was to Bai Lian. What? Jiang Shijue didn't understand why Academician Ma would call Bai Lian, but he quickly reacted, "Where is Miss Bai now?" He knew that after Jiang Fulai left, Chen Beixian hadn't been on any missions because she had to stay in Jiangjing. Academician Ma left behind many things, and regardless of the reason for calling Bai Lian would definitely be watched closely. Chen Beixian walked outside. "I just called her. She's at the research institute. I should have gone directly with her." She hurried towards the door. Jiang Shijue knew what she was worried about and followed Chen Beixian directly. Academician Ma's last call made Bai Lian extremely important. When they arrived at the research institute, there were already more than a dozen armed vehicles parked downstairs. Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue exchanged a glance. Chen Beixian took out her credentials and went in. Two people in formal attire were escorting Bai Lian outside. Today, Bai Lian was wearing an oat-colored opposite collar dress that Ji Hang had embroidered for her a few months ago. The sleeves were airy, and the hem was layered with poppies in yellow, pink, and white. Butterflies flitted amidst the flowers. The flower that Jiang Fulai had embroidered was hidden in the midst, not conspicuous. The two groups met at the elevator entrance. The one leading was Chen Lupeng, whom Chen Beixian hadn't seen for a long time. Chen Lupeng's gaze fell upon Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue, especially on Chen Beixian. "Beixian, I've been ordered to take Miss Bai to the Safety Bureau for investigation." The Safety Bureau. That place was beyond the Chen family's reach, and both Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue felt heavy at heart in an instant. Chen Beixian looked towards Bai Lian, who lazily clasped her hands in front of her chest, her expression still casual, showing no sign of the anxiety one might have being taken away for investigation. She even greeted Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue. Her demeanor was incredibly calm and composed. It seems she still doesn't know where she's being taken. Chen Lupeng glanced at Bai Lian from the corner of his eye, with a faint trace of mockery on his face. "Sorry, I have to take her back for a debriefing." Chen Lupeng nodded to Sister Beixian and Jiang Shijue and then led Bai Lian out the door. Chen Lupeng took Bai Lian away, and the fleet of cars sped off. Sister Baixuan's expression grew grave as she took out her phone to send a message to Su Nanjing. Bai Lian is now being taken away for investigation, and it's unclear what the situation is, but at least for the short term, Bai Lian won't be released. Outside, the situation is tense. However, the atmosphere in Shanghai apartment is quite harmonious. Zhang Xiais has received a mountain of gifts for his academic achievements, and is now opening them in apartment 303. Ji Heng also came over to 303 earlier, moving several potted plants down from the balcony. With Ming Dongheng absent, he's typically the one who tends to the plants in 303. Qi Yundai has taken a few days off recently and also joined the young people at Shanghai apartment. Zhang's mother, however, did not return. She went with Zhang Shi's grandparents to tour Jiang University instead. Score of 701, "I never imagined that one day I could score so high," Zhang Xiai said while holding the medal Qi Yundai gave him, squatting on the carpet, and looking up to speak to Qi Yundai. "It always feels like I haven't had time to do much this year, and then I scored a 701. Qi Yundai glanced at the medal in Zhang Shi's hand and said, giving him a look, "This year, the path you've taken has been much harder than for others." Zhang Xiais nodded while holding the medal. The two were talking. The doorbell was violently pressed, as Su Nanjing came in from outside. He saw Qi Yundai and was about to say something, but then his eyes fell on Ji Heng next to him and he immediately swallowed back his words. He greeted Ji Heng and the others as usual. Ji Heng was busy with Bai Lian's flowers and didn't pay attention to his state. Carrying a flower pot downstairs. After Ji Heng went downstairs, Su Nanjing shared the main issues with Qi Yundai but concealed the temporary loss of contact with Jiang Fulai's project, only mentioning that Bai Lian might need to cooperate with an investigation. With Bai Lian's situation coming to light, it couldn't be hidden for long. Security Bureau? Zhang Xiais and Ning Xiao, among a few others, had never heard of it, but they could guess what sort of place it might be. Ning Xiao asked bluntly, "What exactly happened?" "It's confidential and still under investigation," Su Nanjing said stably, his voice deep. "Don't mention this to grandfather or your aunt just yet, we don't want to worry them. Sister Beixian and I are already looking for solutions." "Confidential?" Ning Xiao was calm. I understand. He sent a message to Xueqi. Hearing Security Bureau and confidential. Ning Xiao could imagine. The Azure Dragon Bar is managed by Mao Kuan. But for Xian Kong, Bai Lian is the backstage supporter, and Xueqi is just an agent. Ning Xiao was clear about these facts. With Bai Lian's case tagged as confidential, both Xian Kong and the martial arts hall would certainly be affected. Xueqi had already received a message from Bai Lian at noon and had moved early along with Mao Kuan and Hall Master Jin. He wasn't surprised by Ning Xiao's message. However, he still mentioned the situation to Mu Yining. Xian Kong is currently collaborating with the Mu family's research institute. If they are under investigation, it's certain that the Mu family's medical research institute is involved as well. Downstairs, Ji Hung re-entered. He punched in the code, always composed, and upon entering, he noticed the room full of people, still holding his pipe. He looked at Zhang Xi's. What's this? Why the long faces? Double monthly vote tickets for first-day subscribers. Chapter 853, 332 Grandpa. Security Bureau. The few members of the Ji family currently included Ji Xiaojun, who was still with the Mu family, helping Mu Yining. Ji Xiaorong had stayed in Jiangjing to assist Yang Lin with the experiments, while also keeping Xueqi company, and had only left last month. Su Nanjing and Ning Xiao were aware of all this. As for Ji Hang, all of Bai Lian's friends knew he was an old embroiderer, skilled enough to bring anything to life with his stitches, having practiced for at least several decades. He was a master of embroidery. His hobbies were fishing and smoking, making clothes for Bai Lian and Jiang He. Occasionally he would play mahjong with Director Jian and the others. No problem. Zhang Xi's reacted quickly. He stood up from the ground as if nothing had happened and scratched his head. I was just telling Mr. Qi that time flies so quickly. Ji Heng gave him a look but didn't say anything and carried another peony pot down from the balcony. This pot of peonies was quite large. The diameter of the pot was about 40 to 50 centimeters, and it was somewhat heavy with the soil. Grandpa, Zhang Xiai stuffed the metal into his pocket and hurried to help Ji Heng. Let me help you carry it. Ji Heng lifted it easily. No need. It wasn't until after they had left that Su Nanjing realized. He had been looking at men like old Master Chen and was used to thinking all old people of that age had poor health. But he now saw that Ji Heng was in really good shape. How long will Sister Lien probably be out? Ning Xiao took Su Nanjing upstairs. Now that Bai Lian wasn't around, Ning Xiao had some matters to arrange in her stead. At the mention of this, Su Nanjing's expression turned sour. Sister Beixian said she is in room S1 with someone watching her 24 hours a day. It's difficult for her to get out. We need to wait for Academician Ma or Brother Jiang to return. The situation with Academician Ma was tough, and as for Jiang Fulai, they had yet to get in touch with him. After the Snow Mountain incident, the country became very strict with the security of serving scientific researchers. When Jiang Fulai traveled, Ming Dongheng was only in charge of the visible protection, while in the background, there were plenty of special forces personnel protecting him. Now with problems arising within the base, occurring internally, and Bai Lian being the only external person who had contacted the base, it was a small matter just to be under suspicion. Su Nanjing feared that the Security Bureau would just find someone arbitrary to take the blame. The next day, at the Security Bureau, Bai Lian was detained in an all-black room. There was no light, nor door. Only a chair. In the surveillance room, a man in police uniform came in through the door. The two people responsible for surveillance stood up, Captain Su. Su's gaze fixated on Bai Lian in the surveillance, who under the night vision appeared serene, sitting on the chair with her hands hanging by her sides and eyes slightly closed, face devoid of any emotion. How long has she been like this? Su asked, looking askance. Since she came in. Bai Lian, Su looked at the night vision for a while, then turned on the intercom. What did you mean by the last few codes you sent to Ma Tongfeng? Did he involve you in disseminating messages from the base to outsiders? Without opening her eyes, Bai Lian's voice remained unhurried and carried her usual nonchalance. An answer to a problem. She was not panicky. Su turned off the intercom, took out a cigarette, and continued to review Bai Lian's file, his eyes narrowing. In his hand was Bai Lian's file, spanning from her birth to the present. No, there must be something wrong with her. Su put down the file and exhaled a ring of smoke. Ordinary people don't possess such strong psychological fortitude. She had been detained for a day and a night. No one spoke to her, no one told her the time, and all her electronic devices had been taken away. Under these circumstances, an ordinary person wouldn't last a few hours before succumbing to nervous breakdown. Bai Lian, however, was unaffected, indicating her remarkable inner strength. Such a psychological endurance, even those who have received special training might not maintain. It's not something one expects from a first-year university student. Having interrogated many spies, Xueqi could tell at a glance that Bai Lian had secrets. He stepped outside with his cigarette, while his subordinates were in the office blocking Chen Beixian. Chen Beixian was not a member of the Security Bureau, but the leader of the Chen family's special forces. People from the Security Bureau didn't dare to stop her easily, and once Xueqi arrived, they conveniently let her through. Commander Chen. Xueqi opened the door, letting Chen Beixian in. Captain Su, when can we release her? Chen Beixian entered the office, sat down in Xueqi's chair directly, put her dagger down on the table, her black hair tied into a ponytail, and got straight to the point. You know whose person she is. Currently, the only contact from the site was Academician Ma. Her association with Academician Ma is still under investigation. Xueqi, although from a different faction, was not afraid of the Chen family. The director has already stated that we must thoroughly investigate all her connections. Chapter 854. Grandpa 332. Security Bureau under Chen Baixuan's eyes, cold and sharp, narrowed as he spoke with full authority. I want to see her. Sorry, Xueqi sent an email to his superiors. Even if your old master comes today, he won't be able to see her. The incident with Bai Lian has affected not only the Mu family but also the Su family and the Bai family. The next day, the web of relationships currently surrounding Bai Lian was uncovered. On the third day, the research institute collaborating with the Mu family was affected, and Su En's entire industry had to undergo an investigation. Although the matter hadn't gone public, Mu Yining had also received a notification from the higher-ups. She was now restarting the Mu family's 4 research institutes and had obtained a batch of funds. Aside from the 3 heavy industry research institutes still under construction, the Pharmaceutical Research Institute was already not on the right track. But just at this time, the Medical Research Institute was ordered to halt its operations. In recent days, Jiangjing's actions had indeed been significant. Without the news of Bai Lian, the Mu family was naturally in the dark about what exactly had gone wrong in the chain of events. But the official document had already reached the Research Institute cooperating with the Mu family and Xian Kong. The other 3 heavy industry research institutes, also providing machinery for the sea water purification project, were still on standby. The Mu family convened an emergency meeting first thing in the morning. Apart from Mu Yining, no one knew the news about Bai Lian, and they were all in a state of panic. Mu Yining didn't hide the situation from these people and directly told them about Bai Lian's temporary status. Because of Bai Lian, they all had to cooperate with the investigation. Those present were shrewd. As soon as Mu Yining had spoken, they knew the situation was serious. In the scientific research community's reshuffling, even a large family could not withstand it, let alone the Mu family. Over a decade ago, the Mu family had already suffered a severe blow. This time, they absolutely could not follow in the same footsteps. Mu Zhendong's face was ashen as he rose to his feet. I remember Bai Lian is not in the Mu family genealogy, she does not count as a member of the Mu family. What he meant was, he wanted Mu Yining not to get involved in this mess. To protect oneself wisely. After the ordeal of more than a decade ago, the Mu family was truly frightened. Impossible, Mu Yining looked up, her voice resolute. I will tell Dad to help Alien gather evidence. Mu Zhendong pursed his lips, looking at Mu Yining as if she were crazy. Mu Yining, now is not the time to be angry with me. Whether it's her affair or not, if she gets into trouble, our Mu family cannot escape involvement. It was not the question of whether Bai Lian was in trouble or not, but Mu Zhendong and the others knew that if Bai Lian were the only suspect, in the end, whether it was her or not, it could very likely end up being her. Uncle, you don't believe her? Mu Yining remained silent, but Mu Zhao, standing behind her, looked up. Do you believe him? Mu Zhendong asked Mu Zhao, somewhat incredulously. Mu Yining lowered her eyes to sip her tea, signaling her position. After muttering to himself for a while, Mu Zhendong left with a sweep of his sleeve. I see you really are crazy. Upon leaving, he immediately instructed someone to buy him a plane ticket and started to tally his assets. Mu Yining turned to the others present and restated her stance. She is a descendant of the Mu family. I believe in her. Those who are afraid of being implicated are free to terminate their contracts with us ahead of time. Aside. The butler looked at Mu Yining without interrupting, only asking Mu Zhao, "Do you really believe in Miss Bai that much?" "Sister Bai, she scored full marks on her college entrance examination," Mu Zhao simply stated. The butler did not understand why Mu Zhao would bring this up out of nowhere. What did Bai Lian's full score in the college entrance exam have to do with this? Her essay also received full marks. Mu Zhao turned his head, looking at the butler. An essay full of power that trended online. One cannot write such an essay without sentiment. If you think she is problematic, you might as well believe I'm Emperor Jiangwu. The butler. What kind of statement was Mu Zhao making? Meanwhile, the Bai family was facing a similar situation. Bai Qiming had not received news from Bai Lian for a long time. Lately, Bai Xueqi's collaboration with Song Min had been going well, though Bai Shu's apprenticeship process had been somewhat affected. The official document had been delivered to the Bai family. Bai Qiming was shocked. They had not been in contact with Bai Lian and did not know the current situation in Jiangjing. He only called Bai Xueqi. Bai Xueqi was also unclear about Bai Lian's situation. But since it involved an academy, he had heard some rumors in the laboratory. Over the phone, he spoke somberly. "I've also been sent out of the laboratory by the professor. It seems her component is problematic. Dad, you should prepare early." This news startled Bai Qiming. The entire Bai family had never encountered such a situation, and the wish of Bai Lian's great-uncle to bring her back into the Bai family tree had never been revoked. Suddenly facing this issue, he was so shocked that he didn't know what to do. Uncle Qiming, Xueqi had not yet registered her marriage with Bai Qiming, but she had already been living with the Bai family since the new year. She took Bai Qiming's hand. "There's no need to panic yet. Last year, she was no longer a member of our Bai family." Chapter 855. Grandpa 332, Security Bureau under 3, yes. The elder uncle no longer cared about glorifying his ancestors or that Bai Lian was the nationally recognized top scholar he had longed for. She was already expelled from the family tree. You must quickly report this to the authorities. Just before this incident happened, the elder uncle had regretted letting Bai Lian leave. Now, however, he was relieved that they had the foresight to remove Bai Lian from the family tree early on. "This approach won't do," Xueqi lowered her eyes. "Qiming, we should issue a news release to clearly state our position and that we have long severed ties with her." Bai Qiming realized the situation and immediately had his assistant handle the public announcement. Within an hour, the Bai family found a reporter to release the news and clearly delineated their separation from Bai Lian. Even so, the Bai family's business was still affected, and several projects were halted. The Su family was also undergoing investigations. Many of Su En's projects were halted, which he had his assistant monitor closely. He was more concerned about Bai Lian's current situation than these projects. He didn't know where Bai Lian was, and she didn't answer her phone either. He then called Wan Yao. Wan Yao had ranked first in the written test and in the retest, earning a position as a graduate student under Director Huang. He hadn't boasted about this to anyone else and was still following up on an important project with Director Huang. He usually didn't meet with outsiders. Upon receiving Su En's call, he was startled. "Dad, wait a moment, I'll go find my teacher." After hanging up, Su En thought for a moment before grabbing his keys and heading to Shanghai apartment. Shanghai apartment. Today, Ning Xiao was not there, but Pu Xiaohan and Zhang Xiais were in apartment 103 accompanying Ji Hang. Pu Xiaohan was holding a camera, taking pictures of Ji Hang's treasured fabrics in the yard. "Grandpa, are these cloud brocade?" A piece of cloud brocade, as valuable as gold. Under the sunlight, they shimmered brilliantly. "Yes," Ji Hang held his pipe, looking at the fabrics. "There's quite a bit left. I'll make a set of clothes for you and Alien." "Wedding clothes?" Zhang Xiais asked as he texted Ning Xiao. Ji Hang glanced at Zhang Xiais but didn't object. Someone rang the doorbell. Pu Xiaohan continued taking shots, directing Zhang Xiais to move the boxes for her. Ji Hang, holding his pipe, went to open the door. "Dad," as Suen entered and saw Ji Hang's calm demeanor, he felt relieved, but still asked, "Where is Alien? Why isn't her phone going through? Is she busy with some research again?" It was typical for Bai Lian to be busy with research. She often disappeared for a week at a time. Ji Hang was used to this, as Bai Lian had often studied late into the night, returning only at 11 since high school. Even before college, she worked on research with Wan Yao and then went abroad for further studies. sometimes gone for over a month. Ji Heng didn't care much about the initial part of the conversation until a particular phrase caught his attention. He stopped, holding his pipe, and looked up. Her phone is out of service? The day Zhang Xiai's invited him for dinner, Bai Lian had messaged Ji Heng. She had mentioned being busy for a few days. Ji Heng took out his mobile phone to call Bai Lian. In the yard, upon hearing Suen's words, Pu Xiaohan and Zhang Xiai sensed trouble. They had not had the chance to stop Suen, and now they both set down what they were holding, looking at each other with concern. Bai Lian's phone was still off. Ji Heng set down his pipe, looking towards Pu Xiaohan and Zhang Xiai's. Xiaohan. Pu Xiaohan, after a brief contemplation, knowing that Ji Heng would find out sooner or later, briefly explained the situation, although she did not know the specifics, only that Bai Lian was at the security bureau. Ji Heng's eyes narrowed slightly. His voice calm as he turned and walked towards the room. The security bureau? Chapter 856. 333. Come and check with me. Ji Heng's anger clearly exceeded their expectations. From the time they met Ji Heng, he had always been indifferently stable. His emotions not outwardly evident. One couldn't tell from his expression whether he was happy or angry. When Suen first visited Xiangqing, Ji Mulan had provoked Ji Heng due to Bai Lian's issue. But even then, Ji Heng remained exceptionally composed. He had witnessed Bai Lian's imposing aura and had even wondered who Bai Lian really resembled. At this moment, Ji Heng's narrowed eyes and the reined-in aura of his body made even Suen reluctant to meet his gaze. Grandpa, please don't be angry, Pu Xiaohan reacted, going over to pat Ji Heng's back. You must be fine. We are also waiting for Principal Shi's news. Third brother Su and sister Chen are following up on it as well. Ning Xiao was inquiring about this matter with Zhou Wenqing and Shen Yu. Beside them, Suen, looking at Ji Heng's face, thought that Pu Xiaohan's reassurance was indeed not wrong. Ji Heng's expression was not one of anxiety, but rather anger. It was very strange. Ji Heng calmed himself for a moment before heading to his own room. He reached into the bottom of a trunk and took out a sandalwood box which, if Bai Lian were here, she would certainly recognize. He had shown it to her before. The box still contained a pile of photographs. The woman in the black and white photos was gentle and beautiful. Ji Heng ran his hands over these photos, then reached to the bottom of the box. He took out a small badge from inside. When he came back out, Suen saw that Ji Heng was holding a cell phone in his hand. Ji Heng stopped and asked Suen about the current situation of the Su family. It's all right. Suen's private equity mostly worked with overseas partners. Bai Lian wasn't legally included in the Su clan, nor was she his stepdaughter, so the impact wasn't significant. Things aren't looking great for President Mu for the time being. But it was different for the Mu family. Xian Kong was directly cooperating with the Mu family. It wasn't too favorable for the Mu family's medical research institute. Ji Heng pursed his lips. Let's go, I need you to drive me somewhere. Zhang Xiai's and Pu Xiaohan hadn't learned to drive yet, so of everyone in room 103, Suen was the only one who could drive. Suen quickly grabbed the car keys and followed Ji Heng. Ji Heng and Suen left the house, while Zhang Xiai's and Pu Xiaohan stayed in room 103, exchanging puzzled looks. Jiang University. Su Wenyao called Dean Huang. Dean Huang assured him to focus on the data, with only one sentence. Don't worry, she won't have any problems. After hanging up the phone, Dean Huang looked at Yu Xinjing, who was sitting in the office chair, his complexion not looking very good. Big brother, any news from the teacher? No. Yu Xinjing shook his head. The two of them fell silent again for a long while. The incident at the Snowy Mountains 20 years ago was not the end. This time, the impact was going to be even more serious. Academician Ma and Jiang Fulai. Both of them, Big brother, you need to get ready soon. Dean Huang straightened up and looked out the window. Little sister signed the 925 secret contract. We have to prepare for her to move to the front and start accepting disciples on behalf of the teacher. The two of them knew that Bai Lian's research direction was the same as their teacher's. If Ma Tongfeng really didn't return this time, they had to be prepared to let her step into the limelight. Not many people knew about Bai Lian's situation. The Wen family. Right after Wen Jixia finished discussing the promotion project with Uncle Wen, she received a WeChat message from her former classmate at Beijing High School, with a link. I remember last year, the Bai family was saying that Bai Lian, the national top scorer, was part of their Bai family, so why are they now releasing news to dissociate themselves from her? Last year, the Bai clan had made several trips to Xueqi but failed to bring Bai Lian back. Wen Jixia had heard about it too. But she had not given it much thought. Until now. Wen Jixia opened the news link, which was very straightforward. Bai Qiming publicly dissociated himself from Bai Lian, stating that as early as last year Bai Lian was no longer listed in the Bai family household register. Based on Wen Zixia's understanding of the Bai family, Bai Qiming would never release this news for no reason. When they saw Bai Shuqi's talent, they were willing to damage their own reputation and make repeated solicitations to have Bai Xueqi return to them. Now Bai Lian had demonstrated potential far exceeding Bai Shuqi's, and Wen Jixia did not believe the Bai family would give up on Bai Lian so easily. She pressed her phone, sending the news to Bai Lian and adding a question mark. Bai Lian did not reply directly. Wen Jixia was not surprised. Sometimes Bai Lian was too busy with experiments to carry her phone. She would reply when she saw it. But this time, until 11 o'clock at night, Bai Lian still had not responded. Wen Jixia frowned, having just finished showering. While drying her hair, she called Bai Lian's phone, only to find it turned off. The hand that was drying her hair paused, and she turned to send a message to Pu Xiaohan. Of the friends Bai Lian made in Xueqi, she was more familiar with Pu Xiaohan than others. Chapter 857. 333. Come and check with me. _2 Bai family. As soon as the news had aired, Bai Qiming had sat in his office and heaved a sigh of relief before calling Bai Xueqi and Bai Xueqi. Has this affected you at all? He asked. Bai Xueqi had already returned from the laboratory. He temporarily couldn't stay at school and was only in the Yin family's hall. Holding his phone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, he said, "The situation is still unclear, but the teacher said I could follow up on the project tomorrow." In the hall, Mrs. Song glanced at Mr. Yin and then at Song Min and Bai Xueqi, showing some hesitation. What exactly happened to her? Has the Bai family truly disassociated from her publicly? Although Bai Lian had previously been expelled from the family tree, Mrs. Song knew that the family elder had never reconciled to it. Everyone knew that Bai Qiming had frequently visited Zhongjing for the past year, hoping to find an opportunity to bring Bai Lian back to the Bai family. Bai Lian had not given them a chance, but the Bai family would not give up either. Now that they had made it public, the media and the public were aware, and the possibility of Bai Lian returning was virtually non-existent. Song Min pursed his lips slightly and remained silent. I heard from Xueqi that it's a serious matter. Mr. Yin put down his teacup and said unhurriedly, it's probably for the best to disassociate. Gao family. Gao Yi slowly set down his teacup and slightly raised his eyes. I've already asked about this through the Safety Bureau, and you should also avoid going back to the Mu family for now to avoid getting involved. Mu Yujun started at his words. She recalled that Bai Lian had previously been on good terms with that member of the Zhang family. Now it seemed, were they truly unrelated? Otherwise, why wouldn't the Zhang family bail her out? She left the room, feeling unsettled. Calling Mu Yining Mu Yujun, as a member of the Mu family, naturally couldn't just sit back and do nothing. But this time, Yining, what exactly did she do? Mu Yujun also felt unsure. The Gao family can't handle it now. Have you contacted the Zhang family? Mu Yining was also in turmoil and definitively stated, Alien definitely hasn't done anything wrong. It's not about whether she's done anything wrong, do you understand? Mu Yujun stepped outside. Mu Yining probably knew about this. Mu Xiangguang had already gone out to contact his old friends. Once he mentioned it was the Safety Bureau stepping in, most people were helpless. What should we do then? Can't you do anything? Shen Qing stood next to Ji Xiaojun, clutching him, her eyes desperate. You should find Xiaochen and Mr. Yu. Ji Mulan was holding a child and sat aside. At this time, she didn't disdain Shen Qing. She also looked at Mu Yining. Among the people she knew, Mu Yining was the one of the highest status she had met. Calm down, this isn't something that can be resolved just by contacting them. The butler handed Shen Qing a glass of water. The Safety Bureau, that's an independent entity under their own governance. Their only equal is the CLA, I guess. CLA. Both Shen Qing and Ji Mulan hadn't heard of it. They didn't know what sort of organization this was. Upon hearing that even Director Chen couldn't handle it this time, Shen Qing sat on one side dazed. Then, what do we do now? The butler didn't explain further and just looked towards the door. Well, wait for the master to return before we discuss further. Mu Xiangguang had already gone out to contact his old friends. The small black room. Bai Lian still sat in the chair. The people here were playing psychological games with her. In the pitch-black room devoid of any concept of time and without any electronic devices, a person could go mentally unstable over a prolonged period. Yet, Bai Lian showed no signs of distress on her face. She leaned slightly against the back of the wooden chair, her eyes slightly narrowed, her right hand resting on the armrest, her slender fingers tapping the armrest intermittently. Very rhythmically. Having once crossed through a sea of corpses, the psychological tactics she faced now were trivial to her. In her mind, she constantly arranged and recombined the code given to her by Scholar Ma, this string of code. What was its purpose? It was rare to have such a quiet place for her to think. Su was still outside. In the monitoring room, people were watching Bai Lian 24 hours a day, continuously observing her situation. Team Su, she's been maintaining this posture the whole time, said the person in charge of surveillance as he stood up, amazed at the young woman's persistence. Continuing like this is meaningless. Su frowned. Team Su, Jiang University called again. Outside, one of Su's subordinates was holding a phone. The president of Jiang University said we've arrested someone from their Tong phone class and are reporting it to the higher-ups. The Chen family couldn't reach them, but Jiang University could report to higher authorities. The president of Jiang University was not one to be trifled with. Su looked at the monitor screen, where Bai Lian was still comfortably seated, seemingly sensing Su's scrutinizing gaze. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked directly into the camera that Su was watching. On the screen, her apricot eyes seemed colorless yet incredibly captivating. It made Su involuntarily step back. After a long moment, he regained his composure. As if not believing he'd been startled by a young girl, he pursed his lips. What business does Jiang University have in this? The walkie-talkie in his hand buzzed, and Su answered surprised. Commander, is Bai Lian still with you? Release her. Only one sentence. However, Su himself was very suspicious of Bai Lian, and letting her go now? He immediately turned to find his immediate superior. At midnight, the lights were still on in the director's office of the Safety Bureau. When Su entered, the director was brewing tea. Commander, Su went straight in, his eyebrows furrowed. We were close to some progress and you're asking me to release her now. Let her go, the director, dressed in a formal suit, looked up. Her family has no issues, and you've been investigating for several days with no progress. She's highly suspicious, there are question marks all over her, Su looked at the director, shaking his head. You saw it yourself, her demeanor hasn't changed even after several days in the dark room. Her background is definitely problematic. I request a thorough investigation of her family and friends. It was then that a deep, resonant voice came from outside. Director's son, to scrutinize my granddaughter's connections, what right does the Safety Bureau have to investigate us? If you wish to investigate, then take this old man too. Ji Hing entered from outside. He slapped 2 badges down in front of Su. Chapter 858. 334 CLA founder Su hadn't expected anyone to enter at this time. He looked up at the old man standing opposite the director. The old man in front of him had somewhat white hair, a pair of pitch-black eyes that were vibrant, and was dressed in an oxhorn grey long robe with a standing collar and straight lapels, all the buttons neatly fastened. Neat. Clean. He was lightly turned to the side, looking towards himself. It was merely an old man, yet Su felt somewhat breathless under his gaze. Elder Ji, how could we possibly investigate you? The director opposite had already set down his teacup, still steaming, and hurriedly spoke. Hello, I am Pei Shi. I've had someone go to receive Bai Lian already. Rest assured, we absolutely do not harbor any doubts about your family. All of this is a misunderstanding. As he spoke, he picked up the phone again from the desk. Where is Bai Lian? They had also investigated for a few days. Besides that call from academician Ma, there was no evidence. Besides that, nothing was found out regarding the Mu family or Bai family. As for the Ji family, even less was found. Thinking of this, Pei Shi looked at the 2 badges on the table and didn't dare speak. Director Pei, Mr. Shao Kong has already been taken there. Hearing the response, Pei Shi let out a sigh of relief, hung up the phone, and poured tea for Ji Hang. Elder Ji, please have some tea. Pei Shi walked outside and handed the tea to Ji Hang. Bai Lian will be out soon. Ji Hang's gaze shifted to the door. Within a minute, someone brought Bai Lian in from outside the door. Bai Lian had been detained for a few days, looking somewhat thinner, but her mental state had not changed at all, still wearing the same plain-colored dress from that day. Seeing that Bai Lian was unharmed, Pei Shi couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat from his forehead. Thankfully, this young lady had a stable mentality. Otherwise, this situation wouldn't have been easy to handle. Grandfather? Bai Lian hadn't expected Ji Hang to be the one picking her up, and was quite surprised. She had expected 3 more days. Ji Hang as usual was silent, noticing at a glance that Bai Lian was in good mental and physical state. He was relieved. Come back with me. He didn't speak to Pei Shi, nor did he look at Su beside him. He just took Bai Lian and left. Pei Shi naturally didn't dare say anything, and even with a smile, saw the two out. Outside. Su-en's car had been parked the whole time. Today, he had driven Ji Hang to 2 places. The first in the afternoon was an unknown street. Now it was a heavily guarded forbidden area. The guards nearby prominently displayed their guns. He sat in the driver's seat, not daring to move his hands, his heart in his throat. Only when he saw Bai Lian and Ji Hang walking far out from the door did he breathe a sigh of relief and open the driver's door to step out. Alien, are you all right? He asked first, looking Bai Lian up and down. Her clothes were clean and neat, only she appeared a bit thinner. Her condition was very good. Let's go back first. Ji Hang only carried a cell phone, indicating Su-en to get in the car first. Alien hasn't eaten yet. The group departed. Pei Shi finally breathed out slowly, and only when the car was out of sight did he walk back into his office. Director Pei. Su caught up with Pei Shi, confused. Why? You also saw, she endured so long, this person must have issues and just like that you let her go? Not investigating her anymore? The two returned to the office. On Pei Zai's desk, there were still 2 badges. Su recognized this? Pei Shi didn't answer but just pointed at the 2 badges and raised his brows, asking. Su lowered his gaze and squinted. 2 badges, one a bit old, with a little leaf and a letter A on it. He didn't recognize that. The other badge was newer, not a letter but a number 8 on it. It looked somewhat familiar, but in Su's career, he indeed didn't recognize this badge. Is this a People's Merit Medal? This badge, it's normal you don't recognize. Pei Shi pointed at the slightly older badge, his expression serious. It's a badge for underground intelligence officers from the early founding period of our nation, only 8 were made. Su was slightly stunned. After Pei Shi finished speaking, he pointed at the other badge. This belongs to that elder Ji, but later he went into seclusion. Other than that, Pei Shi didn't say more. Ms. Ji and elder Jis descendants, their granddaughter, having such strong mental fortitude couldn't be more normal. Pei Shi knew not much else, just this evident fact. What issue could feasibly arise from such a family background? Chapter 859. 334 CLA founder _2 At first, Pei Shi also thought that Bai Lian had significant issues. The calm demeanor she exhibited did not seem at all like that of a university student. Now, however, it seems not at all surprising given her grandparents. You should be thankful that Bai Lian has a good psychological quality, otherwise if he really took issue. Pei Shi looked toward Su. The conversation was not fully finished. But Su understood Pei Zai's implication. If they really investigated thoroughly, Su would most likely be suspended for observation for a few days. As the two were talking, the office phone rang again. It was still Shunyu on the line. Shunyu always spoke politely. Director Pei, I want to know how our Tongfeng class student is doing now. Principal Shun. Pei Shi sat down, and this time his tone was much softer as he spoke to Shunyu. Student Bai has already safely left. Everything before was a misunderstanding, and there is absolutely no problem with Bai student's family background. Shanghai apartment. It was already 1 in the morning when Bai Lian returned. Pu Xiaohan and Zhang Xiais had not yet slept. When the 3 returned, Zhang Xiais even cooked a pot of noodles for them. The few people gathered around the table in the hallway of room 103 to eat noodles. Zhang Xiais, used to the prison, crossed his legs, and now that Bai Lian was out, he also relaxed a lot. Sister Lian, Brother Jiang and the others are okay, right? When can they come back? Soon. Bai Lian ate her noodles methodically. With her saying this, Zhang Xiais also felt reassured. Su-en sat to the side, eating his noodles with his head bowed slowly. The incident involving Bai Lian was not minor. The 2 places Ji Hang took him to were not simple. Su-en also knew about it, but he always made clear his own position, never asking what he shouldn't. After finishing the meal, he drove back to the office building in Yunshao district to the restroom. Dealing with it throughout the night, he finally called Ji Mulan the next morning. The news of Bai Lian's late-night departure was still unknown to others, and Ji Mulan was still at the Mu family home at this time. Ji Mulan was reading to a child of half a point in size. When she got a call from Xueqi, she handed the child over to the nanny to feed, and went to the yard with her mobile phone to answer, "My dad." Xueqi never let her worry about the child. It was only when she brought Xueqi back to the Mu family home that Ji Mulan managed to get involved a bit. "I just wanted to ask you, do you know what Dad does?" Xueqi stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking very relaxed. "He changed his surname and learned embroidery from my mom. When Ji Mulan was born, Ji Wanxin was already deceased, and she really didn't know much about the previous generation's affairs." Xueqi knew that Ji Mulan and Ji Heng had an average relationship. He looked down at the traffic below. "Your dad has many pieces of cloud brocade. All were old and cherished, the kind that could be passed down." Ji Mulan never wore the clothes made by Ji Heng. When she was born, the people around her all admired imported goods and wore little Western outfits. Traditional attire was hardly worn by anyone, at most Chong Sam. Ji Mulan was a bit startled. She never tried to understand Ji Heng. Looking at the flowers in the yard, she said softly, "Then those must have been left to him by my mom." Ji Mulan had never even visited his storage room. After hanging up, Xueqi was also surprised. When he first became acquainted with Ji Mulan, he knew she was talented but only thought she was one of the many in Xueqi. Now, thinking again about it, with so many fabrics in Ji Heng's possession, Ji Mulan's maternal family must also have been quite prominent. He only knew about the Mu family but had no idea who Ji Mulan's mother really was. She must have had a considerable status back then. Otherwise, Ji Heng would not have left the Mu family or even changed his surname to Ji. He had initially thought Bai Lian was full of secrets, and felt that Ji Xiaojun was very capable. But now he felt that both Ji Heng and Ji Xiaorong seemed to be quite extraordinary. Like when Bai Lian was taken away silently for investigation. She returned to Shanghai apartment just as calmly and quietly. Although the incident was not publicized, the engineering project at the Mu Family Medical Institute was no longer being obstructed. Xueqi had stopped business for 7 days, made a fuss, and then reopened. Because Xueqi headquarters suddenly shut down for 7 days, various news stories took off on the internet. Amidst this hot topic, Xueqi reopened. The marketing genius Xueqi firmly took this opportunity for another marketing campaign and attracted another batch of attention. Xueqi, which was rumored to be under regulation days ago, soared abruptly. "Miss Bai is back?" Chen Beixian, who was busy at the Chen family to the point of taking off, stood up upon hearing the news from Su Nanjing. "Su can let her come back?" Chen Beixian knew Su well enough. He even dared not to give face to Mr. Chen. "Not sure," Su Nanjing pressed the center of his forehead. "He hadn't slept well these days because of Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai," she didn't say, but Su Nanjing narrowed his eyes slightly, recalling Yu Xinjing and Huang Yushua. Without Ma Institute present, his eldest disciple was still there. His connections in the circle were all still intact, with disciples all over, and if it was known that he had taken another closed-door disciple before leaving, Bai Lian's status within the circle was clear. Of course, Su Nanjing also remembered the significant amount of iridium Bai Lian signed for the Mu family, all of these unbeknownst to him. The more he thought, the more astonished Su Nanjing felt. He realized, as if in a trance, that Bai Lian seemed to have not yet played any of her trump cards. But what? Chen Beixian picked up his coat and headed out. Su Nanjing leaned by the second-floor window, watching the water beneath. "Before Brother Zhang comes back, it's better that you be more careful." "As if you needed to tell me." Chen Beixian took his car keys and left in his car. "I'm off to Shanghai apartment to stay." Since Bai Lian had run into trouble this time, Chen Beixian did not dare leave her side for half a step. At least until Jiang Fulai returned, she needed to keep a close watch on Bai Lian. Shanghai apartment. The door of room 103 was closed. Ji Heng was catching up on sleep. When Chen Beixian arrived, Su was outside the door of room 103. He had come to bring Ji Heng these 2 badges. Chapter 860. 335 comes out of the mountains. CLA has always been mysterious. The personnel inside are all selected through a rigorous process. Su initially aimed for the CLA, but he failed to meet the special training standards. Even those who were eliminated were exceptionally outstanding among ordinary people, which is why he could stay with Pei Shi. Whether it was the people from CLA or Pei Zai's group, each had undergone meticulous background checks. Su was not clear about the history of CLA, only knowing that the original members were 8 in total, and the last time they communicated with the domestic side, only an elder survived with a baby. But he hadn't expected that the old man last night was the only surviving member from CLA's first generation, and the current boss of CLA could technically be considered Ji Heng's descendant. Their first-generation honor was indeed profoundly significant. Ji Heng taking out just 1 medal was already significant enough. Yet he took out 2. At this moment, Su looked at Chen Beixian without the previous tension. "Come and apologize to Elder Ji." "Quite polite." Chen Beixian squinted, wondering since when had Su and his people suddenly become polite. 103, Ji Heng, wearing a coat, opened the door. Seeing Su was no surprise, and he stepped aside to let him in. "Elder Mr. Ji." As soon as he entered, Su bowed deeply, somewhat ashamed, raising a brocade box above his head with both hands. "This belongs to you." 8 people. Only 1 survived to establish the CLA. Concealing his identity, yet they doubted him, forcing the old gentleman to take out these 2 medals. Su had not slept all night. Upstairs, Bai Lian had not yet woken up. She barely slept in the darkroom. Having eaten noodles last night, she had only time to send a message to Xueqi and Su Nanjing before sleeping till now. Jiang He was lounging on the sofa in the hall, lazily twisting a Rubik's Cube. Xiaohan sat next to him watching TV. Zhang Xi's opened the door for Chen Beixian. "Sister, good." Zhang Xi's was on the phone with his dad, greeted Chen Beixian, then continued speaking to his father. "Lian? She's back." "Yes, it's fine. You're not coming back?" Chen Beixian glanced at Zhang Xi's. She had a good memory and remembered the imposing middle-aged man she had seen last time in the stairwell, who seemed to be Zhang Shi's father. "Sister Chen." Xiaohan put down the remote and stood up. Only Jiang He, still leisurely nestled in the corner of the sofa, his legs crossed and twisting the Rubik's Cube. He paid no attention to Chen Beixian. In all of Jiangjing, besides Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai, no one else dared to confront Jiang He. After all, no one knew if Jiang He was the second Jiang Shijue trained by Jiang Fulai. Chen Beixian was used to it by now. She crossed her arms and stood aside, speaking to Xiaohan. "How many people are still here?" "You mean the academics?" Xiaohan poured tea for Chen Beixian. "They're still in the lab." By mid-July, the autumn recruitment had also begun, which was a crucial period for marine engineering. Even those from Jiang University who passed the postgraduate exams were only so many, and large enterprises also needed to replenish their ranks. Chen Beixian thought of Ning Xiao and nodded. Gao family. Gao Yi and his group were in the living room, discussing the Mu family. Upon hearing that the Mu family had once again continued cooperation with marine engineering, the Gao family was surprised but not concerned. They had already obtained half of the shares from Mu Zhendong's hands. As for the apparent rise of the Mu family, the Gao family was not worried either. The Mu family was just struggling, especially since what they lacked most was manpower. This situation involved the State Security Bureau, something many professors knew about. There was a trust crisis regarding the Mu family, and not many wanted to be affiliated with them anymore. A situation where even Mu Ziangguang's connections were of little use. Autumn recruitment is imminent. The fresh blood from Jiang University is important for us. Gaoi looked at the office staff. My suggestion is to increase the stakes, try to get more honorary professors, and let more fresh blood flow into our research institutes and companies. Without Professor Ma this year, more would flow towards us. Research institutes also have ratings, which are essential for equipment, researchers, and research venues. The Gao family not only lacked a central research institute but also a leading figure. Although they were actively promoting Gao Jiachen, he was still far from someone like Professor Ma. It's hard to say, an elder looked up. You know there is also He Wen. Last year, the majority headed toward the Jiang family because of He Wen. He Wen's influence at Jiang University was too high. Not to mention the presence of the foremost authority there, the Gao family saw little advantage in comparison.